Our main boy, Song Li-kyu, was born a genius. From a very young age, his incredible talents were already shining through. But unfortunately, life isn't a fairy tale. A terrible tragedy struck when his family passed away in a sudden, unexpected accident. The young boy just couldn't accept that harsh reality. And that was the exact moment his inner predator finally awakened. So using a series of cunning schemes and highly calculated moves, he completely destroyed the people responsible for his older brother's death. But taking that revenge also dragged him into an endless spiral of chaos. What will happen to his life now? How will his journey unfold in this brutal martial arts world? Let's dive right in and find out. The story kicks off in a bustling market packed with people. Mi Long and Sheng Cheng keep following him around, begging, "Just this once, Chu. Come on, just this once. Let us see it again, please." No. Li-kyu stops in his tracks, looking super regretful. "My brother told me I can't do that anymore." But the two of them keep pressing, "But why? Why won't he let you play?" He explains the reason. He said people will start calling me a possessed freak. Sheng Cheng quickly reassures him, "But I've never thought you were crazy. Honestly, if I were you, I'd do it every single day." Keeping a totally straight face, Li-kyu sighs. "That's because you guys are my friends." Suddenly, a loud voice echoes from afar. "Mi Long, Mi Long." Mi Long stammers, "Mom." His mother stands there with her arms crossed, looking furious as she scolds him. "Didn't I tell you to stop hanging out with that kid? Get over here right now." He hangs his head and walks away, looking miserable. "I gotta go." Seeing this, his mother gets even angrier and yells, "How dare you disobey me? How many times do I have to tell you that Orphan Li-kyu is a terrible influence on you? Go back to your room and study now." Nate, on dem and Impersrao. Sheng Cheng hurriedly chases after him, calling out, "Q, wait for me!" He quietly keeps following him. Suddenly, Li-kyu speaks up. "Should we?" He whispers with a mischievous smirk. "Do it one last time." Sheng Cheng lights up, "Really?" He eagerly cheers. "All right, let's go. Time to cause some more trouble." Cutting to a dark corner hidden behind some old rundown houses. Li-kyu presses his face close to a crack in the ground, perfectly mimicking the squeak of a rat. He stares intently inside and whispers a few more words. After calling out, Li-kyu presses his ear close to listen. Deep inside the crack in the wall, scratching noises start to echo. Suddenly, a flood of weird sounds starts pouring out into the open. He immediately jumps up, grinning. "All done, let's get out of here." Having set up their little prank, the two of them quickly flee the scene. Li-kyu finds a great viewing spot and waves his hand. "Sheng Cheng over here, sit right here." He holds up his fingers, counting down with a wicked little smile. 1, 2. While the two are quietly watching, a piercing scream echoes through the tavern. And here we go. Instantly, someone shrieks in pure panic, "Rats!" The customers eating their meals suddenly drop their chopsticks, looking around in confusion. Rats. Did someone say rats? From out of the dark corners, a massive swarm of black rats comes charging out like crazy. What is going on? There's a whole swarm of them. Where did they even come from? A huge sewer rat suddenly leaps up, knocking over plates and bowls, sending the crowd into a total frenzy. "Catch them, there are too many." Over on the other side, the two boys are grinning from ear to ear, absolutely loving it. As the giant horde of rats floods in, one guy scrambles up a wooden pillar, screaming his lungs out, "I hate rats." The man desperately clings to the top, his face pale as a ghost. And then the support pillar snaps and the whole awning comes crashing down right in the middle of the crowd. The two boys are literally rolling around laughing, clutching their stomachs as they watch the absolute chaos unfold. Suddenly, Mi Long comes sprinting from a distance, shouting at the top of his lungs, "Li-kyu!" Hearing that, Li-kyu turns his head to look. He runs up to them, gasping for breath as he delivers the news. "The tavern owner is looking for you. You need to go find him right now." Myung-ryong pointed behind him and called out, "Brother!" Suddenly, his eyes widened in absolute shock. Cold sweat began to roll down his cheeks. Li-chu stood frozen in place, staring blankly at the cold, lifeless body. "That scumbag!" The innkeeper knelt down to inspect it carefully, then slowly recounted what happened. Bumping into someone while serving wine is completely normal. How could he beat a child to death over something so trivial? He's just a piece of trash living off women. What are the heavens doing? Why isn't that bastard dead yet? He could only let out a heavy sigh. The innkeeper turned to walk away and continued. I'll find a couple of guys to help bury the boy. Li Chu choked back his tears and asked, "Who was it?" Hearing that the man suddenly stopped. "What?" The boy sat lifelessly beside his older brother's body and asked again, his voice cracking, "Who did this to my brother?" The innkeeper's jaw dropped and he yelled, "What good is it if you know? What are you gonna do? Get revenge or something? That guy is not someone you can mess with. Just drop it, forget everything, and live your life for your brother too. I'm sure that's what he'd want you to do." Li Chu looked at the innkeeper, his eyes brimming with tears. "I at least need to know who he is, so I can curse his name for the rest of my life." Hearing those words, the old man just stood there in stunned silence. Sometime later, a shovel was raised ready for the first dig. The men quickly piled up a makeshift dirt grave. After the burial, they called out to him, "Kid, let's go home. Just leave him alone for a bit. Let's head back first." Losing your only family isn't easy. Now Li Chu sat entirely alone, his head bowed beside the grave. As he sat there, he softly muttered, "Huang Zhong. He's from the Jianghu sect." Li Chu's face darkened as he gritted his teeth, repeating the name, "Huang Zhong." Meanwhile, Huang Zhong was tilting his head back, chugging wildly from a massive jug of wine. In the middle of the crowded market, he staggered around, clutching the wine jug tightly to his chest. Huang Zhong let out a sleazy laugh and wiped his mouth with his arm. He lunged forward aggressively, glaring at the crowd and threatening, "I'll eat you all alive." The bystanders turned pale in fear and hurriedly backed away. What the hell is wrong with him? He must be crazy. Huang Zhong rolled his eyes around and barked, "What are you looking at? You want to die?" Making the person tremble and reply, No. He kept dancing around erratically, his manic laughter echoing through the street. "If any of you mess with me, you're all dead." Huang Zhong lifted the jug to take another gulp, but suddenly staggered and stopped. Taking a few steps into the alleyway, he quickly covered his nose in disgust. "What the? Who dumped crap all over the place?" Looking at the mess at his feet, Huang Zhong scrunched his face in absolute disgust and cursed, "Damn it, that's disgusting." That totally sobered me up. Suddenly, a long wooden pole was raised. From a distance, Li Chu stood there watching in dead silence. He stared straight ahead with lifeless eyes and whispered, "One." Meanwhile, the bastard was still pinching his nose, grumbling non-stop, "God, the stench is awful." At this moment, a sharpened stick appeared through a small hole in the wall. The shovel was firmly fixed in place, accompanied by a silent countdown. 2. He focused intensely, his eyes glued forward without blinking. Everything was set up perfectly. 3. Without missing a beat, Li Chu lunged straight toward the shovel. On the other side, Huang Zhong was still fuming, nagging endlessly, "If I catch the punk who did this, I'll dump shit right on his head." The boy dashed forward like a gust of wind. The man's body slowly moved closer to the hole. Li Chu launched himself into the air, his face showing absolutely no hesitation. He poured all his strength into kicking the shovel, sending it flying forward and piercing straight through Huang Zhong. The sudden attack twisted his face in pure agony. His energy completely spent, he collapsed to the ground. Huang Zhong's eyes rolled back in his head as he let out one last agonizing scream. Nearby, Li Chu sat panting heavily, his face drenched in sweat. The scene was now perfectly set up. Cutting to a small stream flowing under a wooden bridge, Myung was casually strolling down a narrow dirt path. His steady footsteps echoed quietly in the air. Suddenly, Li Chu peeked out and whispered, "Hey, over here!" Myung jumped and turned toward the haystack where he was hiding. Li Chu put a finger to his lips, signaling him to be quiet. He carefully unwrapped 2 steaming hot buns and offered them. "Here, eat up. And thank you." The 2 boys sat in the dirt. Myung looked around curiously and asked, "Why are you hiding out here?" Li Chu just shrugged and replied, "I am playing hide and seek." Myung innocently asked, "Then who is seeking?" "No one. I am just playing by myself." The air suddenly grew quiet, leaving only the sound of him happily munching on his food. Myung smiled warmly. "Sounds like fun." Li Chu then changed the subject and asked, "Did anything happen in the village? I have been hiding out here, so I do not know anything." Of course there did. Zhang Sung got punished and had to stand naked outside his house because he peed his pants. Can you believe it? He is already 10 years old and still wets himself. Is there anything else besides that? Myung leaned in close and eagerly continued. A few guys turned up dead down in the valley. Their bodies were covered in absolute filth. Disgusting, right? I honestly do not know whether to laugh or cry about it. Hearing this, Li Chu fell deep into thought. After a moment, he spoke up. "I am leaving." Myung looked confused and asked, leaving the village. Yes, since my older brother is no longer here, I have no reason to stick around. I am going to wander the martial world to see just how vast this world really is. Hearing his bold claim, Myung replied, that sounds amazing. I want to go with you. But Li Chu immediately shot him down. Your mother would never allow it. Oh, right. Hey, you should at least go see the innkeeper before you leave. He has been looking for you everywhere since your brother passed away. He is terrified you might do something foolish and follow him to the grave. Myung then suggested, do you want to sneak into the inn together? Sure, that is a piece of cake. A little while later, the two boys were slowly tiptoeing their way back. They carefully crept along the wall, keeping as quiet as possible. Spotting someone walking by, Li Chu and Myung quickly ducked behind some large wooden crates. Hide, he whispered. Once safely hidden away, both boys breathed a huge sigh of relief. Feeling proud, Li Chu whispered, perfect. The final step of the plan is complete. You are going to come back, right? Yeah, I will. With that, Myung turned to leave, glancing back to wave goodbye. You better come back. As soon as Myung was gone, Li Chu stood up and sneakily looked around before making his way to a certain shop. He gently pushed the door open and softly called out, it is me, Chu. But the moment he stepped inside, he froze in sheer terror at the bloody scene before him. Innkeeper, were you looking for me? He stammered. Just then, Hwang Ryong snapped his head around, glaring at the boy with murderous intent. Li Chu was paralyzed by the sheer horror unfolding in front of him. With the last ounce of his strength, the bloodied innkeeper desperately screamed, run! Get out of here! The boy jolted backward in shock. Without a second thought, Li Chu turned on his heel and sprinted for his life. He dashed out the door, running as fast as his legs could carry him. The killers immediately burst out after him. His frantic footsteps echoed as he picked up speed. Ducking low, he swiftly dodged and weaved through the busy crowds on the street. Li Chu made himself as small as possible, slipping right under the long robes of the passing villagers. Myungjo ruthlessly shoved people out of his way as he ran. Move! Get out of my way! But suddenly, amidst the chaotic crowd, he stopped dead in his tracks. Eyes darted frantically searching for him. A loud shout rang out from behind, over there! Li Chu spotted a gap and quickly squeezed inside to hide. They chased him into the narrow alley, cursing violently. That damn brat! Myungjo stood above them, shouting, block the back, hurry up! Deep inside, he was struggling to crawl flat on the ground. Even though he was exhausted, Li Chu refused to give up. He kept pushing his limits, crawling forward. After a while, he slowly emerged from the hole. As soon as he got out, Li Chu froze in shock at the sight of Hwang Ryong. The guy saw him too, rushing over with a roar, you little mutt! He swiftly scrambled up the roof, ignoring the man screaming from below. Stop right there! Hwang Ryong instinctively grabbed a wooden barrel off a nearby table and hurled it violently at Li Chu. Just as he climbed up, the barrel smashed into the roof tiles. Despite the relentless pursuit, Li Chu gritted his teeth, pouring all his remaining strength into his legs to sprint away. Under the cloudy sky, his small figure dashed across the endless rooftops. Down below, Myungjo was frantically pushing his way through the crowded market. Suddenly, he looked up, catching sight of the boy pulling off a reckless jump. Up above, Li Chu launched himself into the air. Moments later, he landed flawlessly with incredible skill. His desperate escape pressed on, but this time, rushing too fast, he tripped over a loose tile. Losing his balance, he tumbled wildly, rolling out of control. With nothing to hold on to, Li Chu plummeted from the high roof. A loud thud echoed as he slammed into the ground. The brutal fall left him lying completely motionless in agony. Even through the pain, he managed to push himself up on his trembling hands. Swallowing his suffering, Li Chu forced power back into his legs. He lunged forward, his footsteps growing even more frantic. Reaching an alleyway, he sharply swerved to the side. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a rough hand grabbed him tightly by the collar. It was Myungjo. He had finally caught him. As he was hoisted into the air, his eyes went wide with pure terror. Showing no mercy, the man violently slammed Li Chu down to the dirt. He lay sprawled out, completely dazed. Myungjo scowled and sneered. I never expected a little brat like you could actually kill Hwang Yong. Li Chu propped himself up, screaming back in furious rage. He killed my brother! His face remained ice cold as he slowly drew his sword. That's right. He killed your brother and you killed him. So now if I just kill you, this all ends. Isn't that right? Facing the deadly blade, all his fear vanished into absolute fury. Fine. Kill me. Just kill me then. Even though he roared so bravely, Li Chu instinctively threw his arms up to brace himself. After a moment of dead silence, he carefully peeked his eyes open. Turns out someone else had just smacked Myungjo over the head with a sword. Myungjo instantly collapsed face first into the dirt. Wang Wol spoke up slowly. I take it you're running from the Jakin sect. Li Chu stared at the scene, unable to process what had just happened. The man reached out a hand, offering, since that's the case, why don't you come with me? All of his previous anger melted away. He just stared up blankly, completely caught off guard by the sudden offer. Still, he quickly reached out with his tiny little hand. Huang Yu warmly took Li Qiu's hand, holding it with gentle affection. The scene shifts, and the urgent thud of horse hooves echoes from the distance. It turns out, Huang Yu was bringing Li Qiu back with him. The two of them rode along a dirt trail heading straight toward a misty mountain range. Up on the towering peaks, a cluster of buildings slowly came into view. Yusai rushed out to greet them, his face full of surprise. Fifth brother, who's the kid? He easily lifted the boy down from the horse and confidently declared, yeah, this kid is going to inherit my legacy. He won't lose out to any of our brother's disciples. Say hello. He'll be teaching you from now on. Li Qiu shyly bowed his head. I'm Li Qiu. Nice to meet you, kid. Yusai walked up to Huang Yu and informed him, head over to the meeting room. Everyone's already waiting for you. What's going on? Yusai turned and replied, I'm not entirely sure. Eldest brother said he has something to announce. Hearing that, Huang Yu fell into a moment of quiet thought. He turned to leave, but made sure to leave a quick instruction. Take him to the living quarters first. A little while later, UK made the introduction. Listen up, we've got a new member here. He's going to be your new brother. He pushed the door open and waved the boy over. Come here. Li Qiu hesitated for a second before stepping through the door. His fearful eyes darted around the room full of anxiety. Inside there were a few other kids, and the moment he walked in, every single pair of eyes locked onto him with intense curiosity. Seeing his new peers, Li Qiu suddenly froze, looking incredibly awkward and out of place. Meanwhile, Huang Yue strode into the meeting room and asked, Have you all been waiting long? The others inside quickly replied, Not at all. Take a seat. I heard you went out to pick up your successor. Are you happy with him? He sat down and casually explained, Compared to your disciples, the kid's still lacking a lot, but I'm confident he'll be incredibly useful if he's taught right. Now you've got me curious. His family name is Song, and his given name is Li Chu. He's turning 10 this year. His 13-year-old older brother was beaten to death, just because he accidentally spilled wine on a drunkard. Li Qiu tracked down the culprit and got revenge for his brother. He assassinated the guy flawlessly, without making a single mistake. Wait, a 10-year-old kid did that? Huang Yu narrowed his eyes and continued, and that drunkard was Huang Rong from the Sidian sect. The moment everyone heard that, they visibly flinched in pure shock. Lo Chao turned to him completely skeptical. Are you serious? Yeah, the room immediately broke out into loud murmurs. I heard Huang Rong was found dead on a pile of crap, but I never imagined Li Qiu was the one who did it. That boy was literally born to be an assassin. He's a total genius. Huang Yao smiled and poured him a full cup of wine full of praise. Looks like your patience finally paid off. You found yourself one hell of a disciple. Congratulations. Drink up. Thanks, senior brother. Huang Yu then asked, But anyway, I heard eldest brother had something to discuss. Tianlan set down his wine cup and spoke up. Now that everyone's here, let's get down to business. Brothers, I'm going to need you all to forgive me for this. The scene shifts back to the room where Li Chu was staying. Everything was still so new and unfamiliar. All he could do was stare blankly around the room. A hand suddenly slammed down hard onto the table, making Li Chu jump out of his skin. Ya An, who was sitting directly across from him, leaned in close. Flashing a knowing smirk, the kid leaned back into his chair and threw out a random question. So, how many? Li Qiu just stared at him blankly, completely clueless as to what Ya An was talking about. Ya An glared at him with dead yet highly scrutinizing eyes. How many people have you killed? Li Qiu was absolutely stunned, freezing in horror at what he just heard. The kid cockily bragged, I've already killed 16 people. If you've killed more than me, your rank will be higher. If not, it'll be lower. Miaoen over there has the lowest rank. All she managed to do was kill some weak, pathetic old man. Miaoen shot him a look of pure disgust. Shut your mouth. If you mess with me, you'll regret it. Ya'an leaned in and whispered, "She's a little rough around the edges, but pretty cute, right? Don't go falling for her, though. She's mine." And as for Chosa, the guy never talks, so I have absolutely no clue about him. Honestly, I think he got picked just because he's ugly as sin. Liko looked up and replied coldly, "I haven't killed anyone, I just turned them into vegetables. But Ya'an, I am more than capable of killing you, so keep spouting that nonsense." The boy pouted and continued, "He's not someone you should be getting close to." "Then how many people have you killed?" Seeing no reaction from Li Cho, Ya'an yelled, "Are you just going to pretend you don't know what I'm talking about? Do you really not know why they brought you here?" At this moment, he only whispered softly, "I was being hunted down, and they—" On the other side, a man fell to his knees and begged, "Save me, brothers, please forgive me." The banquet quickly descended into chaos. Everyone jumped to their feet in shock. "Big brother! What are you doing, big brother?" Tianlan lowered his head tormented as he confessed, "I killed the Chuji sword saint." Hearing that name, everyone froze in dead silence. Still in shock, Luo Zhao stepped closer to ask, "Big brother, you killed him, / I'm too ashamed to even face you all." Huang Yu spoke up in confusion. "So, what, we've killed plenty of people before, haven't we?" He bowed deeply confessing, "I was in such a rush to get back that I left my scabbard behind. Now the whole world will know it was the Zealing Bureau. Yes, it is. / You've never made a mistake before." "Why now?" "It seems you had your own personal motives when you took that mission." Hearing that, Tianlan stayed silent, unable to say another word. He stood up, sighing heavily. "I had a bad feeling the moment that woman came looking for Big Brother. / Third brother, that's enough. I didn't question it because I trust Big Brother. Phase. Are you going to abandon the Zealing Bureau and your own brothers just to get revenge for that woman?" Furious Tian Huang shoved him and roared, "Third brother! How could you say something like that?" Luo Zhao then turned away in frustration and snapped, "I'm sorry." He angrily pushed the door open and stormed out, leaving Yukai, who was carrying wine, completely bewildered. "Third brother, where are you going?" Luo Zhao didn't answer and just kept running. Yukai shouted after him, "Third brother." Sir. Meanwhile, inside, the others tried to ease the tension. "Big brother, please get up. Don't take third brother's words to heart. He didn't mean it." Tianlan could only sigh. "No, he's right." The man standing next to him added, "It looks like the 10 great sects are going to pin the blame on the Zealing Bureau and wipe us out." Frowning, he made a plea, "Please help me deal with the 10 great sects. I am willing to accept my execution." Hearing those words, the group was startled. "Big brother, the execution is happening tomorrow." Huang Yu immediately voiced his objection. "You can't do that. We have to fight. Let's fight this to the bitter end." Huang Yao, standing nearby, chimed in. "Fifth brother is right. Running away and dying is the same as fighting and dying, isn't it? Think about Xiao Gao." Suddenly, Tianlan cut them off. "We have to think about the future of the Zealing Bureau. Even if we die, the Zealing Bureau will live on as long as Xiao Gao is alive. No matter how slim the chance of saving Xiao Gao is, we have to take it, don't we?" The room suddenly fell silent as everyone quietly thought of Xiao Gao. The scene shifts to a ruined, desolate temple. A man leaned in close and called out softly, "Captain!" Tian'an slowly opened his eyes, looking confused. He sat up, yawning widely as he asked, "What is it? / There are some Shaolin masters here to see you." Tian'an looked a bit surprised. "Shaolin masters?" Outside, 3 Shaolin monks were approaching. One of the men hurriedly ran up to greet them. "Oh my, what brings you to such a run-down place?" Standing before the high monks, Tian'an clasped his hands in greeting. "It is an honor to meet you. I am Tian'an, captain of the Nanyang Beggar Sect. / Amitabha, we have come to announce a decree from the 10 Great Sects Alliance." Hearing this, he stuttered, repeating, "The Alliance." The monk slowly announced, "The 10 Great Sects Alliance has issued an order to eradicate the Azure Sky Assassin, the one who killed the Chuji Sword Saint. We want you to eliminate the Zealing Bureau's Azure Sky Assassin by sunrise." This is the official eradication order along with a portrait of the Zealing Bureau's assassin. As the monks left, they didn't forget to leave a final word. "We trust that you will complete this mission. We shall take our leave now. Amitabha." By now, the monks had walked quite a distance away. The beggars gathered around, whispering among themselves, "So the captain is the one carrying out the execution / looks like it." Tian picked it up, his mind full of questions. But what exactly is a purge? Under the quiet night sky, Yu Kai spoke up. Third brother, please come back. Old Zhao looked up at the sky and sighed. Through all of this, eldest brother is undoubtedly in more pain and despair than anyone else. Suddenly, Tianlan walked over and called out, Third brother. Hearing the voice from behind, the two of them turned around. He replied, Eldest brother. Old Zhao bowed his head low, cupping his hand sincerely. I was far too out of line just now. Please forgive me, brother. It is all right, you do not need to apologize to me. With a firm yet sorrowful gaze, he clasped their hands tightly and said, It is entirely my fault that things have come to this. We brothers only have each other for one last night. We shouldn't waste this precious time holding grudges. That is why I acted the way I did tonight. Hearing this, he hesitated, his voice thick with emotion. Eldest brother. Tianlan placed a hand on his shoulder and said, You must never forgive a foolish older brother like me. Please do not say that no matter what happens, you will always be the leader of the Zilling Bureau. It was then that he explained everything. The only reason we've been able to roam freely in these lawless, blood-soaked Central Plains is because of the Purge. If things kept going the way they were, this world would have fallen into the hands of pure evil with no way out. That is why the 10 Great Sects established the Law of the Purge. The Law of the Purge serves as a brutal deterrent against gangs, unorthodox factions, and demonic sects across the Central Plains. Hey, old man. Yes, sir. Tianun rudely shattered the heavy atmosphere. Cut the long-winded crap. Old, he scratched his head, speaking awkwardly. Well, it's because the Zilling Bureau murdered Sword Saint QG without a justifiable cause. By all rights, their entire faction should be wiped out. But to buy his brothers a way out, swordsman Tianlan voluntarily accepted the purge. And your job, sir, is to carry out his execution. Execution. What exactly does that entail? Severing his limbs, piercing his eardrums, and gouging out his eyes so he will never see or hear anything ever again. At the same time, we must strike his Zhongguan and Shuihai acupoints so he can never channel his inner qi again. Simply put, the condemned will suffer a fate far worse than death. Hearing the gruesome details of the purge, a look of sheer shock washed over his face. But a moment later, Tian returned to his arrogant self, spreading his hands dismissively. I didn't expect them to ask me to butcher him alive. Sounds kind of fun, though it's a shame I only get to tear apart swordsman Tianlan. Executing him doesn't mean we're going to let the rest of the Zilling Bureau escape with their lives. The 10 Great Sects will hunt every last one of them down to the ends of the earth. He turned around completely baffled. Wait, so they're all going to die in the end anyway? That's exactly right. Jian'en scoffed, his voice turning cold. So swordsman Tianlan volunteered to be butchered for a completely hopeless cause. How beautifully ironic. He shouted out an order to the group. All right, everyone, hit the hay early tonight. We ride out before dawn. The scene shifted over to Li Qiu. He was just about to drift off into a deep sleep. But suddenly, Li Qiu sneakily slipped out of bed and put on his shoes. He had barely taken a few quiet steps when a voice nearly made him jump out of his skin. If you're thinking about making a run for it, just give up. Li Qiu stammered back in a panic. I wasn't going to do that. Don't waste your breath. He turned around and quickly made up an excuse. Why would I ever run away? I was just heading to the outhouse. The scene shifted to the courtyard outside the outhouse. After finishing his business, Li Qiu casually strolled back out. He quickly broke into a run across the spacious courtyard. Midway across, Li Qiu suddenly froze, a look of confusion crossing his face. He stood dead in his tracks in front of a towering wall. Strange sounds were echoing from the other side. Driven by pure curiosity, he reached up and gripped the edge of the roof tiles. He then pulled himself up to get a peek at what was going on. The sharp tip of a blade thrust violently forward. A mysterious figure draped in a heavy cloak was practicing martial arts, a gleaming sword in hand. From his high vantage point, he held his breath, watching the mysterious figure perform a lethal sword dance. Their feet glided across the dirt with absolute mastery. Down below, the fighter unleashed a relentless flurry of razor-sharp strikes. The hood fell back, revealing Xiao Gao and her striking white hair. Li Qiu watched his face, a perfect mix of awe and sheer terror. All of a sudden, the girl stopped dead in her tracks and shot a glaring look toward the wall. Xiao Gao turned her head, staring right at the spot where he had just ducked out of sight. Narrowly avoiding getting caught red-handed, Li Qiu shrank back behind a wooden barrel. Suddenly, an authoritative voice rang out. "Did no one ever tell you that you are not allowed outside?" My room was getting far too stuffy, so I just came out for some fresh air. Hurry up and get back inside before someone spots you. Yes, it seems the Jianghu Bureau is facing a great disaster. I'm so worried. That's for the adults to handle. Don't worry about it. Just focus on your training. Yes, sir. Yujie advised him warmly. So go, no matter what happens, never forget. You are the only one who can revive our Jianghu Bureau. Yes, I will remember that. The scene shifted to a brightly lit room. The room was bustling with lively chatter. That's right, eldest brother. Do you remember Shin Se-chun? Shin Se-chun. Of course I do. His skill with the dragon head sword was absolutely extraordinary. What was it he said right before he died again? What do you mean he died instantly? With a challenging and slightly sarcastic gaze, someone quipped, he definitely said something. He went, "Erg." Nakjo's little joke had everyone in the room bursting into laughter. Suddenly, a sound echoed, leaving everyone stunned and wide-eyed. Then the whole group fell dead silent. Everyone's expression turned somber and heavy with sorrow. After a moment, Cheonram finally voiced the feelings he had held onto for so long. The time I've spent with you all has been the happiest of my life. Eldest brother. He spoke with a fulfilled smile. Thanks to you, my brothers, I've lived a life truly worth living. Please take care of yourselves. I hope one day we can all reunite in this very place. He then brought his hands together, offering a solemn bow of respect. Qian Huang stepped forward and called out respectfully, "Eldest brother." The rest of them simultaneously brought their hands together, their faces dead serious. Qian Ram looked at everyone, his eyes welling up with tears. All 6 of them stood up as one, bowing with clasped hands. The next morning, heavy footsteps marched forward. Then a boot slammed to a halt on the ground. Qian Un's group stood firmly in front of the gates. His gaze was filled with absolute resolve. Hands on his hips, Qian Un let out a threatening roar. Qian Ram, the swordsman assassin of the Guji Sword Saint, step outside and face justice. A loud pounding on the door echoed. "Wake up, everyone, get up." Li Chu was still groggy, his eyes barely half open. "Li Chu, wake up now." Wang Wol frantically pointed and urged them on. "Get up right now, So-yan." Yes? He turned to Ah-an and kept yelling, "Ah-an, hurry up and wake up." What's going on? He urgently herded the children out of the room. There's no time. We'll explain later. Just get outside. The boy stood there dazed, not yet processing what was happening. The 4 children scrambled after him in a panic. Wang Wol instructed, "My brothers are waiting. Run faster, kids." A shout rang out from the distance. "Fifth brother over here!" As soon as they arrived, he immediately signaled them. "Find your own masters and get on the horses, So-yan, come over here." The men hoisted the children up onto the horses' backs. "Hold on tight. Don't fall." Once the kids were secured, the older men mounted up right behind them. Qian Huang turned back hurriedly, giving his final orders to his brothers. "Just in case we won't tell each other where we're headed, let's all stay alive and reunite in 10 years. Nacho and Huanyo called out sadly, "Second brother, please take care." The 2 exchanged a deeply anxious glance. "Stay safe, everyone. Take care, second brother." With that, Qian Huang whipped his horse hard. The group spurred their horses in unison, galloping away. "All right, let's go." The scene cut back to Qian Ram standing face to face with Qian Un. He declared with solemn authority, "I am the leader of the Beggars sect. I represent the 10 great sects to purge this traitor." Qian Ram replied completely unfazed, "I've heard of your reputation. I am Qian Ram, the leader here, you bastard." Qian Un screamed in absolute rage, "How dare you assassinate the Guji Sword Saint? Do you even realize the weight of your crimes?" Qian Ram maintained his calm composure, looking him dead in the eye. "I know I broke the laws of the Murim Alliance, but I don't think you have the right to judge me." Hearing that, he let out a scoffing, mocking smirk. Qian Un stepped forward gloating as he pointed his finger right in the man's face. "Look at you spewing nothing but total nonsense. Keep talking while you still can before you turn into a lifeless corpse. Let's see how long that smug look of yours lasts." Then he suddenly barked, "Where is everyone else?" "They've all left. I have no idea where they went. I'll take all the punishments myself. Just let my junior brothers go." Qian Un turned around and interrogated him. "Do you even have a clue what the punishment is?" I know exactly what it is." He stepped closer, pointing his finger in a challenging manner. Whatever you do, it's completely useless. Did you really think you could escape the grasp of the 10 great sects? Hyun-un growled, "Keep dreaming." With that, he raised his hand. He turned and walked away, signaling his men. "Get started. Prepare the execution." Hearing the command, they all rushed forward to get things ready. The group violently pinned him down. They held Cheonram down tightly and ordered, "On your knees." Following the procedure, they violently ripped his shirt off. A thick rope was wrapped around Cheonram's wrists in a flash. Then they pulled it incredibly tight with all their might. Witnessing this brutal scene, Yujae's eyes widened in sheer panic and horror. "Senior brother!" Cheon-un pointed his finger at him and barked, "Don't you dare interfere, or else you'll be punished too." He wore a smug, arrogant expression. "That's right. Just keep your mouth shut. If it weren't for you, who would clean up his corpse after the execution?" Trembling with absolute rage, he turned his face away. The rope coiled tightly around his topknot, just like an unyielding noose. They violently dragged Cheonram across the ground. Once they were done, the men shouted, "He's all tied up." He was firmly pinned to the ground, his arms spread wide in complete despair. He squeezed his eyes shut, knowing exactly how this would end. A scroll was slowly unrolled, and Cheon-un announced, "Good." He held up the decree and read it out loud and clear. "Let the execution begin." The first punishment by the decree of the Shaolin sect life is the most noble and precious thing in this mortal world. Only the heavens have the right to take away the lives they themselves bestow. How dare a mere mortal strip away the lives of others? For this reason, the Shaolin sect will take one of your eyes for the crime of perceiving the world so falsely. That is the price you pay for your cruel actions. You have no one to blame but yourself. Amitabha. Gouge his eye out. Cheonram clenched his fists in agonizing pain. Cheon-un narrowed his eyes, observing him closely. He didn't even scream when his eye was gouged out. What a stubborn bastard. It's no wonder he became an assassin. The men finished the gruesome task and replied, "It is done." The second punishment by the decree of the Wudang sect. Your heart has been deeply tainted by evil intentions, and your 9 palaces are crawling with wicked demons. We pray to Taiyi Zhenren to purge these evil spirits from your body. Pray to him with all your soul. May the evil within you be completely reduced to ashes in the sacred flames of Taiyi Zhenren. Even if it claims your life, it is a perfectly justified price to pay for your terrible sins. You should be eternally grateful that you're only losing an eye. May the rest of your life find peace. Gouge it out, the announcer's voice continued right after. The third punishment by the decree of the Ime sect, pierce his right eardrum. The fourth punishment by the decree of the Mount Hua sect, pierce his left eardrum. The fifth punishment by the decree of the Qingcheng sect, chop off his right hand. The sixth punishment by the decree of the Zhongnan sect, sever his remaining arm. The seventh punishment by the decree of the Kong Tong sect, chop off his right foot. The eighth punishment by the decree of the Diankang sect, chop off his left foot. The ninth punishment by the decree of the Nanhai sect, completely destroy his dantian. The 10th punishment by the decree of the Beggars sect. Cheon-un clenched his teeth and coldly issued the final order, destroy his abdomen. On the other side, the brothers split up, each heading in a different direction. Meanwhile, Tianlan collapsed in agony on the blood-stained ground. Unable to endure the agonizing physical torment any longer, he opened his mouth wide, his throat spasming violently. The scene was absolutely gruesome. In the distance, a loud noise echoed through the air. The relentless pounding of horse hooves surged forward. Down the dirt trail, Huang Yue and Li Chou were riding their horses at breakneck speed. Suddenly, Huang Yue bolted upright, his eyes locked on the path ahead. He yanked back hard on the reins. The horse reared up, skidding to a sudden halt. Huang Yu steadied his mount, slowing it to a trot, as he spotted 2 figures walking just ahead of them. He glared at them and barked, "Hey, my horse almost ran you over. Stay on the side of the road." The 2 disheveled men held out their hands, pleading desperately, "We're starving. We can't even walk anymore. Please, my lord, have mercy. Spare us some food." Without another word, Huang Yue tossed a coin at them and snapped, "Here. Now get out of my way. Hurry up." The 2 men caught the coin, their faces lighting up with overwhelming joy. They bowed frantically, crying out, "Thank you, my lord, thank you." Li Kou turned his head, eyeing the 2 men with deep suspicion. He watched as they groveled pathetically in the dirt. Meanwhile, Huang Yu spurred his horse and continued charging forward. Instantly, the pathetic looks on the two men's faces vanished. Narrowing their eyes, they quickly pulled out a scroll and studied it. Wait a minute. Unrolling the paper, one of them smirked. I knew it. It's him. Send the signal. Tell them we just spotted a member of the Ziling sect here on Mount Yunchuan. Man, we've been lying in wait here forever. The man hurriedly planted a signal flare into the ground. He frantically struck two flints together, trying to spark a flame. The other watched impatiently, pacing back and forth. It's not lighting. Is the flint wet? A sudden rushing noise echoed from behind, making him whip his head around. Out of nowhere, Huang Yue was charging right at them on horseback at terrifying speed, making the two spies jump out of their skin. As he closed the distance, he drew his sword with a deadly gleam. Huang Yu swept past them, his blade slashing relentlessly through the men. A brutal strike sent one of them crashing hard onto his back. The remaining spy gripped a thick wooden club, gritting his teeth in absolute fury. You bastard! By now, Huang Yu had already wheeled his horse around. The thunderous pounding of hooves echoed once more. Huang Yu swung his blade, charging straight at the last man. Facing the deadly steel rushing toward him, the spy let out a feral roar. Come on, you worthless scum! Show me what you've got! Without a single word, Huang Yu delivered a vicious slash. The wooden club was cleaved perfectly in half, and fresh blood splattered across the dirt. After cleaning up the mess in the woods, Huang Yue and Li Qiu rode their horses into a quiet little town. There, Huang Yue managed to secure a small rundown house. He bolted the door shut and sat inside, staring intently out the window. After a long, tense silence, he glanced over his shoulder, sensing something was off. Li Qiu was sitting on a small bed covered in dusty sheets, staring blankly at the floor. He hadn't said a single word. Huang Yu broke the silence, first his eyes still fixed on the outside. Don't you have anything you want to ask me? Aren't you the least bit curious about what's happening right now? Hearing this, Li Qiu looked up and calmly replied, If it's something I need to know, you tell me yourself. I wouldn't have to ask. Huang Yu finally pulled his gaze away from the window. He fell silent for a moment, his brow furrowing. After a while, Huang Yu finally explained everything. We're going to escape to the central city. It's the one place where the 10 great sects can't just do whatever they want. I know the Ziling sect isn't hunting you anymore, but now you're forced to go into hiding all over again. Li Qiu asked quietly, Are they more dangerous than the Ziling sect? Huang Yue gave a grim nod. They're the ones who wiped out the entire Ziling sect in a single night. At this point, his voice dropped significantly. Me, my brothers, and you, we're all in grave danger. Li Qiu didn't reply to him. He sat in silence, deep in thought for a long time. Finally, Li Qiu asked innocently, I have a question. Huang Wu replied simply, About what? Li Qiu smiled faintly, his eyes lighting up as he looked at Huang Wu. What should I call you? Huang Wu turned to look at him thinking. Li Qiu looked away as if trying to avoid his gaze. Huang Wu then added in a deep voice, Just call me master. I'll teach you everything. If we both make it out of here alive. Li Qiu didn't look at him, but inside he was thrilled and he couldn't help but smirk. Outside the front door of the small house, someone opened the door and walked in saying, I'm back. Huang Wu shot up to his feet. Did you find a boat? The man nodded, pointing outside. Yeah, it's docked right at Bakel Ferry. The front of the boat has a yellow wooden roof, so it'll be really easy for you to spot. Huang Wu reached inside his robe. Thank you. Please take this. The man quickly stopped him. It's fine, you don't have to do that. He smiled politely at Huang Wu. Consider this my way of repaying you, since you helped me avenge my parents' deaths. Honestly, this is nothing compared to that. Hearing this, Huang Wu patted the man's shoulder and said, Thank you. The man nodded in return. Take care of yourself. Then Huang Wu hurriedly gathered his things and said, You can keep the horse out there. We won't be needing it anyway. Chu, let's go. Li Qiu confidently replied, Yes, master. Meanwhile, somewhere else, someone was slowly telling a story. Even with his limbs severed and his eyes gouged out, he didn't scream a single word. It was Cheon Yun. He looked up at the sky, his voice grave. I've never met anyone as resilient as him. The purge isn't even complete yet. Only the leader was executed while the rest of his brothers got away. At this, Cheon Yun confidently patted his chest. The reason the 10 great sects chose me to purge the Death Spirit sect is because they believe I'm the one who can get the job done. We think so too. As soon as he finished, dozens of people surrounding him spoke in unison. We completely agree. We're so proud of you, boss. In the crowd, one guy timidly raised his hand and said, "Forgive me, Chief. I'm sorry for ruining the mood, but—" Jian-un glanced over in annoyance. The guy quickly added, "Men and Inchin, who were ambushing at Unshin Mountain, haven't returned yet." Jian-un sighed and clicked his tongue. "Those idiots. Just ignore them. They're probably sleeping in some cave up on the mountain." Suddenly, a pitiful scream echoed from out of nowhere. Everyone present whipped their heads around to look. The one who had just appeared was Hook Mok, along with his two disciples. His eyes glared at Qian-yun with contempt. Hook Mok shouted angrily, "While you're carrying out an important purge mission, you need to double and triple check everything to make sure there are absolutely no mistakes." Seeing his arrival, Cheon-un hurriedly ran over, rushing so fast his shoes flew off. He cupped his hands in a respectful greeting and spoke loudly, "Greetings, Elder Hook Mok." The people who had been surrounding Cheon-un earlier quickly followed suit. "We disciples of the Beggar Sect greet you, sir." Hoik Mok stood face to face with Cheon-un and raised his voice to question him. "How exactly are you handling this mission, letting all the assassins escape while you sit around chatting?" Cheon-un bowed his head and spoke softly. "I still have much to learn. I will continue to improve myself. Please forgive me, Elder." Saying this, he looked up and asked cautiously, "But I wonder, what brings you all the way here to Namyang today?" Hook Mok sneered, "Am I not allowed to come here?" Cheon-un awkwardly looked away. "That's not what I meant, sir." Hoik Mok slowly walked inside. As a result of the 10 Great Sects discussion Shaolin will assemble later, Mount Hua will pursue the assassins, Samnung and Wudang will handle the rest. Cheon-un watched him and quietly asked, "So, that means—" Hoik Mok coldly brushed past him. "Yeah, the one your beggar sect needs to hunt down is the assassin Huang Wol. He's quite a dangerous guy and I've been assigned to oversee your sect for this mission." Everyone in the courtyard bowed their heads and shouted in unison, "We disciples of the beggar sect will obey Elder Hook's orders. We await your command, sir." Hoik Mok suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned to Cheon-un. "Send men to find the 2 who were ambushing at Unshin Mountain. It's highly likely they were killed by fleeing members of the Death Spirit sect." Cheon-un nodded. "I'll get on it right away, sir." Then Hoik Mok continued walking, giving instructions as he went. If the Death Spirit sect went to Unshin Mountain, it means they'll pass through Bakel Ferry and use the boats there. Reinforce the troops around Unshin Mountain and double the men at Marrow Village. Cheon stared at his back and shouted with unwavering resolve, "Understood." Hoik Mok stopped in his tracks once again. "One more thing, sect leader of the Beggars Sect." Cheon-un replied loudly, "Yes, sir." Hoik Mok spoke in a threatening tone, scowling at Cheon-un. "The only reason the 10 Great Sects gave you the Purge mission is because the Beggars Sect is the closest to the Death Spirit Sect. There's no special reason behind it, so don't get too full of yourself." The elder's glare made Cheon-un tremble. He bowed his head and stammered, I will keep that in mind." On the streets of a town, the clacking sound of a cane hitting the ground echoed, "Please spare some change." A blind beggar walked along holding a bowl and pleading, "I've been starving and thirsty all day. Please help this old man." A passerby waved him off. "I don't have anything." The beggar kept walking through the crowd. "Please have mercy and help me. I'm so hungry. Even a little food is fine." Wherever he went, the beggar held the bowl out in front of his chest. But suddenly he thrust his bowl forward, blocking someone's path. The beggar stood in front of Huang Wol, repeating the same phrase, "Please help me." Huang Wol glanced at him for a moment. Behind him stood Li Chu, looking bewildered. The beggar still wouldn't give up. Huang Wol had no choice but to lead Li Chu around him. "I'm sorry, but I'm really in a rush right now." The beggar let out a frustrated sigh and muttered, "Thank you for your kindness, sir." But unlike before, he didn't walk away, just stood there for a moment. His eyes were still squeezed shut, but once Huang Wol had walked a fair distance, the beggar suddenly snapped open his bizarre eyes and glared after him. Huang Wol and Li Chu had no idea, just calmly walking briskly ahead. The beggar squeezed his cheeks, stroked his scruffy chin, and cleared his throat a few times as if to change his voice. Then he turned to the side and snapped his fingers at 2 other beggars. They asked what was going on. The beggar pointed straight ahead. "That's the assassin, Huang Wol, right there." The other 2 rushed over, asking, "Where is he?" The first beggar ordered one of them, "Zhang Yi, go report to the boss. The other one come with me." Zhang Yi stammered, "What are you gonna do?" The beggar scoffed in annoyance. He grabbed a knife from a nearby fish stall and yelled, "We need to catch him!" The fishmonger shouted angrily, "Hey, why are you taking my knife?" Jianghu yelled back, "Just borrowing it to butcher a pig. I'll bring it right back, so don't worry." Jianghu and the beggar, knife in hand, ran and weaved through the crowded market. They tried to move as fast as possible, ignoring the curious stares of the onlookers. Jianghu stopped in his tracks and looked around. Where did he go? Did we lose him? The beggar also looked around. No, he couldn't have gone far. The two split up, checking different directions to find any trace of Huang Wol. Down a small alley, the beggar spotted the small figure of Li Chu walking away quickly. He shouted to let Jianghu know, "Over there!" Then he dashed into the alley. Reaching a corner, the two hid behind a wall. The beggar whispered, "1, 2." Right on cue, he swung the knife back, charged out, and locked his eyes on the other side of the alley. Jianghu followed right behind, but they only saw Li Chu standing alone at the dead end. The beggar stared at him in shock. Li Chu was looking back at them with a totally innocent face. The beggar let out a sigh and completely dropped his guard, his murderous glare softening when he saw the kid. He walked up to him while glancing around. "Hey, kid, where's your dad?" Li Chu didn't answer. He just slowly raised his right hand and pointed a finger straight ahead. The beggar and Jianghu gave him a confused look, but still turned their heads to look behind them. Their faces went blank when they saw nothing there, completely unaware that Huang Wol was dropping down from the roof right behind them. Moving without a single sound, Huang Wol slammed his elbow hard onto the beggar's head. He dropped to the ground instantly. Jianghu froze in absolute shock at the sudden ambush. In a moment of panic, he roared furiously, "Assassin Huang Wol, die!" Jianghu swung his knife at Huang Wol, but he just ducked and dodged it completely. Taking advantage of the opening before Jianghu could strike again, Huang Wol grabbed his knife hand. Jianghu was too dazed to react. Huang Wol tightly clenched his right fist and punched him hard in the left cheek. The punch left Jianghu dizzy, sending him flying to the side as the knife slipped from his grip. Without wasting a single second, Huang Wol swiftly caught the knife as it flew from his hand. He stepped forward and decisively slashed Jianghu, finishing the fight instantly. Jianghu collapsed to the floor. The beggar, still dizzy from the heavy blow to his head, sat up and weakly begged for mercy. Huang Wol glared at him. He grabbed the beggar by the hair and yanked hard, leaving the man terrified. Huang Wol forced him to his knees, his left hand gripping the man's hair and his right hand pressing the knife against his throat. Huang Wol looked at Li Chu with a cold gaze, then pulled the beggar's hair, forcing him to look straight ahead. The beggar screamed, his voice trembling with absolute terror, barely managing to choke out, "Please spare me!" Ignoring the beggar's miserable cries, Li Chu just stayed completely calm, watching intensely with his big round eyes. Huang Wol lost a bit of patience and said softly, "Hurry up, the beggar's sect is going to catch up to us." After dealing with those two, Huang Wol and Li Chu headed to the ferry dock, where a boat was waiting for them. At the dock, several armed men were patrolling. "Hey, let me get a good look at your face." The locals were totally confused. "What are you guys doing?" Huang Wol and Li Chu hid in an abandoned shack nearby to observe. "Damn it, we're too late. There are way too many of them at the dock. We can't take them all down." Li Chu didn't say anything, just following Huang Wol's gaze while he tried to come up with a plan. After thinking for a moment, Huang Wol spoke up. "Let's just lay low here for now and hope they give up when they can't find us." Just as he finished speaking, a sudden noise nearby made both of them whip their heads around. They spotted a guy from the beggar's sect wandering around looking for a place to relieve himself. He didn't notice them at first, but after glancing around to check if the coast was clear, he finally spotted them. Huang Wol clenched his jaw. Both he and Li Chu stared at the man without blinking. They all recognized each other right away, but just stood there in dead silence, locked in a tense stare down. Earlier, the bodies of the beggar and Jianghu had been dumped in a narrow alleyway. They lay there in pools of their own blood until the beggar's sect finally found them. Qian-un and the others knelt down to inspect the bodies. He stood back up and reported to Hook Mok, judging by the wounds, the weapon was likely a blade. This was clearly the work of a professional. "I am certain the assassin Huang Wol did this." Hook Mok glanced at the corpses. He must have been in a serious hurry since no real assassin leaves bodies out in the open like this. Suddenly, the beggar that Huang Wol and Li Chu had just run into came sprinting over. "Sect leader, we found Men and In-chun up on Mount Uncheon." Qian-un urgently asked, "They are just knocked out, right?" the beggar stammered. "Well, about that." He shook his head, trembling as he gritted his teeth. "They are dead, sir. Men was decapitated." Qian-un punched the wall so hard the wooden planks shattered. "Those bastards." Hoik-Mok did not seem surprised at all. "Just as I thought. If they headed from Mount Unshan toward the Bakel crossing, they must be planning to escape by boat." Qian-un growled in furious rage. "That bastard Huang Wol, damn it!" Hoik-Mok shot him a sharp look and barked an order. "This is no time to lose your temper. That assassin just walked right into our trap. Gather all the disciples immediately. We are going to hunt him down." Qian-un stormed out of the alleyway and shouted, "Yes, sir, let's move." The others immediately scrambled to follow him. A few minutes earlier, right as the beggar locked eyes with Huang Wol and Li Chu on the mountain, he had recognized them instantly, but he played dumb to buy himself time to figure out a plan. Realizing there was no way he could take on Huang Wol alone, he let out an awkward chuckle. Huang Wol narrowed his eyes silently, calculating the guy's next move. The beggar simply turned around slowly, pulling up his pants and tying his belt. He scratched his head, forcing a goofy smile as he started lumbering back down the mountain, acting like a total fool. Huang Wol did not move a muscle. He just stood there quietly, watching the man walk away. The beggar did not dare look back, just kept walking straight ahead. Huang Wol watched him disappear around the bend. His expression hardened, and he instantly dashed out of the makeshift hut. He launched himself forward, sprinting straight after the guy. He pushed his speed to the absolute limit, desperate to catch up to him. In a flash, Huang Wol reached the bend. He skidded to a halt and peered around the corner. The beggar was already running for his life. Catching a glimpse of Huang Wol behind him, he shrieked. Huang Wol instantly gave chase. The beggar bolted down the path, screaming at the top of his lungs. "It is the assassin! Huang Wol is here!" Huang Wol gripped his scabbard tightly with his left hand, while his right hand quickly tore away the cloth wrapped around it. The guy kept sprinting like a madman, desperately howling for help. "I found him. I found the assassin, Huang Wol." Huang Wol drew his sword. By then, the beggar had already scrambled around another corner. Huang Wol closed the distance in a heartbeat, appearing right behind him. He gritted his teeth and tightened his grip on the hilt. Taking the turn, he slid across the dirt to break his momentum, pulling his sword back for a strike. But the beggar was too fast. He veered down another path, desperately trying to shake him off. Huang Wol froze in his tracks, his hands firmly gripping his sword and scabbard, ready for battle. Meanwhile, seeing Huang Wol sprint off, Li Chu immediately rushed out of the hut. His eyes went wide in panic, torn between staying put to wait or running after his master. Right at that moment, Huang Wol came rushing back toward him. Li Chu gasped, "Master!" Huang Wol did not even slow down as he sprinted toward him, shouting urgently, "Run!" Li Chu froze in shock. Huang Wol quickly explained, "They found us. The entire beggar sect will be swarming this place any second now." Without hesitating, Li Chu bolted right behind him. "We have to hurry." The two of them scrambled up a mountain trail. From the bottom of the hill, furious shouts echoed out. "It is the assassin, Huang Wol. Get him." By then, Huang Wol and Li Chu were already far away. He glanced at the boy. "I think we are going to have to ditch the plan of escaping by boat. Find out what happens next in the upcoming episode." When the rest of the beggar sect arrived and found no sign of Huang Wol, Qian-un furiously kicked the beggar who had spotted them right in the gut. The man collapsed, clutching his stomach as Qian-un screamed at him, "You useless piece of trash!" Qian-un glared down at him with pure disgust and roared, "Why the hell did you stop chasing him?" Hoik-Mok stepped in to stop him. "Sect leader, that is enough!" Qian-un shot the old man an annoyed glare. "Elder Hoik-Mok." Himu glanced at the man kneeling on the ground, clutching his stomach. How could a mere disciple fight off someone from the Zealing Society all by himself? The old man lowered his voice. "Did you notice anything unusual about the assassin Huang Yu?" Tian-en chimed in with a threat. "Make sure you don't leave out a single detail." The guy just scratched his head. "Well, I didn't really see anything out of the ordinary." He glanced over at that old hut, struggling to remember. He hid in there with a kid. A kid. While the others were trying to figure out why Himu suddenly flashed a wicked grin. Then he burst into a hearty booming laugh, completely ignoring the confused stares of everyone else. Himu walked over to the hut. The Shura demigod, the invisible assassin, the clairvoyant wraith, all of them took a child with them when they fled, and the assassin Huang Yue did the exact same thing. Tian-en looked puzzled. But why just saving their own skin is hard enough? Why would they drag around dead weight? Himu just replied calmly. It's quite normal. Mere mortals often make foolish choices in the heat of the moment. If you look back at those from the past, you'll see this isn't exactly a path paved with roses. The Tianlan assassin put all his brothers in danger strictly out of his own greed. Tianen looked at the old man doubtfully. Wait, didn't he lose his mind when he murdered Sword Saint Kyuchi? Heimu's tone remained flat. A woman named Yanran had a child with him. That baby was likely the only thing standing in the way of her becoming Sword Saint Kyuchi's concubine. That is why the Tianlan assassin kidnapped the child. He willingly accepted the purge and entrusted each of his fleeing brothers with a kid. Most likely, it was a desperate ploy to protect that one specific child. The old man reminisced as he spoke. Haimu paused for a moment, then turned to stare right at Tianen. Yanran's baby should be about 4 years old by now. I'm certain of it. If those kids survive, they will grow up with hearts full of hatred. One day, they'll inevitably come back to get their revenge on us. I have to wipe out every last one of those little pests to secure our future. Tiana nodded in agreement. He barked out an order to the disciples. Did you all hear the old man? Until we track down the assassin, Huang Yue, nobody gets to sleep. Now move. And, just like that, the entire beggars sect set out to hunt down Huang Yue and Li Chu. Deep into the night, inside a pitch-black forest without a single light, a loud grumbling stomach suddenly echoed through the trees. Then, a long stretch of awkward silence, as if nothing had ever happened. The air was dead silent once again. After a moment, Huang Yue's voice broke the quiet. Are you hungry? Li Chou replied shyly. No, I'm not. Why? The soft rustling of leaves filled the air. The grassy ground suddenly began to tremble slightly as if something was moving underneath it. Huang Yu suddenly stood up straight from the dirt, lifting a patch of fake grass over his head. Li Chou had been hiding right there in the hole with him. Huang Yu kept his voice low. Let's go. We need to find some food. The boy replied obediently. Yes, master. The two of them spoke quietly as they carefully made their way down the mountain. I think we need to do something to throw off those beggars sect hounds. By tomorrow, they'll be swarming all over Malu village. They retraced their steps down the very same dirt path they had used to escape earlier that day. Down below, the faint glow of village lanterns began to peek through the darkness. Huang Yu found a small closed-up diner. He raised his hand and knocked twice on the wooden door. A voice called out from inside. Who is it? Huang Yue replied with utmost politeness. Please forgive me for disturbing you so late in the night. Could you spare us a little food? I promise to pay you handsomely. An old woman cracked the door open and peeked out. My place is just a run-down shack, and I really don't have much to offer you. Why don't you walk a little further down to Malu village? Huang Yu slipped 2 shiny gold coins through the crack in the door. We're absolutely starving. We really can't take another step. The moment the old woman saw the gold, her eyes lit up with joy. Her previous annoyance vanished instantly, replaced by a massive, beaming smile. She quickly ushered Huang Yue and Li Qiu inside. Just a few minutes later, 4 steaming buns were set out on the table. The old woman headed back toward the kitchen. Like I said, I really don't have much. Huang Yue replied softly. This is more than enough. Thank you. Li Qiu quickly chimed in with polite manners. Thank you so much, Granny. Huang Yu gave Li Qiu a small nod. Eat up. The boy immediately cheered with pure joy. Thanks for the food. Li Qiu grabbed a hot bun and looked up curiously. But, master, we aren't going back to Malu village anymore, right? He took a big bite of his bun, casually glancing toward the kitchen. Those guys are on such high alert. I'm guessing only a total fool would go back there. The sheer casualness of his words actually caught Huang Yue off guard. In the kitchen, the old woman was eavesdropping intently on their conversation. I guess we have no choice but to head up the mountain. But I really wanted to ride a boat. Huang Yu stared at Li Qiu in absolute disbelief, secretly amazed. This kid, he lies way too naturally. The two of them happily went back to scarfing down their food, right until a light tapping sound echoed from the front door. The old woman stepped out of the kitchen. Why on earth are there so many guests in the middle of the night? She yelled out loudly. Who is it? The voices outside shouted back aggressively. We are disciples of the beggars sect. The old woman cracked the door open and squinted into the darkness. Well now, what wind blew you fine disciples of the beggars sect all the way out here? One of the men shoved a rough sketch of Huang Yue's face toward her. Have you ever seen this man before? He's a ruthless assassin with a massive body count. The old woman recognized the face immediately. Her eyes went wide and she froze stiff in her tracks. Inside the diner, Huang Yue tensed up and cast a cautious glance over his shoulder. Beads of cold sweat were already forming on his forehead. Right at that moment, Li Qiu suddenly held up his empty plate and yelled out, "Granny, I want some more steamed buns." The old woman, completely caught off guard, stammered back, "Oh, all right." Then Li Qiu looked over at Huang Yue. "Father, do you want some more too?" Catching the hint, instantly Huang Yu grabbed his plate and stood up. "I sure do. You just wait right here." The beggar's sect disciples were already losing their patience. One of them growled, "Well, have you seen him or not?" The old woman squinted, pretending to study the drawing harder, and stammered, I'm not too sure. I don't think I have." But the beggar's sect disciple didn't give a damn about her answer. He just grabbed the wooden door and violently yanked it open, nearly knocking the old woman off her feet. He barged right inside, aggressively sniffing the air around the room. "What is that smell?" The old woman looked around nervously. "A smell? What smell?" The thug scowled at her in sheer annoyance. "What do you mean, what smell? Are you telling me you can't smell that?" He leaned in close, bringing his face right up to the old woman's, and whispered, "The smell of those fresh steamed buns? It smells incredibly good." Then he shoved the old lady aside and strode into the shop. He took one look at Li Chu and suddenly burst out laughing. Li Chu wasn't scared at all. He just sat there perfectly still, looking up at the man with a sweet, innocent smile. The guy raised his hand and smirked. "Hey kid, Li." Chu politely replied, "Hello there." Then he glanced toward the kitchen while the rest of the beggar's sect members trailed right behind him. The leader walked into the kitchen and sneered. "Must be nice having an old lady who makes such great dumplings, huh?" Huang Wol didn't even look up as he plated the food. "We are just lucky to have her around," he replied coolly. The man snooped around. "We haven't eaten a thing since we started hunting down that killer. You mind sharing some of that?" Huang Wol let out a soft chuckle. "Of course, though I am not sure it will be to your taste." He was still standing with his back to the man. The beggar's sect member narrowed his eyes, staring at Huang Wol with high alert. He put on a fake smile while slowly reaching for the sword on his back. "If a beggar like me complains after getting free food, the whole world would condemn me." Huang Wol hummed in response. "Well, if you say so." Before he could even finish his sentence, the beggar's sect disciple gripped his sword hilt and squeezed it tight. Catching the movement, Huang Wol whipped around to face him. Still holding a kitchen knife, he slashed it right across the guy's neck. It was so incredibly fast that the man could not even react. By the time his neck started bleeding heavily, he finally reached up to clutch his wound. A painful groan escaped his throat. To the absolute horror of the men outside, the wound poured out like a crimson waterfall. One of the beggar's sect members outside drew his sword and yelled, "You must be Huang Wol, the assassin, aren't you?" But before the blade was fully out, Huang Wol shot forward and grabbed his hand. His left hand clamped down on the guy's wrist while his right hand swung the kitchen knife from behind his head and struck down. But the man leaned back just in time to dodge. The knife slammed into the wooden pillar beside him, splitting it open. Taking advantage of his shock, Huang Wol delivered a brutal kick right into his stomach. The guy went flying backwards. The others outside instantly raised their blades, bracing for a fight. One guy by the doorway saw Huang Wol rush out and charged forward with a heavy blade aiming right for his back. However, Huang Wol's kitchen knife swiftly and cleanly blocked the massive weapon. He held his ground, keeping the blade locked in place while his entire body smoothly spun around to slip past the attack. Flexing his left arm, Huang Wol smashed his elbow right into the man's jaw with a sickening crunch. He shoved the guy aside and charged straight into the mob rushing up behind him. A swordsman didn't even get the chance to strike before Huang Wol brought a heavy blow down on his head. Crimson splattered everywhere. Seeing things go south, one of them circled around, grabbed Li Chu by the hair, and roared, "Over here! Look at me!" He pressed a blade right against the boy's neck, screaming at Huang Wol, "You better drop that knife right now. One wrong move and this kid is dead." But before the words even left his mouth, Huang Wol threw his knife. It buried itself straight into the center of the man's forehead. The guy collapsed backwards, releasing his grip on Li Chu. Seizing the moment, another thug lunged at Huang Wol. Without giving him a chance to strike, he grabbed the man's sword hand in a vice-like grip. Huang Wol spun around with lightning speed and clamped his left hand onto the guy's right bicep. In the blink of an eye, he completely overpowered the man and threw him over his shoulder. The guy crashed right into a nearby table. The sheer force of the throw, combined with his body weight, shattered the wood into pieces. Huang Wol kept his iron grip on the man's wrist. Then he yanked the sword right out of his tight grasp. While the guy was still lying dazed on the floor, Huang Wol raised the blade high and brought it crashing down. The man tried to say something, but all the color drained from his face and he could only stutter helplessly. The last two men outside the door went pale with terror as they watched the brutal scene unfold. They froze in their tracks, completely paralyzed as they watched Huang Wol slowly stand back up. Their voices cracked in sheer panic as his blood-stained face closed in on them. Huang Wol, the assassin. One of them sprinted away in pure terror, screaming at the top of his lungs, "I have to tell the sect leader. He is right here." The other guy was left completely stunned, having no idea what to do, and just called out, "Hey!" He had no idea that Huang Wol had already dashed right behind him. With one smooth motion, he sliced cleanly through the man's neck. But he didn't stop there. As the man collapsed and the sword slipped from his grasp, Huang Wol caught it mid-air. He hurled one of the blades straight at the runner. It slammed into the tree right next to the guy, scaring him half to death. A chilling fear washed over him, and he instinctively turned his head toward where Huang Wol was standing. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a sudden flash of light flying straight at him. It was a flying sword, but before he could even process it, the blade plunged violently into his chest, dropping him instantly. The force of the impact was so heavy that his lifeless body tumbled across the ground before finally coming to a dead stop. Huang Wol stood hidden in the dark woods, panting heavily while the sickening stench of blood filled the tavern behind him. Bodies were scattered everywhere, trailing all the way from the kitchen right out the front door. Soft whimpers echoed in the room. The old woman was curled up in a corner, trembling and completely pale as she stared at the carnage around her. Li Chu quickly rushed over to comfort her. "Please don't worry. It's all over now. We're not going to hurt you." Huang Wol stepped inside, making her flinch in terror. "We need to move. Pack our things, kid." Li Chu immediately nodded. "Yes, master." The two of them quickly packed their belongings in total silence, while the old lady remained far too shaken to even stand up. Once they were ready, Huang Wol glanced over at her and spoke softly. "Thank you for the steamed buns." The old woman gave a stiff nod, wrapping her arms around her trembling body. She didn't even dare to look him in the eye. She stayed frozen like that until the sun came up. They said they wouldn't be going back to Marok village. The old woman was now recounting the events to the beggars sect. They wanted to find a boat, but they couldn't. One of the men pressed her. "And then tell us everything you remember." Terrified, the old lady cowered against a wooden barrel and stammered out, He thanked me for the steamed buns." Outside the tavern, the men from the beggars sect had lined up the bodies side by side. Hookmak's face darkened with rage. He growled, "The price we're paying just to kill some lowly assassin is getting steeper by the minute. That little bastard." Qian-un looked away from the gruesome sight. "Senior, based on what the old lady said, they won't be heading back to Marok village." Hookmak scoffed coldly. "He told her that because he wanted us to believe it." Qian-un frowned, grinding his teeth in frustration. "Seems like he's underestimating us." Leaning heavily on his cane, Hookmak stood up and muttered, "Maybe he's just trying to throw us off, or maybe he really is heading somewhere else. Either way, we're going to have to split up the forces we have stationed at Marok village to track him down." "So his little trick worked?" Hookmak's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. However, he completely overlooked just how massive the beggars sect really is. We have eyes and ears everywhere. He turned to Cheon-un and barked an order. "We're heading back to Marok village. As for the sect leader, he'll be departing for Namyang. We move right now as fast as possible." Meanwhile, Huang Wol and Li Chu had circled back to their vantage point up on the mountain. Overlooking the docks, they noticed the number of beggars sect members had significantly thinned out. Hiding quietly on a rooftop, they stared off into the distance. Still, it's not clear enough for us to just stroll through without a care. Huang Wol carefully shifted his weight and whispered, "We'll have to wait for nightfall, which means we've got nothing to do until then. We might as well get some sleep and save our strength." Using his bundle as a pillow, he crossed his arms behind his head and gazed up at the sky. Li Chu quickly followed suit, settling down right next to him. Huang Wol's face was heavy with worry and unspoken burdens. "Watching the clouds drift by like this, it's so peaceful. It's a world away from the reality of being hunted. It feels incredibly relaxing. I just wonder if the rest of my brothers are safe." Li Chu lay quietly beside him, listening, but saying nothing. Suddenly, the boy noticed something. He glanced down toward his feet, sensing a strange movement beneath them. Li Chu slowly crawled toward the edge of the roof, prompting a confused look from Huang Wol. "What's wrong?" Right beneath them was an abandoned house, and muffled voices were echoing from inside. "No, please, don't do this. This is only because you refused my feelings. You've left me no other choice." Peeking over the edge, Li Chu saw a man holding a knife to a terrified woman. "Hold still, or we're both going to die here. Please, let me go." Huang Wol heard the commotion too. He let out an exhausted sigh. "Just ignore them. We're in serious danger ourselves right now. We can't go around playing hero." Despite his cold words, Huang Wol kept a close eye on Li Chu, watching his every move. Seeing the kid actually climb down from the roof, Huang Wol sat up and rubbed his temples with a deep sigh. "That stubborn kid." Li Chu fiercely yelled at the man. "Hey, stop right there!" The thug who had the woman pinned down jolted in surprise and barked back, "What the hell do you want?" Li Chu glared right back at him, speaking with absolute confidence. "If you don't back off right now, I'm reporting you to the authorities." The thug raised a threatening fist. "You stupid brat! Keep your nose out of my business!" Furious Li Chu yelled right back, "Get the hell out of here before I smash your head in." Suddenly, Huang Wol appeared right behind the boy. "I think it's in your best interest to listen to him." Li Chu whipped his head around, staring at his master in awe. The thug flinched the moment he saw the imposing figure of Huang Wol. Without taking his eyes off the threat, Huang Wol lectured his disciple. "You are never to get involved in other people's business again. Even if someone is about to die right in front of you, you don't even think about stepping in to help. Do you understand me? Burn that into your memory, kid." Li Chu looked up at him, his voice barely a whisper. "But I'd feel horrible if I just stood by and did nothing." Huang Wol let out a soft breath and stepped in front of the boy. "Kid, out here in the martial world, sometimes you have to learn how to look the other way." The thug clicked his tongue as Huang Wol approached. "You guys sure love sticking your noses where they don't belong." He gripped his knife and pointed it aggressively at Huang Wol. "Back the hell off. Do you have a death wish?" Huang Wol casually raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Let's just calm down. Please don't make this any worse than it already is." Sensing the distraction, Li Chu screamed at the terrified woman, "Miss, right now! Run!" Hearing that, the woman gritted her teeth and made a run for it. The thug immediately noticed and lunged forward to grab her. "You're not going anywhere! Stop right there!" In a flash, Huang Yue charged in and slammed his elbow hard into the bastard's gut. The knife flew from his hand. He was sent flying, crashing heavily into a nearby wooden cabinet that instantly shattered to pieces. As the thug groaned in agony, Li Chu tried to calm the woman down and urged her to run faster. Meanwhile, the thug struggled to get back on his feet, glaring at Huang Yue and roaring, "You little bastard!" Huang Yu stepped forward, his voice icy. "If you ever lay another finger on that girl, we really will hand you over to the magistrate, just like the kid said. Got it?" But the thug didn't reply. Instead, he stammered out, Wait a second." Trembling, he pointed a finger straight at Huang Yue. "Your face looks so familiar. I've seen your wanted poster. You're that assassin." A long, heavy silence fell over the three of them. The air suddenly grew thick with tension. Huang Yu narrowed his eyes, his voice turning deadly cold. "You shouldn't have recognized me." Meanwhile, down in the town, wanted posters with the faces of Huang Yue and Li Chu were already plastered across the notice board. Surprisingly, the creep from earlier showed up lugging a massive bamboo basket on his back. As he walked past the notice board, he stopped dead in his tracks to stare at it. After a few seconds of deep thought, he simply shrugged it off and walked away. Picking up his pace, he headed straight into the bustling market by the ferry terminal, looking completely unbothered. Amidst the crowded docks, an excited voice suddenly rang out. "Hey everyone!" A member of the beggars sect held up a woven basket. "Come here, quick! Gather around and take one." Two others instantly swarmed him. "What have you got there, man?" "I managed to snatch up some steam buns." "Wait, steam buns?" The three of them huddled together, their faces beaming. "I'm literally starving to death. Let's stuff our faces full so we have enough energy to hunt down that assassin Huang Yue." "You said it, brother. Let's dig in." The guy with the heavy bamboo basket walked right past them, shooting the trio a complicated look. Keeping his mouth shut, he kept walking until he reached a boat docked nearby. Just as he was untying the mooring rope, someone yelled out his name. "Hey, Lee-san!" The frantic shouts didn't stop, forcing Lee-san to turn around. "Lee-san, hey Lee-san!" He spotted a man waving his arms frantically and hollering, "Over here!" The man's name was Li Ming, and he bellowed at Lee-san. "The ship is about to set sail! What the hell are you doing?" Li Ming marched over, aggressively beckoning him. "There's still a ton of cargo that needs loading. How long are you going to stand around doing nothing? Get over here and give us a hand." Lee-san shot a wary glance back at the three beggars. The beggars stared right back at him. Heaving a heavy sigh, Lee-san stood up. All right, I'm coming. He treats me like a damn slave all day." One of the beggars turned to his two buddies. "Oh, by the way, rumors in the martial world say that 6 people were found dead at some super remote cabin up on Mount Donghae." They shook their heads in disbelief, cursing under their breath. "I bet you anything it was that assassin Huang Yue, wasn't it? What an absolute monster." Following Li Ming's orders, Lee-san and the rest of the crew loaded the heavy crates onto the ship. Li Ming double-checked the cargo and asked, "Is this the last of it?" Lee-san nodded. "Yeah, that's everything. It's all loaded up." Li Ming cupped his hands and yelled up to the man on the upper deck. "Lao Lao, the cargo is all secured. We're ready to set sail." Given the green light, the crew started shouting out orders to launch. "Raise the anchor." The heavy iron anchor was slowly hoisted up, followed by a booming roar, "Set sail." Loaded down with a mountain of cargo, the grand ship began to slowly glide across the water. One of the crew members pointed at Lee-san's bamboo basket. "Hey, Lee-san, what's actually inside this thing anyway? I've seen you lugging it around for days now." Lee-san brushed it off. "Oh, this somebody paid me to deliver it to Jianghu village." The guy nudged the basket. "Dude, I swear I just saw it moving." Lee-san replied with a deadpan expression. "Go ahead and open it then. It's only packed with about 30 venomous snakes." The crewmate instantly snatched his hand back. "Wait, what?" He whipped his head toward the old captain and screamed, "Lao, Lao, Lee-san brought a whole batch of venomous snakes on board." Lao Lao furrowed his brows in disbelief. "Say what now?" he barked at Lee-san. "You actually had the nerve to do that." Lee-san bowed his head meekly. "Someone begged me for a favor. Please forgive me, sir. Just this once." Lao Lao let out a heavy sigh. "Good Lord, why are you always pulling crap like this?" He snapped back at Lee-san. "What if some idiot doesn't know and opens it up? Huh? Go hide that damn thing where nobody can find it." Lee-san nodded vigorously. "Understood, boss. I'll go stash it away right now." One of the beggar's sect members was leaning against a tree trunk, sleeping soundly. He was completely oblivious to the person creeping up on him. The dark figure stepped up slowly, reaching their fingers out toward the sleeping man. Then the person flicked him hard on the nose, making him cry out in pain. He clutched his nose and cursed, "Which bastard did that?" But the person standing in front of him was Elder Hokmok. Hokmok crouched down beside him. "If I were the assassin, Huang Wol, your head would have rolled off your neck by now." He glared fiercely, his voice dripping with threats. "Do you still not grasp how critical this situation is? You actually have the nerve to fall asleep in broad daylight, not to mention having drool dripping all over your face like that." The man immediately bowed and pleaded, "I was such a fool. I haven't slept a wink since last night." Hukmok roared, "We've already lost 10 men. You better watch your back and keep yourself alive. Do you understand?" "Understood." But just a second later, someone came running and shouting, "Senior, senior, someone's dead!" Hukmok flinched. He furrowed his brows and turned to look at the man rushing over. He barked, who is it this time?" The man quickly waved his hands. "It's not one of our beggars' sect members." The man pointed behind him, stammering, "I think it's best if you see it for yourself, sir." Hukmok stared at him in confusion, but then decided to follow him and check out the situation. On a cargo ship floating out on the open sea, someone called out, "Hey, Lee Sam!" Ip Myung called out while carrying a bottle of liquor, "Come over here and have a drink with me." Lee Sam waved his hand dismissively. "I'm passing." Surprised, Ip Myung paused for a moment. "I can't believe you're turning me down. Is this really the Lee Sam I know?" Lee Sam clutched his stomach. "It's because I drank way too much last night, and it still hasn't settled." Ip Myung chuckled as he sat down next to him. "You shouldn't drink so much, man. You're not as young as you used to be." He took a big gulp of liquor and glanced at Lee Sam. "Anyway, let's put that aside. How is that plan of yours going?" Lee Sam frowned and stuttered, "What plan?" Ip Myung nudged his shoulder. "Oh, don't play dumb with me." He leaned in close to Lee Sam's ear and whispered, "If Songhua rejects your feelings this time, weren't you going to cause a scene to force her hand? So how did it go? I know how you operate. Once you start, you go all the way. How is she? Was she worth it?" Seeing Lee Sam stay quiet, Ip Myung pressed on. "Come on, tell me a little bit." Lee Sam let out an annoyed sigh. "Well, I haven't done anything yet, so you should just forget about it." Ip Myung clicked his tongue and shook his head in disappointment. "You got rejected again, didn't you? I knew it. But it's really weird that you didn't do anything about it." He took another swig and gave Lee Sam a grumpy look. "Is there something wrong with your head? Why are you acting so out of character, huh?" But as he said that, Ip Myung suddenly noticed something strange. His voice trembled as he cried out, "Your face!" Lee Sam glanced at him, unaware that a patch of skin near his ear was peeling off. "What's wrong with my face?" But Ip Myung's unusual reaction was enough for Lee Sam to realize something was wrong, and he reached up to touch his face. With a swift motion, Lee Sam delivered a vicious chop right to Ip Myung's throat. He collapsed on the spot without being able to utter a single word. Lee Sam pulled his hand back and let out a sigh. He clicked his tongue and used his fingers to peel off the loose skin near his ear that Ip Myung had spotted earlier. Lee Sam slowly peeled it off, revealing Huang Wol's true face. He had been disguised as the man this whole time. Huang Wol held Lee Sam's skin mask and shook his head. "I guess I was in too much of a hurry earlier, so I didn't stick the mask on properly." Then he stood up, walked over to the deck, and casually tossed the mask into the sea. After being notified, Hukmak arrived at the scene. He pushed aside a pile of straw and discovered a corpse with its face completely skinned. Hukmak's face visibly paled. Good heavens! I never expected that assassin Huang Wol to be this skilled at making human skin masks. He turned to the Imperial Guard standing next to him. "Have you figured out who he is?" The guard replied. "According to what this old man said, he probably boarded a cargo ship that left the dock a long time ago, sir." The old man crouching nearby with a smoking pipe added, "I knew it. He was the only one with a mole on his hand." Hukmak sprinted out of the area and roared, "Order them to stop that Young Jin ship at all costs." But that ship set sail 4 hours ago. Where is it scheduled to dock? That ship travels back and forth between the villages of Hangbegil and Gunro. Then he turned to the side and asked, "Are there no stops between the two villages?" A man replied loudly, "They said they would stop at the Namyang dock." Hukmak nodded and muttered to himself, sending the beggar sect leader to Namyang was a wise choice. He ordered the signalmen, "Fire the flare and send a carrier pigeon immediately. Tell the sect leader to intercept the Youngjin ship at the Namyang dock." Along with the deafening boom of the signal flare came Hukmak's roar, stating that he needed to rush to the ferry dock first and wait for the Youngjin ship there. From the ship out at sea, Huang Wol also spotted the series of flares shooting up from the mainland. He dragged Ip Myung's body away while letting out a helpless sigh, tension clearly visible on his face. Huang Wol muttered to himself as he opened a wooden crate. "They are definitely waiting for me at Namyang." Inside was Li Chu rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Master." Huang Wol spoke in a low voice. "Stop dawdling." Li Chu looked around in a daze. "Are we safe now?" Huang Wol didn't answer, but instead asked him, "Do you know how to swim?" Li Chu shook his head. "I've never tried swimming before." Huang Wol lifted him out of the crate as he spoke. "Well then, you're gonna learn how to swim today." Before Li Chu's bewildered eyes, Huang Wol unhesitatingly threw him into the water. Li Chu screamed, "Master! Ois, sir." A loud splash rang out. The noise was so loud it startled almost everyone on board. Huang Yu calmly grabbed his bags and sword from inside the crate and strapped them on. He moved quickly and stepped out onto the deck, trying his best not to make a sound. Huang Yu then dove straight into the water. The old man behind him watched in suspicion. Ignoring the freezing water, Huang Yue dove deep to search for Li Chu. He calmly looked around, but there was nothing but endless water. The pitch-black darkness of the deep sea surrounded Huang Yue, making it incredibly hard to see. After a few seconds, Huang Yue finally spotted Li Chu panicking nearby. His mouth was wide open as seawater rushed in, and his eyes were wide with sheer terror, completely paralyzed by fear. Half an hour later, at the Nanyang docks, a ship's silhouette appeared. Someone shouted, "There's a ship!" A massive crowd from the beggar sect was already waiting. They yelled, "The Yangon ship is coming in." The sailors walked up to the deck to see who was gathering down at the docks. All they saw were the furious faces of the beggar sect disciples, weapons gripped tightly in their hands. The ship slowly approached the pier. Once it was close enough, a wooden plank was lowered. The beggar's sect disciples immediately swarmed the ship, their heavy footsteps echoing all at once. The leader stepped aboard and aggressively barked, "Nobody move! If any of you step off this ship without permission, you'll pay dearly for it." While the passengers were still in shock, the beggar's sect scattered everywhere. Search every single corner. Yes, sir. They grabbed the sailors by their collars. "Let me see your face." "Hey, what are you all doing?" The old man walked down the stairs and shouted, "You lot, how dare you board someone else's ship like this?" Tian'an finally stepped forward and said, "A murderer boarded this very ship," the old man asked in confusion. "A murderer?" Tian'an looked at him and said loudly, "This is an emergency, so please understand why we couldn't give you prior notice." The old man nodded in agreement. "Do you have a picture of him? Let me take a look." Tian'an waved his hand backward. "Show him the drawing of the killer." A man stepped up and held out a portrait of Huang Yue. "Does he look like this guy?" The old man pointed behind Tian'an. "I didn't see him with my own eyes, so it's hard for me to confirm from this drawing. But over there." Tian'an followed his gaze. The old man continued, "He got off about half an hour ago. He threw the kid in first, then jumped in right after him. If they know how to swim, they've probably reached the other shore by now." Tian'an leaned in close to the old man. "He committed a grave crime. If you're helping a fugitive, you might just face the exact same punishment." Unfazed, the old man just laughed. "Hey, tell them what you saw." Li Ming, sitting in a corner clutching his neck, spoke up. "That wasn't Li San. He was wearing a skin mask of Li San. No wonder his voice sounded nothing like him." Tian'an narrowed his eyes at him, cursing under his breath. "Damn it!" Meanwhile, in the direction the old man pointed on the shore near where Huang Yue had jumped. In the distance, Huang Yue could be seen carrying Li Qiu on his back. He was slowly swimming toward the shore. Once it was shallow enough to stand, Huang Yue held the boy and took slow, heavy steps forward. Li Qiu lay completely motionless in his arms. Huang Yue was panting heavily after swimming for the past half hour. When he finally reached the sand, he laid Li Qiu down and immediately collapsed right next to him. Seeing that Li Qiu was still unconscious, Huang Yue extended 2 fingers. He struck the boy hard on the left side of his chest. He still wasn't breathing. Huang Yue used his right hand to press down on Li Qiu's chest in a steady rhythm. He kept at it for several minutes, but Li Qiu didn't move a muscle. Huang Yue gasped for air as he pressed on his chest. He reached up and touched the boy's neck to check for a pulse. Huang Yue furrowed his brow, his lips pressed tightly together when he couldn't feel a single beat. He let out a heavy sigh, closing his eyes in sheer helplessness, and reached up to take off his head wrap. Huang Yue sat down beside Li Qiu. He stared at the boy without saying a word. He sat there in dead silence for a long time, as if waiting for a miracle. Huang Yue's head dropped after a while of trying to compose himself. Huang Yue struggled to push himself up from the sand and stood up. Gritting his teeth, he left Li Qiu alone on the beach, turned his back, and walked away. But after taking just a few steps, a violent fit of coughing behind Huang Yue startled him. Huang Yue slowly turned his head, unable to believe his ears. His eyes widened in shock, and he stammered in disbelief as he saw Li Qiu coughing up water. "Li Qiu!" Li Qiu collapsed on the sand. After an endless fit of coughing, he lay exhausted, gasping heavily for air. Li Qiu's eyes were glazed over, his voice broken. "Master, I'm not dead yet, so let's just say I finally learned how to swim." Huang Yue stepped closer, breaking into a rare, relieved smile, his first in days. Meanwhile, after getting the news, He Mu had also ordered his men to row toward this very beach. The old man stood silently at the bow of the boat, his eyes fixed relentlessly ahead. Just as they neared the shore, a loud voice rang out. "The elder has arrived." By now, a large crowd from the beggar's sect had gathered on the shore. He Mu leaped gracefully from the boat. The moment he landed, Tian'an rushed over. "Elder!" He Mu looked at him coldly. "So, that assassin jumped into the water and escaped from the Yangon ship?" Tian'an quickly nodded. "Yes, the captain's statement didn't seem like a lie." He Mu eyed him with suspicion. "Are you sure?" Seeing the old man's skepticism, Tian'an pointed to the side. "Over here. Please take a look for yourself." He pointed to the exact spot where Li Qiu had just been resting. "There are traces of someone throwing up and lying down right here. The tracks of someone crawling out of the water are still completely intact." He Mu jutted his chin toward the footprints trailing across the dirt. "If we follow this path, where does it lead? To Manhwa, sir?" He Mu pondered for a moment before continuing. If they've escaped to Menghe, our search area will expand 100-fold, covering Lucheng, Guansha, Booming, and Dongku. That'll make it even harder to track him down. We definitely need to start searching for him in Menghe. Let's move out immediately." A guard accompanying He Mu spoke up. "The road to Menghe occasionally crosses major highways. That's not an easy route for a wanted murderer showing his face." He Mu glanced at him. "If you were an assassin on the run, what would you do?" The guard answered without hesitation. "As a murderer, if he doesn't hide his face with a human skin mask, it'd be hard not to stand out. He'd definitely seek out isolated places and travel through deep forest trails." Upon hearing this, a specific location immediately flashed in He Mu's mind: the Guanqian Shrine. His guard had the exact same thought, nodding firmly. "Yes." Without another word, He Mu leaped onto a nearby boulder to get a better vantage point. He gazed into the distance and asked Tian'en, "Tian'en, where is the shrine on the southern side of that mountain?" Tian'en raised his voice in protest. "Elder, if he's heading to Menghe right now, we have to chase after him immediately to catch up. How can we waste time looking for some shrine?" He Mu glared at him in annoyance. "Where is it?" Tian'en was clearly dissatisfied but answered anyway. "Well, there's Mount Tianyin and Mount Hengsing. Mount Tianyin is famous for wealthy people setting up ancestral shrines, while the nameless commoners are just buried carelessly at Mount Hengsing." Leaping down from the boulder, He Mu barked out his orders. "I'm heading to Mount Hengsing. The rest of you go to Mount Tianyin immediately." He landed on the sand and turned back with a final instruction. "If you spot him, kill him on sight. No need for interrogations. Keep watch over there and wait for my signal, understood?" Tian'en bowed his head respectfully. "Understood." He Mu turned and walked away. "Let's go." The guard who had spoken up earlier quickly followed right behind him. As he brushed past Tian'en, the guard stared at him, flashing a mocking, arrogant smirk. Tian'en stood up straight, his fists clenched tightly in anger, but unable to do anything. He could only stand there and watch him leave. Afterward, Tian'en rallied the beggar's sect disciples on the beach and led them toward Mount Tianyin. Walking at the front, he muttered in a low voice, "You guys must have seen the look on that bastard's face. He looked at me with such contempt and sneered. It's absolutely despicable." Pausing, he asked the disciple walking behind him, "If it were you, what would you do?" The disciple looked confused. "Huh." Tian'en tilted his chin at the guy. "If you were the assassin, would you really go to Mount Hengsing or Mount Tianyin to peel the skin off a dead corpse? Or would you just get the hell out of here as fast as possible? That's what I'm asking." Put on the spot, the guy thought for a moment before replying, "If it were me, I'd just run without ever looking back. How could anyone cut off a dead person's face anyway? It'd be rotten. You couldn't even use it." Gesturing wildly, he added, "I'd make a run for it too. Why would I stick around here?" Tian'en nodded in agreement. "Exactly. The elder definitely miscalculated." Stepping up to a massive gate, someone called out, "Tian'en, we're at Mount Tianyin. This is the entrance to the memorial shrine." One disciple spoke up, "Should we search the mountain perimeter?" Tian'en shook his head. "No need. That killer isn't here. We'll definitely get a message soon saying he already fled toward Menghe." Then he raised his voice, giving an order to all the beggar's sect disciples behind him. "Everyone take a break. We'll probably have to run again soon, so get your strength back while you can." Hearing that the others happily collapsed onto the grass, "Man, my body is totally stiff. Everything hurts." They lounged around chatting casually. "That bastard. I just hope this ends quickly. Why do we have to suffer like this?" One guy shook his head vigorously. "We're reclaiming justice for Dungan, so what's a little suffering?" The first guy disagreed. "Honestly, whether you're the one chasing or the one being chased, it's miserable either way." The other guy threw his hand up and yelled out, "Sir, Tian'en, we've got someone here complaining about the mission." Startled, the complainer slapped a hand over the guy's mouth. All right, I get it. Just shut up." And so they kept happily chatting away, full of lively banter. "It is because of selfish jerks like you that the world has become so lawless. All right, I get it, just stop." Another person nearby chimed in. "Even though he makes a fair point, he is just so annoying. Doesn't anyone want to punch him in the face?" As if he had just been waiting for those exact words, the guy who was getting scolded earlier immediately smacked the person next to him right on the forehead. Caught completely off guard, the guy stumbled backward in a daze, babbling in sheer panic. Seeing him flail around like that, the guy next to him started giggling, drawing the curious gazes of the onlookers. But who would have thought that right behind him was a steep drop-off? He tumbled straight down the small cliff. The guy up top stammered, I'm sorry, I didn't think you would actually fall all the way down there." The fallen guy angrily scrambled to his feet and yelled, "You bastard! Just wait until I get back up there! You are dead meat!" But the moment he looked up, he found Huang Wol and Li Chu hiding in the bushes right in front of him. Huang Ho spotted Li Chu and Huang Wol hiding in the bushes right below him. The three of them just locked eyes, completely frozen, unsure of what to do next. Huang Ho snapped out of it and fell flat on his back with a heavy thud. Seeing this, Huang Wol quickly drew his sword. He was about to shout, but Huang Wol was a step faster, pressing the blade right against Huang Ho's neck. Huang Ho instantly clamped his mouth shut. Li Chu immediately put a finger to his lips, signaling him to keep quiet. Huang Wol shot him a deadly glare and whispered, "One wrong move and your head comes off." Terrified by the threat, Huang Ho didn't dare to move a muscle with sweat pouring down his face. The scene shifts. Meanwhile, over at Hyuk Mok's side, they found the dug-up graves. One of the gang members cursed out loud. "Damn it, what kind of sick bastard does this? Who goes around digging up people's final resting places?" Jundong chimed in. "Whoever did this is definitely going to pay." Hyuk Mok's group kept checking the other graves that had been dug up. One of the men pointed out, "Wait, this body still has its face. They dug it up, but did they feel guilty and leave it alone?" Another man shook his head and explained, "No, the face just wasn't in good enough condition, so they didn't bother taking it. They haven't been dead for long, but the skin is way too stiff to be made into a human skin mask." Another guy checking the nearby graves called out, "Elder, the body in this grave is untouched." Jundong also shouted back, "Same over here." Hearing their reports, Hyuk quickly figured it out. This is a graveyard for the poor and starving, so their skin isn't suitable for masks. The one-eyed man standing next to him asked, "Then what does that mean?" Hyuk turned to his men and said, "It means the culprit dug up a few graves, realized it was useless, and gave up." Right after saying that, he pointed straight up the mountain and barked an order. "Head to Mount Cheonim and fire a signal flare for Branchmaster Namyang. Tell him to surround the entire mountain and make sure not even a single ant escapes." Hearing the order, one of his subordinates nervously spoke up, "Elder, we don't have any signal flares ready yet." Furious, Hyuk cursed at them. "You useless fools." The one-eyed man quickly stepped forward to save the situation. "I will go deliver the message myself, and I will grab a horse at the bottom of the mountain right away." Without wasting another second, he sprinted down the mountain as fast as he could. Hyuk shouted after him, "It's getting dark, so hurry up and get moving." The scene cuts back to Cheonen's group. Seeing that Huang Ho still hadn't come back up, one of the men yelled out, "Hey, Huang Ho, what are you doing down there? Did you get hurt? Are you dead or something? Why aren't you answering?" Down below, Huang Ho stayed completely silent, paralyzed with fear and having no idea what to say. Huang Wol glared at him and whispered fiercely, "Answer them!" He pressed the blade tighter against the man's throat, drawing a thin line of blood, and warned him, "Choose your words carefully." Terrified, Huang Ho tried his best to stay calm and stammered out a loud reply, "I am perfectly fine." Hearing his voice, the man up top leaned over and shouted back down, "Then why aren't you coming back up? What the hell are you doing down there?" Drenched in cold sweat, Huang Ho panicked and stuttered, "Oh, I am just..." He kept glancing around, desperately trying to come up with a believable excuse, but his mind was completely blank. Suddenly, Li Chu reached down and slipped off one of his own straw shoes. He held the shoe right in front of Huang Ho's face and pointed at it silently, giving him a hint. It was exactly what Huang Ho needed. He immediately shouted back, "My straw shoe. I dropped my straw shoe and I can't find where it went." Hearing the ridiculous excuse, the guy up top just waved his hand dismissively. "What did your shoe grow legs and walk away? Just look around where you are and search properly." Up above, Cheonen had completely lost his patience. He stood up from the steps and ordered his men, "We are leaving." The guy sitting next to him looked confused and asked, "Leaving for where?" Cheonen barked his orders to the entire group. "Everyone get on your feet right now. We are heading to Mangyang." Just as he said that, a subordinate ran up to report, "Branch Master, we just got word that a letter from the Elder is on its way." Hearing this, Cheonan quickly instructed, "Tell the idiot looking for his shoe down there to stay behind." One of the gang members yelled down the slope, "Hey, Huang Ho, we are heading to Mangyang. You stay here and wait for the Elder's letter, then bring it to us, got it? Sorry to leave you with the grunt work." Hearing his comrades abandon him, Huang Ho could only watch helplessly as they walked away. He desperately wanted to say something, but he couldn't. Huang Wol was sharp, and he instantly noticed the shift in the man's expression. After a brief moment of hesitation, Huang Ho finally made his choice and screamed at the top of his lungs. "No, wait! There is an enemy down here!" The second the words left his mouth, Huang Wol's sword sliced right through his neck, sending his head flying as blood spilled everywhere. Huang Ho's lifeless body collapsed to the ground. However, the people up top didn't seem to notice what happened at all, and one of them shouted back, "Coming all the way out here was a total waste of time, and we are already running late. Let's move." The rest of the men immediately shouted in unison, "Understood." The group quickly packed up and marched off. Only one of the men felt like something was slightly off, briefly glancing back over his shoulder as they left. Back down below, Huang Wol and Li Chu were busy dragging Huang Ho's lifeless body deeper into the bushes to keep it hidden. As he pulled the heavy body, Li Chu glanced up nervously at his master. Huang Wol was also sweating bullets, keeping his eyes glued to the top of the slope to see if anyone was coming back for them. Once they were absolutely sure the coast was clear, Li Chu and his master slowly crept out of the brush. They waited until the enemy group was completely gone before making their way back up the slope. Huang Wol climbed up first, gripping his sword tightly ready for a fight. He cautiously peeked his head over the edge while Li Chu followed right behind him with his hoe. Seeing that the group was long gone, Li Chu spoke up. "The guys hunting us have already gone ahead, master." Hearing his disciple, Huang Wol replied, "I was trying to figure out how we were going to escape Mount Chenium, but it looks like the situation just changed. We just have to wait until they are far enough away." Li Chu looked a bit confused by his master's words and asked, "Wait, does that mean we still have to keep looking for a human skin mask?" Stepping onto the main path, Huang Wol calmly sheathed his sword and said, "We do not have any other choice right now, so yes, we still have to find one." Li Chu climbed up the rest of the way, gripping his hoe tightly as he asked, "In that case, should I go look for some more graves?" The two headed toward the graves, talking as they walked. "Can you do this?" "I haven't forgotten what you taught me at Mount Hong Song, master." "Good, then give it a try." Hearing his master agree, Li Chu got fired up. He ran up the stairs and called out, "I'll go first." The scene shifts to the road where a horse was galloping furiously. It was the one-eyed man from the Hukmok faction. He was rushing to deliver news to Jianghu. As soon as he reached the foot of the mountain, he pulled his horse to a stop, but there wasn't a single soul in sight. Seeing nobody around, he couldn't believe his eyes. After a moment of silence, the one-eyed man turned his horse around and muttered, "He definitely went to Namyang. Why didn't he leave anyone behind?" With that, he hurriedly galloped after Qian'un's group, who were already far ahead. Back to Li Chu and his master. The two had entered the woods. He analyzed the surroundings as they walked. "I followed the strong smell of dirt. The plants are still green, which means the soil was dug up not too long ago." Li Chu stopped in front of a grave, pointing at it as he spoke. Unlike Mount Hongsong, the graves here at Mount Qian'im are fully covered in grass, but the blades are short, so they just grew recently. Will this grave work? Huang Wol looked at the grave and nodded in praise. "That's right. Good find." Li Chu looked up at his master and asked, "Why are the graves here so big? It'll take forever to dig." "Right. I'll try to dig as fast as I can." Hearing this, Huang Wol spoke softly to him. "There's no need. We can get into these graves without digging." Li Chu didn't understand. He turned around and asked, "How?" Huang Wol walked up to the grave. He bent down and forcefully pushed the stone tablet in front of it. He used all his strength to shove the massive stone aside while Li Chu stood by and watched. After a moment, a doorway leading down into the tomb finally appeared. Huang Wol and Li Chu peered down into the tomb to get a look inside. The two pulled out a torch and lit it up. Huang Wol held the torch and carefully stepped into the tomb. Li Chu followed right behind him. The master and disciple quickly made their way down into the crypt. Right in front of them was a coffin. Li Chu tiptoed behind his master. It was his first time inside someone else's grave, so he was a bit nervous. Huang Wol raised the torch to light up the tomb. In the center lay a coffin, and the surrounding stone walls were carved with various figures. Back on the road, Qian'un and his subordinates were moving in a rush. Qian'un led the group, sprinting ahead. The men behind him didn't dare to slow down or stop. Just then, a loud voice called out from behind. "Halt, I said, stop." Hearing someone call out to him, Qian'un turned around with a confused look. It was the one-eyed man he had caught up on horseback. He He charged right into the group and shouted, "Namyang branch leader, get out of the way!" "Where are you heading?" As the man pulled his horse to a stop, Qian Yun pointed ahead and replied, "To catch that bastard assassin." Hearing this, the one-eyed man on the horse threw his hand up and yelled, "Have you forgotten the elder's orders to protect Mount Qian'im?" Seeing this, Qian Yun replied in frustration, "We made a bad call and let the enemy slip away. We had no other choice." The one-eyed man furiously screamed in Qian Yun's face, "Hunting down the enemy is the elder's job, not yours to decide." Qian Yun finally dropped his aggressive attitude. Seeing his hesitation, the one-eyed man sighed, "Forget it." He turned his horse around and yelled at Qian Yun, "This is no time to argue. Get back to Mount Qian'im right now." Hearing the one-eyed man's orders, Qian Yun was pissed, but he could only sigh in defeat, unable to say a word. He waved his hand, ordering his men, "Everyone turn back. We're returning to guard Mount Qian'im." Sitting on his horse, the one-eyed man looked down at Qian Yun and asked, "I'm only asking because it pisses me off. You're a branch leader, and you couldn't even leave a message behind when you moved out." Walking right beside him, Qian Yun shot back, "I left a guy behind. Did you really think I wouldn't think of that?" Hearing Qian Yun say that the one-eyed man told him, "I stopped by Mount Qian'im, but there wasn't a single soul there." Hearing the one-eyed man's words, a look of pure shock washed over Qian Yun's face. The scene shifts back to the crypt. Huang Wol was holding a knife, getting ready to peel the skin off the dead body's face. Li Chu stood right beside him. He held the torch for his master, watching Huang Wol's every move with intense focus. As he worked on the body, Huang Wol asked Li Chu if he was scared. Hearing his master's question, the boy honestly replied, "I am terrified." Huang Wol just spoke in a low voice, "Even so, watch closely." Staring unblinkingly into the coffin, Li Chu replied, "Isn't this something I have to learn? I'm trying to see how you take the face off without causing any tears." Hearing the boy say that, Huang Wol suddenly stopped his hand and glanced over at him. But he didn't say a word. Right at that moment, voices echoed from outside the tomb. "Everyone search the area." Inside the tomb, Huang Wol and Li Chu instantly went on high alert as dirt and debris crumbled down from the ceiling. They both noticed it immediately. Huang Wol quickly rushed up to investigate. The voices of the men echoed from a distance. Huang Wol stepped outside. Night had already fallen, and from afar, he could see a group of men with lit torches moving across the mountain. Not far away, a man holding a flaming torch shouted at the top of his lungs, "Found it! I found their hideout!" Hearing this, Qian Yun sprinted over and yelled, Where is it?" By now, Huang Hu's body had been discovered hidden in the bushes. His eyes were rolled back, and dark patches of blood still stained the ground beneath him. Qian Yun collapsed beside his body, overwhelmed with grief as he cried out, I killed Huang Hu." He Mu stood over him, watching coldly before speaking up. "Do you finally see the cost of your reckless actions? His tragic death proves that the assassin is still here. His sacrifice won't be in vain. Branch masters surround Mount Tianyin immediately. Once the net is cast, he'll have nowhere to run but up the mountain." With that, the old man turned and walked away, leaving Tian'en kneeling in the dirt, burying his face in his hands as he wept. After a few steps, noticing Tian'en wasn't following, he snapped his head back and barked, "Tian'en, snap out of it. Keep your eyes peeled in case he tries to slip away from Mount Tianyin. Start searching. There's no way he made it off this mountain yet. Split up and find him." Heimu turned and stormed off. He immediately barked out orders to his subordinates. "Tell the disciples of Lao Shendongchang, Jucheng Hubu, and Wang Yang to close the net." Signal flares instantly shot up into the night sky. Wave after wave of fireworks exploded, relaying the command across the mountain. The men from the Gai Bang quickly mobilized, charging up the mountain to hunt down Li Chu and his master. A long line of torches trailed up the mountain path. One of the men glanced back, shouting impatiently, "Hurry up! Move it!" Tian'en finally pulled himself together. Standing atop a large tomb, he commanded, "Leave a squad to secure the base of the mountain. Everyone else head up the mountain and search. The assassin is wearing plain clothes to blend in. If a spot looks even slightly suspicious, check it 2 or 3 times." Through the pitch-black night, the glowing trail of torches could be seen rapidly swarming the mountainside. Standing just outside the tomb, Huang Yue watched the approaching lights, completely frozen in stunned silence. Li Kou climbed out of the tomb and whispered. Master Huang Yue bit his lip in absolute defeat. "It's my fault. I didn't think they'd actually come back." Hearing this, Li Chou stepped back into the shadows of the tomb. "I'll go pack our things." But Huang Yue's sharp, desperate voice stopped him in his tracks. "No, look at those flares. They've already surrounded the entire mountain. There's no way out." Li Chou hesitated, his voice trembling slightly. Then, "What do we do?" Huang Yu spun around, pointing a frantic finger at the boy. "Get back inside the tomb, right now." Li Chou nodded obediently. "Yes, master." Once Li Chou was safely inside, Huang Yu threw his entire body weight against the heavy stone door, struggling to close it. Just before it shut completely, he squeezed himself through the gap, muttering under his breath, "If we can't run, we just have to hide as deep as we can." Once inside, Huang Yu had to awkwardly hunch over, cramped within the suffocatingly tight space of the burial chamber. Ignoring the discomfort, he braced himself to pull the heavy stone door completely shut. Sealing a tomb from the inside was incredibly difficult. Gritting his teeth, Huang Yue strained every muscle in his body to drag the slab into place. With one final agonizing push, the stone door slowly scraped against the floor and sealed shut. As the tomb closed off from the outside world, an eerie silence settled over the area as if nothing had ever happened. Meanwhile, the men from the Gai Bang were making their way up the treacherous slopes. One of them aggressively hacked away at the thick brush with his blade. This man held a torch in one hand and with the other swung his blade violently into the bushes. The rest of the gang ruthlessly scoured every inch of the mountain, determined to hunt down Li Chou and his master. Just then, Heimu approached from behind with a group of men. Branch master still nothing. Hearing the old man's raspy voice, Tian'en turned around. Nothing yet. He gestured toward his men sweeping the area. "But we haven't missed a single spot. Honestly, sir, this is like looking for a needle in a haystack." Staring at the massive tombs looming before them, they began to murmur among themselves. But seriously, why are the graves on Mount Tianyin so ridiculously huge? Well, Mount Tianyin is famous for its perfect feng shui. Wealthy nobles competed to build the grandest tombs for good fortune. Hearing this, Heimu's eyes narrowed as he added, "They're so massive. You could easily fit a living person inside, not just the dead." Tian'en's eyes went wide, realization suddenly dawning on him. "Elder, I'll restart the search immediately," he declared, taking a step forward. Heimu stopped him with a scoff. "There are hundreds of tombs out here. Are you planning to dig up every single one?" Tian'en looked back, his expression dead serious. "Even if there were thousands, I'd still do it." Heimu nodded approvingly. "It seems you've finally woken up. Listen carefully. Assassins who craft human skin masks won't settle for rotting corpses." The old man then glanced over his shoulder. Dong, the subordinate, quickly stepped up. "Yes." Elder Heimu barked his order. "Bring the gravekeeper of Mount Tianyin to me, right now." Following Heimu's orders, Dong sprinted off to find the gravekeeper. Deep inside the sealed tomb, Huang Yue planted a lit torch against the stone wall. His mind was racing. Human skin masks or not, I should have just kept running. If we had just made it past Wang Yang, we could have lost them completely. Now I've buried myself in this grave. And getting caught is only a matter of time. It's over. To think that an assassin like me would meet his end in a place like this. Just as Huang Yu sat there sighing heavily at his own grim thoughts, Li Chu's voice broke the silence. "Master." The boy was standing on top of an urn pointing directly at the coffin. "The skin on this corpse is peeling off. Aren't we going to take it?" Hearing Li Chu's words, Huang Wol slowly opened his eyes to look at the boy. Gazing at the child in front of him, Huang Wol spoke softly. "You haven't been with me for long, but you're incredibly mature for your age. I'm so proud of you. It seems you already understand the situation even without my explanation." Hearing this, Li Chu quickly replied, "Yes, I know." Huang Wol then asked him, "We won't be needing those animal skins anymore. Did you know that?" Hearing his master's words, Li Chu carefully stepped down onto the ground. He looked down at the dirt and continued. "When I thought I was going to die by the blades of the Salchi insect, you saved me, master. Even though I swallowed half the ocean, I'm still standing here alive and well. Until the King of Hell comes for me himself, my story isn't over." After hearing Li Chu's words, Huang Wol sat in stunned silence for a moment. Then he let out a soft chuckle. "This little brat, you're already wiser than your master." Shortly after Dong arrived, bringing another man with him, the man took one look around and scoffed. "Are all the beggars in the Central Plains gathered here? Quite the lively party." Hearing this, the members of the beggars sect instantly shot him a deadly glare, making the man flinch in fear. Dong, who was leading the way, glanced back at the gravekeeper. Hurry it up, this way! The keeper quickly nodded and scrambled after him. Yes, sir. Reaching Hukmok's side, Jundong called out, Elder, I've brought the gravekeeper. Seeing the man, Hukmok stared him down and asked, Have you been filled in on the situation? The keeper nervously replied, Yes, you're hunting down an assassin. Hukmok then ordered him, I called you here because I need to know exactly which graves are fresh. The keeper immediately stepped forward. Please follow me, my lord. I'll show you the way. As he guided the beggars' sect members through the grounds, he gave them a detailed rundown. There was one 3 days ago, two from 5 days ago, another one from 10 days back, and one from about a month ago, though my memory on that one is a bit fuzzy. Hearing the long list, Hukmok raised a hand to stop him. No, just take us to the ones from the last 15 days. The keeper quickly pointed ahead. Right this way. He led Hukmok's group down the path, stopping in front of a grave marked by a stone statue. He pointed at it. This is the grave of Sun Wudong, a wealthy merchant from the Dachun region. He was buried just 3 days ago. As the beggars' sect members searched the area with their torches, one of them muttered, He was over 70, right? I'd say he lived long enough. Overhearing this, the keeper chimed in, The rich folks these days stuff themselves with so many rare herbs. Even when they stop breathing, their skin is so rosy, you can hardly tell if they're dead or alive. The beggar circled the tombstone, admiring it. This is one hell of a gravestone. Must have cost around 30 silver taels, huh? It doesn't look like much on the outside, but who knows how much wealth they buried down there with him. Hukmok ran his hand along the stone and called out, Hey, keeper! The man quickly responded, Yes, sir. Without even looking at him, Hukmok coldly warned, Shut your mouth. The gravekeeper slapped both hands over his mouth. Hukmok paced around the tombstone, inspecting it closely before asking, Is there an entrance to the burial chamber? The keeper mumbled quickly, The entrance is right beneath this stone. It takes the strength of 2 grown men to push it open. Thinking they were done, the keeper pointed toward another path. Let's keep moving. The next grave is just over the hillside. But Hukmok, still glaring at the stone, suddenly raised his voice. Hold on. He crouched down and brushed his hand over the grass. The dirt is disturbed and the grass is flattened. There are clear drag marks near the stone. This is the place. He's hiding down in this tomb. Hearing this, 2 brawny members of the beggars' sect stepped forward. We'll push the stone aside. Hukmok raised his staff and barked orders at his men. He'll be waiting to ambush us the second this door opens. Draw your weapons and prepare for a fight. On his command, the beggars' sect members surrounding the grave instantly drew their blades. Grunting with effort, the 2 men slowly shoved the heavy stone door open. But nothing happened. There was dead silence inside. The beggars' sect members watched cautiously, no one daring to make the first move. The burial chamber below remained eerily quiet, swallowed by pitch-black darkness. Just then, a man stepped out from the crowd. Seeing him, the frightened gravekeeper quickly scrambled out of the way. Jianghu slowly approached the entrance, holding his torch high. I'll go down and scout it out. Another beggar tossed a dagger over to him and called out, Branch, master! Jianghu snatched the blade from the grass. Gripping it tightly in one hand and the torch in the other, he began his descent. Entering the tomb, he carefully held the flame out in front of him, taking one slow step at a time. His face was tight with intense concentration as he ventured deeper into the underground vault. Barely daring to breathe, Jianghu crept forward using the flickering light to guide his way. Slowly, the torchlight illuminated the interior of the chamber. The sight before him made his blood run cold. He froze in absolute shock. Snapping out of it, he furrowed his brow and shouted up the stairs. Elder, you need to come down and see this. Hearing the alarm in Jianghu's voice, Hukmok quickly scrambled down into the tomb. What is it? Jianghu yelled back. That assassin! Look at this! It's my envoy. In the center of the room, the coffin had been forcefully ripped open. But worse, 3 separate tunnels had been violently dug right through the dirt walls, branching off in completely different directions. Staring at the absolute ruin of the burial chamber, one of the men muttered, He burrowed his way out. He escaped. Hukmok and Jianghu stood in front of one of the tunnels, inspecting the messy handiwork. Peering into the darkness, Hukmok shook his head. The sheer desperation to survive. It's almost terrifying. Jianghu pointed to the other 2 holes. I don't get it. Why waste energy digging 3 separate tunnels? Hukmok turned to him, his eyes grim. He knew we'd eventually track him here. He dug multiple paths to completely cover his tracks and confuse anyone following him. Jundong and the thief went down to check as well. Tian crawled into one of the tunnels and said, "I'll head in here and take a look." After saying that, Tian crawled inside while Mu kept watch outside. From deep within the tunnel, Tian shouted back, "Elder, the path is blocked further ahead." Hearing this, Mu yelled back, "You might have taken the wrong path. Check the sides." The thief crawled into another tunnel, only to turn back and say, "This one's a dead end too." Jundong emerged from the third tunnel, echoing the other two. "Same here." Mu scanned the area and concluded, he must have dug the dirt out from the front and packed it behind him to seal the tunnel. Brushing the dirt off his clothes, Jundong asked, "Is that even possible?" Mu calmly replied, "When a blade is pressed against your neck, there's nothing you can't do." The old man then glanced at the corpse lying in the coffin and sneered, "Just looking at this guy makes me sick." After saying that, he let out a smug, triumphant laugh. Climbing out of the tomb, Mu barked his orders. "How much of the thunder powder do we have left? Bring it all here." A beggar's sect disciple turned to him and asked, "Elder, are you planning to use it here?" Hearing this, Mu impatiently yelled, "This is urgent. Don't just stand there. Hurry up and bring the explosives." The torchbearer immediately shouted, "Yes, sir," and ran off. Mu began pacing across the ground, counting his steps out loud. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. 4 steps, 7 steps, 8 steps. 16 steps, 17 steps, 19 steps. The old man kept muttering the count under his breath as he walked. He stared down at the grass beneath his feet and muttered to himself, "This should be about right." A young guy and a little brat digging blindly could probably only make it this far. Meanwhile, deep underground, Huang Yi and Li Qiu were frantically digging for an exit. As he clawed at the dirt, Huang Yue called out, "We won't get anywhere if you can't clear the dirt as fast as I'm digging it." Trailing behind him, desperately kicking the dirt back, Li Qiu replied, "I know. I'm pushing as hard as I can." Li Qiu groaned violently, stomping down the loose dirt beneath his feet. He was completely exhausted. Panting heavily, Li Qiu wiped the pouring sweat from his forehead. Up above, the man who had gone to fetch the explosives finally returned with a group. "I've brought all the explosives just as you ordered." Tian'an watched as the barrels of explosives were unloaded. "Elder, the explosives are here. What's our next move?" Mu waved his arm and barked, "Bury the explosives all around the tomb starting from this mark." The men responded in unison, "Yes, sir." The old man yelled one last reminder, "Don't hold back on the powder or the fuses. Use it all." Seeing the jars of explosives being rolled out, the graveyard keeper's eyes widened in sheer panic. "What is this?" "Just, what do you think you're doing?" He threw himself in front of Mu, desperately trying to block him. "Stop. You have to stop right now. Explosives. Are you trying to level this entire place to the ground? Do you even know whose tomb this is? Their family will never let this go. Don't you care about the consequences?" Annoyed by the keeper's frantic shouting, Mu abruptly shoved his staff right in the man's face, forcing him to stumble backward. He narrowed his eyes at the keeper and sneered, "If you've got time to ask stupid questions, you'd better go do your job. Unless, of course, you want the dead bodies blown to bits too." Back down in the tunnel, Huang Yue was still furiously clawing his way forward. Gasping for breath, he finally stopped for a moment and glanced over his shoulder. Li Qiu was nowhere to be seen. Huang Yue yelled out, "The dirt is backing up. Keep this up and the space between us will be blocked completely. Q." Completely drained, Li Qiu lay sprawled on the freshly piled dirt and weakly wheezed out, "Yes, master." Hearing how faint and exhausted the boy sounded, Huang Yue didn't have the heart to say anything else. Above ground, bundles of explosives were being tightly strapped together. While the charges were being rigged, Mu paced around them and barked, "He's making a run for it. Pick up the pace." The men scrambled, chorusing, "Yes, Elder." Back down in the dark tunnel, Huang Yue hesitated for a long moment before finally saying, "Let's stop. We can just give up right here." Li Qiu just laid there in silence. Only the sound of his ragged breathing could be heard, offering no reply to his master. Suddenly, Huang Yu reached back into the darkness and placed his hand on Li Qiu's head. Gripping the boy, he raised his voice. "Snap out of it, kid. Where did all that fighting spirit you had back in the tomb go? Your senior brother. He gave up his life for you. Shouldn't you fight to live as long as possible for him?" Hearing Huang Yue's words struck a nerve, and Li Qiu's eyes snapped wide open. Up above the beggar's sect, disciples were lowering the heavy jars of explosives into a pre-dug pit. Once the jars were in place, they started rigging the fuses. Now we just need to connect the main fuse. Down below, Li Qiu painfully dragged himself back up. Clenching his teeth, he forced out every word. "I will keep going, master." Back on the surface, once everything was set, the torchbearer turned and shouted, "The explosives are in position." Hearing this, Tian looked toward Mu. "Elder." Without skipping a beat, the old man sneered, "There's no reason to wait. Blow it up." Deep underground, Huang Yu frantically dug into the earth, throwing a quick glance over his shoulder. "I'm gonna keep digging forward. Whether you follow me or die down here is up to you." On the surface, Tian waved his arm and bellowed the order. "Lighting the fuse. Get away from the tomb and take cover." In the suffocating tunnel, Li Qiu clawed away the dirt in front of him, answering his master's call. "I'm following you, master. I'm following you all the way up to the surface." Above ground, the beggar's sect had already lit the fuse. Deep underground, Li Qiu was panting heavily as he dug, his entire body practically buried in the dirt. Up above, the fuse burned quickly, sparking its way right toward the pit where the explosives were buried. The spark finally hit the gunpowder. A massive explosion erupted. A deafening boom ripped through the air as dirt and rocks blasted everywhere. A split second later, the surrounding explosive pits detonated one right after the other. Down below, Li Qiu felt the intense vibrations. He frantically glanced back. Huang Wu, who had been digging right behind him, suddenly froze. Terrified, Li Qiu screamed over the deafening roar of the explosions. "Master!" The blast echoed through that entire corner of the forest, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Up in the sky, dawn was just beginning to break. The graveyard had been blown to absolute pieces in seconds, leaving nothing but scorched earth. The beggar's sect immediately began their search. Suddenly, one of the men waved his hand and shouted, "Elder, over here, I found the bodies." Hearing that, Hukmok and Qian sprinted over, rushing straight to his side. Two mangled faces were sticking out of the dirt. One of the men sneered, "It's an adult and a kid. They're totally torn up from the blast. Guess this is the end of the line for that assassin, huh?" Hukmok crouched down to inspect the remains. It's too early to conclude that this is actually them. Qian, crouching beside him, scoffed, "Oh, come on. If these aren't their bodies, then whose are they?" Just then, another voice rang out. "Wait, what's this?" Another man in the group waved his hand. "Hey, I found another body." The group stared at him in complete confusion. Hukmok walked over, examined the partially buried face, and shook his head. "No, this isn't him either." Qian frowned in disbelief. "We only blew up one grave. How the hell are there so many bodies popping up? Shouldn't Sun Yichan's corpse be the only one in there?" Right at that moment, another subordinate yelled out, "Sir, I just found another one." Then even more voices joined in. "Over here too." Qian whipped his head around his eyebrows, furrowing deeply. "Another one." Hukmok remained dead silent. One of the men walked over, shaking his head. "Well, everyone believes that if you're buried on Mount Cheoneum, an infamous Myeongdong, your descendants will be incredibly blessed. And for the poor, that kind of desperation runs deep. Since they could never afford the sky-high land prices, they must have sneaked the bodies up here to bury them in secret. Mount Cheoneum must be completely packed with unmarked graves." Hukmok's face turned completely grim. He just stood there, speechless. After a long moment of thought, Hukmok turned his stern gaze to Qian. "Branch Master, it seems we'll have to give up on Mount Cheoneum." Qian eyes went wide. "Elder." Hukmok just stared him down and gave his orders. "Take the disciples and set up blockades at Mount Lao, Dongchang, Jucheng, and Nushan. Dongzhuang is already blocking Wangyang, so they will definitely try to make a run for Hubu." Hearing this, Qian cupped his fists and bowed his head deeply. "Please forgive me, sir. This failure is entirely my fault." Hukmok kept his voice chillingly calm. "Just go. If you mess up again this time, you will face the sect's punishment." Qian unflinched, then quickly raised his hand and barked orders at his men. "Call off the search. We're heading down the mountain. Move out now." Meanwhile, over in a nearby patch of tall grass, a single dirt-caked hand suddenly burst up from under the soil. It was Huang Wu. He broke through the surface and dragged himself out, his face completely covered in grime. Shoving half his body out of the dirt, he grunted, using every ounce of strength left to pull himself completely free. The moment he was out, Huang Wall collapsed against the ground, gasping desperately for air. After catching his breath, he frantically looked around. Chu Li Chu, a Kopit. He crawled across the dirt, calling out for his disciple. Suddenly, he heard a faint shuffling sound just a few feet away. Huang Wall immediately snapped his head toward the noise. Spotting the movement, he scrambled over and started digging frantically into the earth with his bare hands. After a few agonizing moments of tearing at the soil, Li Chu's arm finally popped out. Seeing his hand, Huang Wall grabbed on and hoisted him out of the collapsed dirt pit with a massive heave. Li Chu's mouth was hanging open. He had passed out completely, his clothes and face absolutely caked in mud. The moment he hit this fresh air, the boy jolted awake, coughing violently. Huang Wall quickly patted his back. "Are you all right?" "Still choking on dirt," Li Chu rasped. Yeah, master. I'm okay." He squinted at his master, one eye clamped shut from the grime. There were these massive rocks piled on top of me, so I couldn't push my way out quickly. I really wanted to break out, but I figured I had to wait until the beggar sect was totally gone before making a move. That's why I ended up passing out like that. Hearing that, Huang Wall let out a relieved smile. "I was thinking the exact same thing. You did great, kid." Li Chu broke into a huge grin. "You really think I did great, master?" Huang Wall looked at him and nodded warmly. "Yeah, you did perfectly." But suddenly, Huang Wall's eyes went wide with sheer terror. A look of absolute dread washed over his face as he slowly turned his head. Suddenly, a group of people appeared in the distance. It was Hukmok and a few other thugs from the beggar sect. Seeing them, the one-eyed man sneered. "So you rats finally crawl out after everyone else leaves Elder? You guessed right." Another beggar sect member spotted Li Chu and his master and asked, "Is that the assassin?" In the end, they still had to face these bastards at the graveyard. Huang Wall stood in silence, glaring at them. One of them pointed at Huang Wall and barked, "I'm not asking because I don't know who you are. You vicious murderer. You and your brothers have slaughtered innocents and stained the honor of the orthodox factions. The beggars sect will execute you on behalf of the 9 great sects and 1 clan." Huang Wall glanced at Li Chu. Out of habit, he reached over his shoulder for his sword and muttered, "From now on, run, and don't look back, understand?" Hearing his master, Li Chu nodded firmly. "I understand." But Huang Wall's sword was no longer on his back. He only realized it when he glanced over his shoulder. The one-eyed man yelled at Huang Wall, "Any last words?" Hearing that, Huang Wall turned and shouted at the group, "Give me a sword!" Li Chu's eyes widened in shock at his master's request. The one-eyed man turned to Hukmok and called out, "Elder!" Seeing this, the old man sneered, "An assassin to the end, yet you still want to die like a martial artist. We aren't completely heartless. Give him one." Huang Wall took off the cloth bag from his back and said to Li Chu, "We can't outrun them, so I'll buy us some time. Run, and don't let my efforts go to waste." Hearing this, Li Chu looked at him with tears welling up. "Master!" Following Hukmok's order, the one-eyed man drew a sword from his back and threw it at the pair, shouting, "This is a gift from Elder Hukmok, a man deeply tied to our beggars sect." The sword stabbed firmly into the ground. As Huang Wall stood up, Li Chu begged, "Let's run together. If you don't go, I won't either." Seeing the boy like this, Huang Wall waved him off. "Stop acting like a child. This is the only way to make sure you get out alive." Huang Wall walked over to the sword, pulled it out, and said, "You have to survive. You're strong enough to do it. It wasn't a long time, but I was truly happy having you by my side." Hearing those parting words, Li Chu stammered, his voice breaking, "Master." Huang Wall looked back at him with a warm smile and added gently, "Thank you, Chu." Seeing the tender expression on his master's face, Li Chu stood in silence, unable to speak a single word. Watching the scene, Hukmok barked an order at the one-eyed man, and Jundong, "Get in there and kill him." Seeing the 2 thugs charging at him, Huang Wall glared fiercely and shouted, "Go now!" As the one-eyed man and Jundong lunged forward, they roared, "You evil scum, pay for your crimes with your life." Huang Wall gripped the sword tightly with both hands and swung it with all his might. The one-eyed man slashed first, but Huang Wall quickly raised his blade to block the strike. The one-eyed man was knocked back, and Jundong, right behind him, reached out to catch him. With a murderous glare, Jundong gripped his sword and thrust it straight at Huang Wall. Huang Wall swiftly brought his sword around to parry the attack. The 3 of them clashed in a fierce and deadly battle. Jundong and the one-eyed man had perfect teamwork. The moment Huang Wol knocked Dong away, the one-eyed man instantly slashed at him. Soon enough, Huang Wol left an opening. Seeing the chance, one of them delivered a brutal kick straight to his gut. Losing his balance, Huang Wol staggered backward, stumbling a few steps before crashing to the ground. Watching from the sidelines, Li Chu cried out in panic, "Master!" Hearing his disciple's voice, Huang Wol yelled back, "Kid, why the hell are you still standing there?" Barely a second later, Dong's sword came crashing down. Huang Wol blocked it with his blade and screamed at Li Chu behind him, "This is an order from your master, run!" Hearing those desperate words, Li Chu lowered his head, his eyes filled with absolute sorrow. He squeezed his eyes shut, gathering every ounce of his courage. Without another word, he turned away. Following his master's final command, Li Chu bolted forward, running for his life without looking back. Standing nearby, Hokmak barked at his two lackeys, "What are you idiots doing? Go catch that brat! Kill him if you have to!" Receiving the order, the two immediately replied, "Right away, sir." Dong wildly hacked at Huang Wol's sword, roaring, "Every strike carries the grudge of the souls who died by your hands. Take it, and die, you murderer." Seeing the two thugs chasing after Li Chu, Huang Wol got distracted and snapped his eyes toward them. Suddenly, Huang Wol found a massive surge of strength and pushed himself off the ground. With a single explosive strike, he knocked Dong flying. Both he and the one-eyed man were completely stunned, unable to react in time. Letting out a furious battle cry, Huang Wol swung his blade forward. A devastating horizontal slash cut right through, leaving both Dong and the one-eyed man frozen in their tracks. Huang Wol's legs nimbly pivoted around. He stood right between the two guys chasing Li Chu and the two enemies in front of him. Seeing this, Hokmak clasped his hands behind his back and barked a warning. "Even when catching a rabbit, you have to give it your all. Do you really have time to slack off right now?" Hearing that, the one-eyed guy swung his sword and said, "If the elder says so, we don't have a choice. I'll end this right now." Huang Wol quickly twisted his body to the side, dodging the one-eyed guy's blade. Without hesitating, he sprinted straight ahead. Huang Wol quickly closed the gap on the two beggars' sect members chasing after Li Chu. He leaped into the air and slashed his sword at them. Hearing the noise, one of the guys glanced back. Huang Wol's sword struck down at the two of them. One guy screamed in agony as blood splattered everywhere. With one down, Huang Wol charged straight at the remaining guy. Dong and the one-eyed guy were still chasing from behind. The other sect member couldn't react in time and barely dodged Huang Wol's slashing sword. He stumbled backward and fell on his butt, hitting the ground with a loud thud. Huang Wol had no intention of letting him go. He raised his sword to strike him down. Right at that moment, Hokmak's cane came flying through the air. It smashed right into Huang Wol's back, throwing him off balance and making him drop his sword. Struck by Hokmak's cane, Huang Wol collapsed to the ground. Hokmak barked at the guy who had just barely survived Huang Wol's blade. "Go! If you let that brat escape, you're dead meat too!" The guy stammered back, "Yes, sir." He quickly grabbed his sword and bolted after Li Chu. Meanwhile, the one-eyed guy finally caught up. Hokmak pointed to them and yelled, "Chuchan Dong, thanks to your dragging feet, another one of our men is down. Are you trying to disappoint me even more?" Hearing this, the one-eyed guy stared at the dead beggar's sect member on the ground and shouted back, "I apologize, Elder, but I don't think we should let this bastard have an easy death." Beside him, Dong nodded along with Chuchian and chimed in, "Yeah, absolutely. We need to tear him to pieces." Huang Wol clutched his battered shoulder, thinking to himself, "This is as far as I can go." Meanwhile, Li Chu was running forward in a sheer panic, following his master's orders. Suddenly, a thrown sword grazed right past Li Chu's shoulder. His eyes widened in absolute terror. The blade stabbed into the ground right in front of him, forcing him to screech to a halt. Li Chu whipped his head around. The beggar's sect member had caught up and glared at him, cursing, "You little rat!" Seeing him, Li Chu didn't even stop to think. He spun around and ran for his life. The sect member reached his sword, yanked it out of the dirt, and roared as he chased after him, "Get back here!" He suddenly vaulted over a bush to cut off Li Chu's path. Panicking, the boy could only keep running. As the guy landed, Li Chu reflexively glanced back at him. The beggar's sect member let out a furious battle cry, raising his sword high. Running past a tree, Li Chu reached out and grabbed a low-hanging branch. The guy chasing him sneered, "Think you can get away, brat?" As Li Chu ran past, he pulled the branch back with all his might, using its tension. When the guy closed in, Li Chu let go. The branch snapped back and smacked his pursuer right in the face. The sect member cried out in pain, clutching his eye. When he lowered his hand, one of his eyes was completely swollen shut. He grumbled furiously, "These murderers are all the same, whether they're big or small. Just thinking about this kid being an assassin makes me sick." Making the elder worry over crap like this. Snapping back to reality, he blindly kept chasing after Li Chu. He ran ahead but couldn't see anyone, so he stopped in his tracks and bellowed in rage. He already got away, that little bastard. Meanwhile, Li Chu was hiding in a bush, right below the path. Drenched in sweat, Li Chu carefully peeked upward, too terrified to even breathe. Unsure of what to do next, Li Chu shifted his gaze. Just a little ways off, he spotted a swarm of rats. The rats were swarming together, gnawing away at a severed hand. Seeing the rats, Li Chu stared at them with wide eyes for a moment. An idea seemed to pop into his head, and he started making squeaking sounds like a rat. The rats actually understood Li Chu. They stopped their gnawing and turned their little eyes toward him. One of them even let out a squeak as if answering him back. Just then, the thug from the beggar's sect spotted him. He leaped down, giving Li Chu a massive scare. Glaring down at him with pure hostility, the thug sneered, "I knew you would be hiding down here." Pointing his sword right at Li Chu, he continued, "I do not know your story, but this is your karma for running with those vile scums. Your life was short, but consider it a blessing to die here. Not just anyone gets the honor of being buried on Mount Cheonium." Exhausted and slumped on the ground, Li Chu just narrowed his eyes at the man. "I will find you a nice spot to rest, so do not go haunting me," the beggar yelled, swinging his blade down at Li Chu. But the moment he moved, the swarm of rats launched themselves at him. Shocked, his sword froze mid-air. The massive swarm surged forward, squeaking fiercely. Seeing the sheer number of them, the thug looked down in utter confusion. Where the heck did all these rats come from? Before he knew it, the rats had completely swarmed his feet. A few of them even climbed onto Li Chu's arm and squeaked at him, leaving the boy staring in sheer disbelief. The beggar's eyes bulged at the bizarre sight, stammering out a mix of confused noises. He violently kicked away 2 rats near his boots and yelled, "Get off me, you disgusting pests!" What is going on? Why are they going crazy? He kept cursing up a storm, frantically stomping on the squeaking mass beneath him. Suddenly, one bold rat leaped right at him, jaws wide open. It lunged straight for his face and clamped down hard, making the beggar scream in agony. In a matter of seconds, the rest of the pack was jumping all over his body. He grabbed the rat on his face and crushed it, but it was far too late. The entire swarm had already engulfed his body, ruthlessly biting and tearing into his flesh. Screaming in sheer torment, the thug collapsed to the ground. Li Chu did not waste a second. Taking the chance, he quickly scrambled back up toward the path. Grabbing handfuls of grass, he pulled himself up with everything he had, completely tuning out the man's horrific screams. The moment he reached the main road, Li Chu finally dared to glance back down. The beggar's agonizing shrieks tore through the air. Standing there, Li Chu let out a few more soft squeaks, almost as if saying a final word to the rats. Then he turned on his heel and sprinted away. Meanwhile, back with Huang Wol. Seeing him slumped on the ground and gasping for air, one of the men mocked him. "Have you finally given up?" "If that is the case, I will put an end to this right now." Raising his blade, Jundong charged at Huang Wol and roared, "I will take your head." Hearing that, Huang Wol immediately forced himself up. "In your dreams," he shot back. He ducked, low-tackled Jundong right around the waist and forcefully drove him backward. The sheer momentum sent both of them tumbling hard into the dirt. Watching this, the one-eyed thug snapped furiously, "This bastard just will not stay down." Huang Wol quickly scrambled back to his feet, but the one-eyed man was already on him. The thug swung his sword in a lethal arc, but Huang Wol ducked just in time, feeling the blade slice through the air above him. The one-eyed man followed up with another vicious strike. This time, Huang Wol threw himself flat on the ground to avoid it. Without missing a beat, the thug drove his razor-sharp sword straight down for the kill. Relying on pure reflex, Huang Wol jerked his head to the side. The blade plunged deep into the earth, just inches from his face. Staring at the steel buried right next to him, Huang Wol let out a heavy, shaky breath. Wasting no time, he rolled to the side and pushed himself back up. As the one-eyed man wrenched his sword from the dirt, Huang Wol took off sprinting. The 2 men immediately locked their eyes on him. Spotting a discarded sword on the ground, Huang Wol swiftly scooped it up. Pointing the blade right back at them, he let out a fierce battle cry. "If I'm going down, I am taking at least one of you straight to hell with me." Bring it on. Enraged, the two men screamed, "You bloodthirsty assassin!" Just then, Hukmok slowly approached, from behind his hands casually clasped behind his back. "You do not fear death, but you fear that you will not be able to kill anymore. You truly are a murderous demon." The old man sneered. "Sometimes people question the righteousness of the 10 demises, but you are proving exactly why it is necessary." Hearing this hypocritical garbage, Huang Wol shouted back, "Bullshit! Who gave you the right to pass judgment on anyone? Isn't this all just an excuse to protect your own absolute power?" "Oh, I see. Jamutsit." Unfazed Hukmok sighed. "I suppose it was naive of me to expect any words of grace from a beast like you. Even if you were not marked by the 10 demises, I still would not have a single reason to let you live." Huang Wol shot the old man a piercing, ice-cold glare. Aiming his sword directly at Hukmok, he smirked. "Dragging you down to hell with me does not sound like a bad idea at all." Hearing Huang Yue acting so defiantly, Heimu furiously roared, "You little punk!" As soon as the words left his mouth, Heimu lunged straight at Huang Yue. Seeing the old man charging, Huang Yue let out a fierce war cry and swung his sword to strike. Heimu leaped into the air, driving a brutal knee strike right into Huang Yue's face. The blow carried so much force that it sent the sword flying from Huang Yue's grip. He tumbled backward. Landing lightly on his feet, Heimu stared down at Huang Yue on the ground and let out a mocking sneer. "Try it if you think you can." Huang Yue spat, sprawled on the dirt. He groaned in pain but stubbornly forced himself back up. Just then a voice rang out, "Master!" Hearing that, Huang Yue, gasping for breath, snapped his head up in pure disbelief. It was Li Qiu sprinting toward him from a distance. As he ran, he frantically called out again, "Master!" Huang Yu turned to him, his eyes locked on Li Qiu as he stammered, Why are you back?" Rushing to his master's side, Li Qiu asked frantically, "Are you okay? I knew this would happen." But Huang Yue immediately barked at him, "Didn't I order you to run? That was a direct command." Seeing Li Qiu return, Heimu glared at the one-eyed man and snapped, "Where are those idiots who went after him? How the hell is he running around freely?" The one-eyed Qiu Tian replied defensively, "I have no idea. I don't know how things ended up like this either." Stepping forward, Qiu Tian locked his eyes on the master and disciple duo. "We'll just take them both out at the same time," he sneered. But right at that moment, the men from the beggar's sect heard a strange screeching noise echoing from afar. The one-eyed man glanced at Heimu, asking nervously, "Elder, what is that?" Heimu frowned, looking toward the sound. "I sense it too." All three of them, Heimu Jundong and Qiu Tian, turned their attention to the dense woods where the relentless screeching was coming from. With no time to explain, Li Qiu urgently grabbed Huang Yue. "We need to get out of here right now." "Master," Huang Yue, still glaring at their enemies, shot back, "I already told you they aren't going to just let us leave. Did you run all the way back here just to state the obvious?" The deep woods looked completely empty, yet the eerie high-pitched squealing only grew louder. Li Qiu clasped his hands together in a desperate plea. "When I give the signal, you have to run with me. Please, Master, I'm begging you." Suddenly bursting from the shadows of the forest, a massive swarming horde of rats came charging straight toward them. The one-eyed Qiu Tian threw his arms up in defense, stammering, "What the?" Right before his eyes was a terrifying sea of rats charging forward like a vicious army. The rats scurried aggressively, baring their teeth and letting out piercing shrieks as they closed in. One massive rat led the charge, and every single one scurrying behind it had eyes glowing with sheer savage fury. Horrified by the sight, the one-eyed man finally screamed in panic, "Rats! It's a swarm of rats!" But it was too late. The rat horde had already swarmed right to the feet of Heimu Jundong and Qiu Tian. Standing protectively in front of Huang Yue, Li Qiu spread his arms wide and whispered, "Not yet, Master." Completely confused, Huang Yue could only stare at his disciple in silence. Faced with the massive vermin wave, one of the beggar's sect thugs yelled out, "What the hell is going on here?" Watching the rats crawl over their boots, another thug stammered in absolute terror, "Elder, get back, hurry." But Heimu just pointed a furious finger at Huang Yue, and Li Qiu roaring, "Ignore them. Take out the assassin first. Kill him now." Seeing the perfect opening, Li Qiu spun around and yelled, "Now, Master, let's go." Following Heimu's orders, Jundong and the one-eyed man turned to chase after them. "Get back here, you damn murderer," they screamed. But the vicious rats had already leaped onto their bodies, biting and tearing at their flesh, completely stopping them in their tracks. As they ran, Huang Yue glanced over his shoulder, watching the horrific scene unfold. A genuine look of terror flashed in his eyes. Covered in a literal mountain of gnawing rats, Jundong and Chu Tian thrashed around screaming in agonizing pain. In the midst of the chaos, one of them hollered, "Elder, are you all right? Get up into the trees!" Huang Yue looked back one last time. Seeing all three men completely engulfed by the horde and screaming bloody murder, he muttered in disbelief, "How in the world is this happening?" Li Ko tugged at his master's arm, urgently warning him, "Master, if we stay here to watch, we'll be picked clean to the bone too." Snapping out of it, Huang Yue quickly replied, "Right, I'm right behind you." He rushed forward, scooping Li Qiu up into his arms to move faster. Gripping his master, Li Qiu worriedly cried out, "At this rate, they're going to catch us." Panting heavily, Huang Yue shot back, "That's exactly why we're running for our lives." "I'm running as fast as I can, so stop panicking." The scene shifts. High up in the sky, a lone carrier pigeon was seen flapping its wings, flying straight toward the area. Down below, one of the beggar's sect members extended his arm, letting the pigeon land smoothly on his wrist. Untying the small scroll from the bird's leg, he immediately shouted, "Branch Master, an urgent message from headquarters." Tianun grabbed the letter and hurried over to Heimu, who was looking completely battered and filthy. "Elder," he reported, "the letter says they've discovered another body with its face ripped off." Hearing this, Heimu's eyes narrowed. "Where?" Tianun pointed directly at a marked spot on their map. "Right here, sir." So far, there have been 7 bodies found completely skinned of their faces, and 5 graves have been dug up. We dispatched 12 scouts to investigate, and all 12 came back with the exact same report. Xiaonan covered his mouth, looking deep in thought, and continued, "Could they bypass this area to avoid the beggar sect?" Hearing this, Hukmak replied, "Let's test it out. I have something to verify." The scene shifts to the road where a group of riders is fiercely urging their horses to gallop forward. At a nearby house, a woman's heartbreaking wails echoed through the courtyard. "My poor husband, what am I gonna do?" The woman in mourning clothes sobbed violently as she pleaded with Cheonan, "Just thinking about my husband, unable to cross over to the afterlife, wandering as a faceless ghost. It shatters my heart. Please, you have to catch that murderer and avenge him." Cheonan gently supported the crying woman and reassured her, "We will. Our beggar sect will definitely catch him." Covered in battle scars, Hikmak walked over and lifted the shroud covering the corpse. He muttered, "He didn't peel off the victim's face to make a human skin mask. His skills aren't bad at all." Hearing this, the one-eyed Chuchian chimed in, "The killer moves like a ghost. But why would anyone pull a stunt like this?" Hukmak narrowed his eyes and replied, "Could they be doing this on purpose just to throw us off?" "Someone is helping him." The scene shifts to a local pawn shop where a man spoke up. He pawned his items right here. The man held up a stamped receipt and explained, "Last night, I received a banknote for 200 taels issued by the Namyang Escort Agency. But wait, isn't this currency officially backed by the beggar sect?" Hearing this, Cheonan urgently pressed him, "Where is the guy who gave this to you? And don't you dare say you don't know." Terrified by his intensity, the man stammered, I really don't know." Furious Cheonan grabbed the man by his collar and barked, "You better let me finish." Shaking in the beggar's grip, the shopkeeper rushed to explain. He didn't have enough silver on him, so he said he'd go get more. He only gave me 10 taels and left. He promised he'd come back today with the rest. Just then, Hukmak stepped out from the crowd and asked calmly, "Are you absolutely sure he'll come back?" The shopkeeper looked at the old man like he was crazy and retorted, "What kind of lunatic would just abandon a 200-tael banknote?" Suddenly, a bright signal flare shot up into the distant sky. The one-eyed man turned back to the shopkeeper and said, "I am his friend." He then looked up at the flare. "The murder has been spotted. They're requesting backup." Cheonan, still gripping the shopkeeper's collar, gestured toward Hukmak and yelled, "What are you looking at? This guy is the killer's friend." The terrified shopkeeper stammered back, I'm not lying." Seeing Cheonan acting so recklessly, Hukmak placed a hand on him to stop him. "Branch leader, calm down." The shopkeeper nervously adjusted his collar and continued, "Even though I was terrified he might come back for revenge, I mustered all my courage to report this." Just then, someone else in the crowd shouted sarcastically, "Oh, so now I've become a traitor who sells out his friends, huh?" The shopkeeper turned to leave, waving his hand dismissively. Believe me or not, it's up to you. I've done what I needed to do." Seeing this, Hukmak quickly called out to him, "Wait a moment. I'll have my disciples escort you for your own protection." Meanwhile, another beggar sect disciple ran over frantically, waving a letter in his hand. "Elder, look at this. A masked man delivered this specifically for you." Hearing this, Hukmak took the letter and opened it. He read aloud, "Someone paid a heavy sum to smuggle 2 people onto a contraband ship. I suspect that person is the very same killer who has been peeling off faces recently." Cheonan frowned and asked, "I have no idea who sent this, but can we even trust him?" Hukmak glanced at him and replied, "He sent this letter to warn us that the culprits are using a smuggler's ship to escape." One of the men in the crowd chimed in, "Right now, figuring out which lead is real and which is fake is the hardest part. Maybe he's doing this on purpose to mess with us. Even if there are 100 suspicious leads, we have to track down every single one." Hearing their doubts, Hukmak firmly asked, "Are you saying we can't handle this?" As soon as he finished speaking, the old man turned to leave, barking out orders. "Branch leader, set up an ambush at the pawn shop. Sushin and Jundong go search the smuggling ships. I will personally track down the one claiming to be his friend. Let's move." The scene shifts to a man frantically sprinting forward. He was running for his life, desperately trying to escape his pursuers. Right at that moment, Hukmak's walking stick came flying through the air. The heavy stick slammed squarely into the man's back, making him lose his balance. The man crashed hard into the dirt. Seeing this, the beggar sect disciples cheered. The elder got him, "Apprehend the killer." One of the beggar sect members reached down to grab the man's chin, checking his face. Panicked, the man screamed, "Why are you doing this?" The disciple fiercely ordered, "Hold still." After a thorough check, the disciple looked up at Hukmak and reported, "He's not wearing a human skin mask." The old man glared down at the captive and demanded, "Then why did you run the second you saw the beggar sect?" Trembling, the man quickly explained, "I'm famous in my village for being fast, so someone made a bet with me. They said if I could outrun the beggar sect for 2 days, they'd pay me 5 taels of silver." Hukmak stared at him piercingly and roared, "I'm asking you, who made that bet?" The man awkwardly scratched his head and stammered out, "It was my first time seeing him, so I don't really..." Hearing that pathetic excuse, Hukmak ruthlessly kicked him straight in the face and cursed, "Son of a bitch." The scene shifts to a boat sailing out to sea where someone hesitantly spoke up, "But..." Hidden away in a dark corner of the cabin, the man asked, "How are the rats on Cheonia Mountain? I heard you can actually command them." "No." Li Chu replied to his master's question, explaining, "I can only mimic their sounds. A long time ago, when I visited this one village, the rats there started making sounds like they were crying, running around like absolute maniacs. And not long after that, a massive landslide wiped out the area. Ever since then, whenever I imitate that crying sound, all the nearby rats go crazy, because to them that sound is a frantic warning that a landslide is coming." Listening to Li Chu's story, Huang Wol looked at the boy and thought to himself, "I really don't know if I'm protecting this kid or if he's the one protecting me." Li Chu suddenly covered his mouth and whispered, "Master, my mask feels like it's about to fall off." Huang Wol just turned his head away and plainly replied, "It's fine." Just at that moment, a booming voice echoed from outside, "Stop the ship immediately! Drop the anchor! Stop the ship!" Everyone inside the cabin whipped their heads around, utterly confused. The voice from outside shouted again, "We are from the beggar sect, halt the ship." Hearing that name, Huang Wol's entire body froze in shock. His eyes widened as he looked toward the deck. The men outside continued to yell, "Open the doors and step out before we force our way in." Hearing the threat, Huang Wol immediately shot up to his feet and bolted outward. He rushed over to the stairs carefully and quietly climbing up the steps. And instantly, Huang Wol spotted several dark figures gripping their swords up on the deck. The one-eyed man up above roared at the top of his lungs, "I said stop the ship!" A man charged at him with a blade yelling, "Do you have any idea whose ship this is?" The one-eyed man didn't hold back. He swung his sword in a brutal, horizontal arc across the man's torso, sending blood spraying everywhere. Li Chu ran to the stairs and whispered out to his master. Hearing his voice, Huang Wol turned and warned him, "Hide in the luggage. If they spot you, jump in the water." The one-eyed man looked at the guy in front of him and demanded, "Get the captain over here. I need a word." Terrified, the man just pointed a shaking finger and said, "Over there." The one-eyed man followed his gaze, only to realize the captain was the very man he had just cut down. He casually walked over, patted the trembling man on the shoulder, and said, "Congratulations, you are the new captain. Got it." The man stammered out a terrified, "Yes, sir." A thug from the beggars sect barked orders at the new captain. "Hey, Captain, we have fugitives hiding on this ship. Drag everyone up to the deck right now. Move it." It didn't take long for all the passengers to be rounded up. The one-eyed man glared at the crowd and sneered. "Listen up. If I throw every last one of you overboard, nobody is going to bat an eye. So if you want to make it to your destination in one piece, you know exactly what to do." Hearing this, a scarred man stepped forward with total defiance. "State your name." "I am Dokgak of the Mangjang Temple." The one-eyed man just reached out and pinched the man's scarred cheek hard, making him cry out in pain. Satisfied, the one-eyed man yelled, "No mask here next." Huang Wall, who was hiding among the frightened passengers, carefully scanned the enemies, 2 disciples from Mount Cheonium and 3 from the beggars sect. "Our only way out of this is to use these runaways as a distraction." Right at that moment, a heavy hand grabbed Huang Wall's shoulder, making him flinch and turn around. It was Chun Han, a bald man with earrings. He suddenly tackled Huang Wall to the ground and screamed, "I got him! Here is the murderer!" Clearly things were not going according to plan. "I finally caught him." Suddenly, a woman leaped over the side of the ship, drawing the attention of everyone on board. Pinned to the floor, Huang Wall stared up at the man in absolute shock. The woman who had just boarded was Jianghu. She pulled out a dagger and screamed furiously, "You shameless bastard! Did you really think you could get away?" She raised the blade high and brought it down with a vicious cry. "Go to hell!" Yangju's dagger plunged deep, and blood instantly soaked through his clothes. She wildly stabbed at Huang Wall, screaming her lungs out. "Die, you piece of trash! Where is he? Where is my son?" Gasping for breath, Huang Wall pointed weakly toward the cabin and groaned over there. Down below. Hearing that, Jianghu quickly pulled her dagger back and sprinted toward the cabin, crying out for her boy. "Shin, mommy is here!" She scrambled down into the dark hold. Staring into the pitch-black space filled with scattered cargo, she called out her son's name again, but was met with dead silence. Jianghu softened her voice and pleaded, "Don't be scared, sweetie. Come out to mommy." The heavy silence lingered in the dark. Nobody answered. Realizing no one was going to speak up, she changed her tone. "From now on, you will be my Shin. If you want to fool the beggars sect and get off this ship alive, you need to come out right now." At those words, a pile of cloth in the shadows finally shifted. Li Chu poked his head out, tightly wrapped in a blanket. Back up on the deck, Jundong walked over to Chun Han and confronted him. "Hey, do you have any idea how messed up this is?" Chun Han calmly brought his hands together in a polite greeting. "I am Chun Han of Haomun. Please forgive my methods. This is an urgent situation that is hard to explain." He then casually stomped his foot onto Huang Wall, who was still bleeding on the floor, and sneered. This fearless scumbag kidnapped Lady Jiangju's precious son and was trying to skip town. Jundong frowned in disbelief. Kidnapping. Across the deck, the one-eyed man finished his inspection and spat in disgust. Nothing but useless trash on this boat. Right on cue, Jiangju emerged from the cabin carrying a child. She walked up to the one-eyed man and bowed gracefully. "Thank you, Haoman. I am Jiangju of Gimun. If you heroes hadn't stopped this ship, I would have lost my boy forever. I will definitely repay this debt." Hearing her gratitude, the one-eyed man raised a hand dismissively and said, "It is your lucky day, lady. We were just doing our job, so don't sweat it." Yangju stepped closer and bowed her head with deep appreciation. "Still, you saved my family. Please allow me to treat you to a proper meal. If you ever have the time, come visit Cheonhwarok." With that, she carried Li Chu right through the crowd. Chun Han grabbed Huang Wol by the collar, hauling him to his feet. "Let's go. Get up, you bastard. Our sect leader is going to deal with you personally. Just you wait." And just like that, the two of them grabbed a rope and swung down to a small boat waiting by the hull. Li Chu and Huang Wol were finally off the ship, escaping into the night. Once they were a safe distance away, Li Chu finally dared to reach out, his voice trembling. "Master, you are bleeding." Huang Wol clutched his wounded shoulder and forced out a raspy breath. "I am fine." "Don't worry." The tiny boat quietly faded into the pitch-black night. The scene shifted to the next morning. Outside a local pawn shop, the beggars sect thugs were grumbling. "We camped out here all damn night, and not even a single ant showed up." Hook Mok, who was sitting casually on the porch, scoffed. "Just another greedy coward scared of dying." Cheon pointed at the building and asked, "Wait, aren't we supposed to interrogate the pawn shop owner?" Hoikmok waved him off and sighed. Chill out, kid. If we do that, who is going to sell information to the beggar sect in the future? Just then, the one-eyed man and Jundong returned with their crew. We are back. Seeing them return, Hoikmok spoke up. Looks like you guys came back empty-handed, huh? Hearing this, the one-eyed man nodded and replied, Yeah, that assassin wasn't on the boat. It was a lot of effort, but we managed to catch a kidnapper, so it wasn't a total loss. Hearing this, Hoikmok immediately asked, A kidnapper? The one-eyed man explained, We caught a guy trying to run away after kidnapping the son of Gimun Hyangju from the lower 5 sects. Jundong, standing nearby, chimed in, Hyangju was able to get her son back. Hoikmok looked pleased hearing this. Well, that's good news. Meanwhile, Cheonan turned to ask the subordinates, Didn't any letters arrive last night? Just then, a subordinate walked in and announced, An elder from the lower 5 sects is requesting an audience. The one-eyed man glanced over. The lower 5 sects. The man walked right up to Hoikmok and offered him a letter. This is from the sect leader of the lower 5 sects. Hearing this, Hoikmok reached out for the letter and asked, The sect leader? He took the letter from the messenger's hands and immediately tore it open to read. As he read, the old man's expression completely changed, his eyes darkening with intensity. He crushed the letter in his grip, crumpling the paper, and demanded, Is this the truth? Qianan could tell something was seriously wrong and called out, Elder. Still gripping the crumpled letter, Hoikmok held it up and said, It's news about Hyangju. Her cover was blown. Gimun Hyangju of the lower 5 sects helped that assassin escape, and now she's abandoned her sect. Qianan gasped in shock. What if that's true then? Hoikmok turned to the men of the beggar sect and revealed, Gimun Hyangju. She and that assassin are actually husband and wife. The one-eyed man was completely stunned. This is... Hoikmok immediately broke into a run, shouting, The lower 5 sects reported that Hyangju has a boat ready at the Doryong port. If that assassin gets on board, he'll escape the Central Plains completely. Bring the horses around. Hurry up. The scene shifted. Huangwol was currently getting his wounds bandaged. Hyangju told him, It was an emergency, so I could only stop the bleeding for now. It's going to be hard to put any strength into your left arm later, so you won't be able to use any techniques. Once he was wrapped up, Huangwol sat up and joked, Well, at least I still have a hand to hold a spoon with. Hyangju immediately scolded him. That's exactly why you're still breathing. Did you really think it'd be easy to slip past the eyes of the beggars sect? After her outburst, a heavy silence fell between them, neither knowing what to say next. Huangwol looked away, slipping his shirt back on as he asked, How did you know I was on a ship heading overseas? Hyangju simply replied, My lower 5 sects intelligence network is just as vast as the beggar sects. The owner of the pawn shop is one of our people too. Huangwol finally stole a glance at her and asked softly, So, why did you do it? Hearing this, Hyangju just lowered her head, remaining completely silent. As Chunhan rowed the boat, Li Chu spoke up, How does my face look? You staring at it is making me super embarrassed. Huangwol reached up to touch his own disguise and said gently, Chu, you can take the mask off now. Hearing this, Li Chu immediately reached up to pull it off. Yes, master. Just then, Chunhan announced, We've arrived, Lady Hyangju. Their boat docked at a small pier, and Chunhan helped the 3 of them onto the shore. Hyangju reached out to Chunhan and said warmly, Thank you for everything. You're in a lot of danger now too, so please be careful. Hearing her warning, Chunhan smiled faintly. I'll be leaving the Central Plains as well. Once everything settles down, we'll cross paths again. Until then, please stay safe. With those parting words, he rowed his boat downstream, leaving Huangwol, Hyangju, and Li Chu to watch him disappear into the distance. As the boat faded from sight, Hyangju quickly turned to the others. We need to get moving too. I've already secured us a ride. It's a ship capable of crossing the sea. The scene cut back to the beggar sect. Hoikmok, Cheonan, Jundong, and the one-eyed man were furiously galloping on horseback. Meanwhile, back with Hyangju's group, the 3 of them finally made it to the ship, only to find someone already waiting for them on deck. You're finally here. Seeing the figure, both Hyangju and Huangwol froze in their tracks, not daring to take another step. Staring at the man's turned back, Hyangju called out in disbelief, Sect leader! Hearing her voice, the man slowly turned around, his expression completely dark. Hyangju, where do you think you're going? This man was none other than sect leader Hyungi. He fully turned to face them, his voice cold. I'm certain you know that aiding a hunted fugitive makes you an accomplice. Just what exactly possessed you to do such a thing? Hyangju's voice trembled. Sect leader. Youngie glared at her and spat. Is this how you repay me for taking you in? Hyangju could only lower her head, avoiding his piercing gaze. I'm sorry. I have absolutely no excuses. Youngie coldly continued, telling her that it was all over for her now. I've already alerted the beggar sect. I'm sure they're on their way right now. The scene cut to Hugmok and the other three violently spurring their horses, rushing toward the location they had been given. Faster! Stepping up from behind her, Huangwol looked right at him. Let's just put an end to this. We need to leave. Hearing this, Hyungi let out a mocking scoff. Oh, and just how do you plan on doing that? Seeing Huangwol step forward, Hyangju turned to him in a panic. Are you crazy? Can you even fight with your shoulder in that state? Huangwol kept his eyes on the enemy. It doesn't look like he's going to just let us walk away. I don't really have a choice. Youngie overheard this. Surprisingly, he tossed his own sword aside, taking a step forward. Why is a hunted fugitive running for his life without even carrying a sword? Well, I happen to be a very generous and fair man, so I won't use my sword either. The moment the words left his mouth, Huangwol charged forward, barehanded, roaring, I don't have the damn time to be grateful for that. Huangwol gathered his momentum and leaped into the air, lunging straight at Hyungi. He channeled all his power into his leg and unleashed a fierce kick. Seeing this, Hyungi immediately brought up his arms to block the strike. Following Huangwol's kick, Hyungi jumped backward to create some distance. He stumbled back a few paces but very quickly regained his footing. Seeing his opening, Huangwol charged at him once more. He threw another sweeping kick, this time aiming right for Hyungi's head. But Hyungi's reflexes were sharp. He threw his arms up just in time to shield his head from the blow. Now it was Hyungi's turn to counterattack. He launched a heavy punch straight at Huangwol. Seizing the opening, Hyungi followed up with another vicious hook right to Huangwol's face. Taking the blow head-on, Huangwol was instantly left reeling and dizzy. The sheer force of the punch sent him staggering backward a few steps. Still, he managed to quickly steady himself. Furious Huangwol gritted his teeth and threw a wild punch back at Hyungi. But this time, his fist swung through empty air. He missed completely. Reacting instantly, Huangwol spun his body around for a roundhouse kick, but that strike was also firmly blocked. Hyungi quickly slid his foot right behind Huangwol's leg. With a swift sweep, he completely knocked Huangwol off balance. Huangwol hit the ground hard. Not wasting a second, Hyungi brought his foot down, pinning Huangwol right by the neck. With Hyungi stepping down on him with crushing force, Huangwol was slammed flat against the floor. Seeing this brutal scene, Li Chu rushed forward and cried out, Master! Pinned down heavily beneath Hyungi's foot, Huangwol couldn't budge an inch. All he could manage were muffled groans from his throat. Hyungi looked down coldly from above and said, Let Branch Master Hyangju leave, grabbing Hyungi's ankle with both hands. Huangwol struggled to ask, What are you talking about? Hyungi finally revealed his true intentions. If you leave Branch Master Hyangju behind, I won't stop you from boarding that ship. Standing behind them, Hyangju heard his demand and was left completely speechless in shock. Huangwol narrowed his eyes at those words and forced out, You know damn well this isn't something easily decided. Hyangju has already been branded as my accomplice. Hyungi remained perfectly calm. Of course I know that. And that is exactly why I plan to walk away from the martial arts world and live out the rest of my days in hiding with her. Hearing his confession, Hyangju hurriedly cried out, No! Guildmaster! She ran up to Hyungi, clasping her hands together in a desperate plea. I am fully aware of my situation, and I have known that your heart was looking toward me, but because of him, I simply cannot accept your feelings. The guilt of breaking off my engagement to him has tormented me every single day. I have spent all this time just waiting for a chance to make amends. Everything happened so suddenly, so I had no choice but to follow him. She dropped to her knees before him, speaking with absolute sincerity. Even though we have been separated for 15 years, we are still husband and wife. I belong to him. Hyungi fell into a long, heavy silence. Looking up at him with clear, tearful eyes, Hyangju softly continued, Even if I were to go with you, you would only be living with an empty shell whose heart lies elsewhere. And I am certain you know that a life like that could never last. Finally meeting her gaze, Hyungi asked quietly, So, it's not because you despise me, is it? Tears welled up in Hyangju's eyes as she shook her head. How could I ever hate you? You have been like a son in my life. You have done so much to protect me." For a fleeting moment, the two simply gazed at one another. Their eyes conveyed a storm of bittersweet emotions that words could never capture. Yoon-gi quietly turned his face away. With an achingly heavy voice, he ordered, "Go!" Hyang-ju snapped her head up, unable to believe what she had just heard. "Guildmaster, yeah, my ideas." He cut her off with the sense of urgency. "I said go. Hurry, the beggar's sect will be here any minute." Hearing this, she bowed deeply, pressing her forehead to the ground in utmost gratitude. "I am truly eternally grateful for everything you have given me. I will always pray for your happiness." Moments later, the small boat carrying the three of them pushed away from the shore. Standing at the stern, Hyang-ju kept her eyes fixed on the spot where Hyun-gi still stood. Only after their boat had completely faded into the distance did Hyun-gi slowly reach down and draw his sword. He brought the sharp blade right against his own arm. Without a single trace of hesitation, he sliced into his own flesh. With a violent swing of his blade, fresh blood splattered brightly across the ground. Just then, Hukmak and his three men finally managed to catch up. As they stormed onto the docks, they found only Hyun-gi standing there alone. One of the beggar's sect members groaned, "Elder, it looks like we're too late." The moment he arrived, Hukmak vaulted straight down from his horse. He rushed frantically toward the bleeding man and cried out, "Guildmaster!" Hyung-gi clutched his severed arm, panting as he struggled to look up. "My martial arts were too weak to stop them. I'm so sorry." Seeing Hyung-gi with the severed arm right in front of them, all four members of the beggar sect fell dead silent. Hukmak looked up at the sky and let out a heavy sigh. His eyes darkened as he declared, "The beggar sect's pursuit of the assassin Huang Wol ends in failure." Scene shift. The boat carrying Huang Wol, Hyang-ju, and Li Chu was now drifting across the vast ocean. Inside the cabin, Hyang-ju was trying to stop Huang Wol's bleeding. "The wound won't close up right because you weren't treated properly," she said anxiously. "We have to reach the shore fast so I can get you some medicine." As he sat there letting Hyang-ju bandage his shoulder, he spoke up. "Hyang-ju, why are you blaming yourself?" she replied while wrapping the bandage. "I'm the one who did this to your shoulder. How could I not feel guilty?" Hearing her blame herself, Huang Wol turned to her with a frown. "I'm not talking about my shoulder. I'm talking about our pact, what you said to the sect leader." She froze, staring at him blankly. After finishing the bandage, Hyang-ju started packing away the supplies. She said with a sorrowful voice, "You already know everything. I couldn't fulfill my duties as a wife or a mother. I'm just a cursed woman. If only I hadn't relied on alcohol, our little So-So wouldn't have died when that carriage hit her." Hearing that, Huang Wol immediately raised his voice in denial. "No, that's not true. I'm the one who drove you to drink. As your husband, I couldn't give you a stable life. I'm the one who made you live in constant fear day after day, married to a man who was always being hunted down. I'm the one who broke your heart time and time again." Hyang-ju shook her head. "But I'm the one who chose to follow you." Huang Wol closed his eyes and sighed deeply. "Even though you knew what was coming, I'm the one who dragged you along fully knowing how it would end." Hearing his words, Hyang-ju fell silent, unable to say anything more. Huang Wol picked up his shirt and pulled it on. "Look at us. No longer pointing fingers, but taking the blame ourselves. It seems we've finally grown up. No matter how many times you read a book, the story inside never changes. But life is full of problems you can never solve unless you go through them yourself. In the end, time is what heals everything. So please, stop torturing yourself over the past." Back then, we were just too young to truly understand how the other felt. As Huang Wol spoke, Hyang-ju stayed quiet, but tears were already streaming down her cheeks. She quickly brought her hands up, trying to wipe away the tears and hold back her sobs. Huang Wol seemed to sense it, and he turned around. Wrapping his arms around her from behind, he held her close and whispered, "Please forgive me for those times, Hyang-ju." Deeply moved by his heartfelt words, Hyang-ju turned to face him. The two embraced tightly, accepting each other's apologies and silently giving themselves a second chance. Just then, Li Chu came rushing in from outside, shouting excitedly, "Master!" But as soon as he reached the door and saw them having such a tender moment, he couldn't bear to interrupt and quietly tiptoed away. Huang Wol heard his voice and pulled back to ask, "What is it?" Li Chu peeked out from the doorway and pointed into the distance. "Land. We can finally see land." Huang Wol smiled and replied, "I guess this is where we'll finally settle down." Li Chu cheered in response. "I can't wait to see what kind of place it is, master." The three of them stepped out onto the deck. Huangwo looked out toward the horizon and said, "Right now, the 9 Great Factions Alliance can't reach us. But that doesn't mean it's completely safe out here. Everyone be ready for anything." Li Chu looked up with curious eyes and answered, "Yes, Master." Jianghu, fixing her hair in the back, playfully scolded him. "Why are you scaring the poor boy already?" Li Chu turned back to look at them, flashing a big smile. "It's gonna be fine. As long as I'm with Master, I've got nothing to fear." Hearing this, Jianghu remarked affectionately, "You're quite lucky, you know, having such a dependable disciple by your side." Li Chu narrowed his eyes happily and chimed in, "She's absolutely right. I'm so lucky to be with Master." "I'm most sorry." Hearing him say that, Jianghu looked down at him with a soft, quiet gaze. Suddenly, she reached out gently, pulling Li Chu by the hand. "Come here. Sit right here." Though he didn't quite understand, he obediently replied, "Okay." She pulled Li Chu into her lap, her hands gently running through his hair as she spoke. "How can such an adorable kid have such messy hair? You're not a beggar, you know. Look at this tangle." With that, she gathered up all of his bangs, revealing his bright little forehead. Li Chu's eyes went wide, looking up at her with a pure, innocent gaze. After a little while, Li Chu's messy hair was finally tied up neatly by Jianghu. The three of them shared a comfortable silence the entire time. Once she finished tying it with a red ribbon, Jianghu finally turned to look at him. "All done! Let me get a good look at you." But to her surprise, tears were silently rolling down Li Chu's cheeks. Seeing this, Jianghu panicked a bit and quickly asked, "Why are you crying? Do you not like having your hair tied?" Through his tears, Li Chu shook his head. "No, it's not that. Every time I saw Young Song's mom and Yong Myung's mom tie their hair, I always wondered what it felt like. And just now, I finally got to feel that happiness. The tears just came out on their own. I'm sorry." Seeing the bittersweet joy on his face, Jianghu's own eyes welled up with tears, leaving her completely speechless. She suddenly pulled Li Chu into a tight hug, catching the boy off guard. Jianghu looked over at Huangwo and pleaded, "Let's raise him as our own son." Huangwo gently objected, "This child is my disciple. We will take care of him together." Jianghu immediately shot back, "My husband is already an assassin. So having an assassin son wouldn't be a big deal. I want to give this boy the love that we couldn't give to our little girl So-So." Scene shift. Somewhere else, a hand reached out from the shadows. The hand rested against a man's chest, slowly sliding down as a voice whispered, "Sogo." The man kneeling on the ground reported to the one who had mastered the first stage of the Blood Lightning Lotus Strike. Hearing this, the man lying paralyzed on the bed spoke up. "So, Xiao Gao finally pulled it off. My judgment in character was right on the money. Wouldn't you agree, Yu Kai?" Hearing Tianlan's words, Kai continued tracing letters on his chest to communicate. "I have even more good news. Our brothers, they all managed to escape safely." Hearing this, Tianlan asked in sheer excitement, "Is that true?" "Those are my brothers. I knew they'd make it." Yusai traced another message on Tianlan's chest. "On such a joyous day like this, I'll go make you some beef soup, eldest brother." After tidying up, Kai stepped out. Tianlan's loud laughter still echoed all the way to the courtyard. "I'm so incredibly happy, but the fact that I can't even shed a single tear right now is honestly a bit frustrating." Once outside, Kai sensed something was off and immediately turned back to look. His eyes widened, completely burning with fierce anger. He gritted his teeth in sheer rage. He hurled the tea tray in his hands right into the dirt. With a loud crash, Kai stormed straight back toward Tianlan's room. He raised his fist to strike, but froze the moment he saw the woman standing there. They stood face to face, the atmosphere plunging into dead silence. The woman standing before Kai was Ling Ling. She just stood there, completely motionless, not saying a single word. Yusai could only glare at her with pure venom, unable to bring himself to strike. Suddenly, he dropped to his knees, letting out a massive, agonizing roar of fury. Ling Ling then entered Tianlan's room. She traced her fingers gently across his chest. "I'm so sorry. I never thought things would end up like this. I am truly deeply sorry." Understanding her words, Tianlan gently replied, "I was the one who made that choice. You don't need to apologize, Ling Ling. However, if you truly feel for me, could I ask you for one first and final favor?" Hearing this, Ling Ling traced her reply on his chest. "I'm listening. I'll do whatever you ask of me." Feeling her response, Tianlan finally spoke. Xiao Gao is dead. Do not go looking for him. Ever. The scene shifts to the territory of Yunnan. Huang Yu, Shangju, and Li Qiu had finally made it back to the mainland. Stepping onto the dirt, Huang Yue gazed out into the distance and said, "It's a miracle. To think we actually survived and made it this far. No one here will ever recognize us now." Walking beside him, Xiang Zhou asked, "Are you planning for us to settle down here?" Looking at the unfamiliar land before him, Huang Yue replied, "Yunnan might be out of the 9 great sects' reach, but it's still part of the Great Ming. If we travel for about a month, we'll reach the southern wastelands. That's where we can finally rest." Hearing that, Li Qiu eagerly dashed ahead, shouting at the top of his lungs, "Then let's go! Come on, hurry up, I'll lead the way for you guys." The scene transitions to many years later. The morning light filtered into the room, glaring into Huang Yue's eyes as he slowly woke up. He lay there on a simple wooden bed, the blanket tossed aside, just staring up at the ceiling. It took him a long moment before he finally sat up. Huang Yu opened the door and stepped outside. Xiang Zhou, who was working in the front yard, turned to look at him. The moment she saw her husband, she spoke up. "You're up a bit late today." Hearing that, Huang Yue simply replied, "I didn't sleep too well last night." Yang Zhou stood up and walked over, holding out a bowl of water for him. Watching him drain the bowl in one gulp, she gently asked, "Let me guess. You were dreaming about your brothers again, weren't you?" Huang Yu wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and nodded. "Yeah, I was. They'll be all right." The two of them then sat down side by side on a large log in front of the house, looking out over the grassy plains. Breaking the silence, Jiang Zhou spoke up. "But seriously, this is how long are you going to keep making him run?" When Huang Yue didn't answer, she clarified, "I mean Zhu." Hearing that, Huang Yue turned to her and asked, "Are you upset with how I'm raising him?" Jiang Zhu gestured with her hands and sighed. "Well, for the past 3 years, you've done nothing but make him run. Don't you think people will find that weird? It's not like you just want him to be an errand boy for the Ziling Society. And honestly, the crazy part is that despite all this, Zhu hasn't complained about you once." Hearing her concerns, Huang Yu calmly explained, "The sheer despair of being weak prey. That's what I constantly worry about. Out here on these peaceful yet untamed plains, just surviving is the training he needs." Yang Zhou narrowed her eyes at her husband and asked softly, "You're afraid of something, aren't you? Are you thinking about the old days, back when we were always on the run?" Huang Yu kept his gaze fixed ahead and continued, "The one who will revive the Ziling Society and lead them forward is Xiao Gao. I've never met anyone quite like him. In times like these, someone like that is near impossible to find. Not just Zhu, but Yao En, Iyazaga, and Drogba. They are all destined to elevate Xiao Gao to the top." Jiang Zhu listened, then probed deeper. "Even so, you're terrified that one day Zhu might point his spear at Xiao Gao. Am I wrong?" Huang Yu fell silent for a moment, simply turning to look at her without a word. Seeing this, Jiang Zhou gently pressed on. "Don't you think you're misunderstanding our boy just a little too much? If you told him to end his own life or go hunt a lion with his bare hands, he wouldn't dare disobey you. If you tell him to become Xiao Gao's right-hand man, he'll back him with absolute unwavering loyalty, all because he genuinely believes it's the best thing for us." At this point, Jiang Zhou looked away, her expression tinged with sorrow. "But please, I'm begging you not to force him into something like that, though I suppose that's just destiny now." After listening to her pour her heart out, Huang Yue remained completely silent, simply standing up from the log. He rested his hands on his hips, gazing out into the endless grassy plains. After a long, heavy pause, he finally spoke a single sentence. "Do you really think I understand Zhu, that little—" The scene cuts to the depths of the dense forest right now. A strange animal cry echoed through the forest. In the distance, a wild boar came charging out with 2 arrows sticking out of its body. The boar was running for its life, frantically charging forward with people hot on its trail. One of the men pulled his arm back and hurled a spear straight at the beast. The spear pierced the ground right in front of it, forcing the boar to a dead stop. Seeing this, the men behind slowly closed in on their prey. Sensing the danger, the wild boar whipped around and glared at them. One of the men raised his bow, getting ready to shoot the boar. He drew the bowstring tight, taking dead aim at the beast. But right then, a blade suddenly blocked the bow. The swordsman spoke up, "Stop!" A man with a long beard stepped forward and added, "Hold on, brothers, that's enough. It's already entered the Hyolim Cemetery. If we hunt in there, we'll disturb our resting ancestors." It's a shame, but today we must show our respects and turn back." As he finished speaking, all the men behind him fell to their knees and bowed deeply in reverence. Just then, another cry rang out from deep inside the forest. Hearing the commotion, the group shot their heads up and stared into the woods. The bearded leader turned to his men and asked, "Is someone tracking that boar?" One of them replied, "But all 5 of us hunters are right here." The leader looked back toward the forest. Then, "Who could that be?" With that, he quickly got to his feet and dashed into the woods. Seeing him take off, the rest of the men scrambled up and ran after him. Inside the forest, the sight before them left the group absolutely stunned. It was Li Chu. He had grown quite a bit and was currently wrestling the wild boar with his bare hands. With Li Chu clinging to it for dear life, the frantic boar charged wildly forward. Gripping its head tightly, he suddenly pulled back his fist and delivered a massive punch right to its skull. Dazed by the blow, the boar slammed violently into a pile of rocks in front of them. The surrounding stone piles were knocked over one by one as the beast rammed through them. Immediately, a human skull rolled out from the rubble. The hunters watched in pure horror. The leader desperately yelled out to stop the beast. "The graves are collapsing. Stop that thing right now." The men leaped forward, blocking the boar's path and shouting, "Don't come any closer! Get out of here! Riding on the beast's back!" Li Chu screamed at them, "Get out of the way!" But it was too close. The boar sent the man flying, and Li Chu was nearly thrown off. He kept a death grip on the boar's fur with one hand. Meanwhile, the man who got rammed crashed hard onto the dirt. The wild boar kept charging forward, but Li Chu was fearless, refusing to let go of the beast. Right then, he raised his fist again, glaring fiercely at the boar. Aiming dead center, he slammed another brutal punch into its head. The boar squealed in agony. It instantly collapsed face first into the dirt, sending Li Chu tumbling off its back. The leader's eyes went wide with disbelief. "This little punk!" After the rough landing, Li Chu slowly pushed himself up from the ground. He looked at the boar, flashing a huge grin. "I got it." Overjoyed, he pumped his fist and shouted at the sky, "Awesome! I caught a wild boar!" Furious, the leader roared, "You little brat!" He pointed a finger straight at him and yelled, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Hearing someone behind him, Li Chu turned around and said, "Forgive me. I was merely hunting a wild boar, that's all. Are you upset because I stole your prey?" The leader threw his hands up in frustration. "That's not it at all. You just wrecked the sacred graves of the Hyolim clan. Look at what you did." Hearing this, Li Chu finally glanced around at the overturned piles of stones scattered nearby. Suddenly, Li Chu pointed straight at the wild boar and declared, "That's the culprit." The commander couldn't believe his ears. "What?" he blurted out. Li Chu kept his eyes on the group in front of him. "You all saw it," he stated flatly. Furious, the commander leveled his sword at the boy and barked, "If you had just left it alone, the boar wouldn't have caused a mess." Li Chu refused to back down. He pointed at the stone graves and shot back, "But you guys are the ones who lured it here. You should be thanking me for killing that boar before it could do any more damage." Seeing the boy's defiance, the commander leaned down, grabbed Li Chu by the collar, and snarled, "You little brat, you still dare to talk back." Li Chu glared right back at him with pure hostility. "Who's the one making excuses here?" Enraged, the commander let out a fierce shout and violently shoved Li Chu backward. Caught off guard, the boy was sent tumbling. Li Chu's back slammed hard against the dirt. The man turned to his subordinates. "See that, brothers, it's true what they say about the arrogance of the Zhongyuan people. They bring nothing but trouble. This is exactly why I opposed the patriarch when he let them settle on our land." Hearing this, Li Chu slowly sat up. "I see, so that's how it is," he muttered. "Then why don't you and I settle this using the traditional rules of the Zhuelin tribe?" The commander shot him a look. "You want to fight me?" Li Chu smirked from the ground, openly provoking him. "What's wrong? Are you scared?" Triggered by the boy's taunt, the man glared at him and spat out, "You arrogant brat!" Li Chu got to his feet and raised his fists, ready to fight. "Whoever stays down on the ground loses," he declared. The commander scowled darkly. "Listen here, you little punk. If that's what you want, get ready for a world of pain." The scene shifted to Li Chu's home where Shangzhou was getting dinner ready. She walked over and asked softly, "How does herbal soup sound for dinner?" Huang Yue, who was sitting nearby weaving a cloak out of leaves, nodded calmly. "Sounds good to me," he replied. Jianghu walked past, adding with a warm smile, I'm just glad little Q isn't a picky eater. Holding a basket of fresh vegetables, she suddenly stopped in her tracks and gazed out into the distance. Shielding her eyes from the glaring sun, she squinted to get a better look. Honey, look at that, she called out to her husband. They've been watching us for a while now, she noted. In the distance, a group of people stood silently, keeping their eyes fixed on the couple. Noticing the strangers, the locals began to whisper among themselves. Isn't that the Shi clan? Yeah, sure looks like it. Jianghu frowned, unease creeping into her voice. What are they doing all the way down here? Huang Yu narrowed his eyes at the group. I'm not sure, he muttered, but it looks like they're heading back now. A sudden sense of dread washed over Xiangzhou. She spun around, panic in her voice. Where is little Chu? What if he runs into them and something happens? Meanwhile, back with Li Chu, he took a brutal, full-force punch straight to the face from the commander. A relentless barrage of fists rained down on Li Chu, striking him so fast he didn't even have a second to react. The man delivered a vicious uppercut right to Li Chu's jaw, sneering, You catch one wild boar and suddenly think you're untouchable, huh? You really should have learned to gauge your opponent before running your mouth. The heavy blows sent Li Chu tumbling violently into the dirt, completely unable to fight back. Staring down at Li Chu, who laid battered with his eyes shut tight, the commander scoffed. Just how many times are you planning to get back up? I'll admit you've got some grit, but let's end this little game here. I'll have a word with the patriarch about your punishment. You just sit tight and wait, he mocked. With that, the commander turned his back and started to walk away. But right at that moment, Li Qiu's strained voice cut through the air. I'm not down yet. The commander didn't even bother to turn around, merely tossing a cold glance over his shoulder. Give it up. Look at the state of you. No matter how hard you try, the outcome isn't going to change. Li Qiu painfully forced himself back to his feet. His face was a bruised, bloody mess, but his voice was full of defiant rage. I said, I am not down. Seeing the boy's relentless stubbornness, the commander snapped. He whipped around furious. Keep pushing it, and I'll beat you to death. Unfazed Li Qiu screamed right back at him. Then kill me! Completely unhinged by the boy's taunt, the commander roared, You little! And lunged forward with a lethal punch. The heavy fist soared straight for Li Qiu's face, but in a split second, the boy ducked perfectly, dodging the fatal blow. Capitalizing on the opening, Li Qiu clenched his fist tightly. Pouring every ounce of his remaining strength into his arm, he threw a devastating punch and roared, I said if you want to kill me, then bring it on. Li Qiu's fist buried itself deep into the commander's gut with explosive force. The impact completely knocked the wind out of the man, freezing him in his tracks. Without skipping a beat, Li Qiu pivoted sharply and delivered a savage follow-up punch right across the commander's face. Reeling from the sheer pain of the blow, the commander stumbled back and gasped, You! Blinded by sheer rage, he retaliated, swinging a brutal fist straight at Li Qiu's face while roaring, You cocky little bastard! The massive hit sent Li Qiu flying through the air, his body slamming violently into the hard dirt. Completely losing his mind, the commander drew his sword with a deadly glint in his eyes. Fine, then just die, he bellowed. Suddenly, one of his own men jumped in front of him, grabbing the hilt of the blade to hold him back. Commander, please, this is going too far, he pleaded. But the enraged commander just roared, Let go of me! Completely ignoring his subordinate's warning, he violently yanked his sword free and screamed, That little brat literally begged me to kill him. The clan leader is bound to execute him anyway. He's the one who ruined the ancestral graves. I'm just getting a head start. He raised his sword toward Li Qiu and shouted farewell. The men with him froze in shock, their eyes wide with disbelief. Lying on the ground and shielding himself with his arms, Li Qiu peeked through his fingers. Suddenly, the commander stopped. His face turned purple, and his breathing grew heavy and erratic. It was Huang Yue. He had thrown his sword straight into the commander's arm. The commander struggled to turn his head. Meeting his gaze was Huang Yue, staring back with a fierce and terrifying expression. Seeing this, his men panicked and cried out, Commander! The scene changed. Back at their house, they were packing their belongings. Li Qiu turned to Huang Yu and said, Father, I am so sorry. This is all my fault. Tying up a cloth bundle, Huang Yue replied, Don't worry about it. He was the one who broke the rules by drawing a sword in a duel. Slinging the bag over his shoulder, Huang Yue looked at Xiangzhou, who had also finished packing. Are you sure you've gathered everything you need? He asked. Jiangzhou replied yes. I came here with nothing, so I don't have much to pack anyway. He nodded, walking toward the door. Let us get going then, he said. Behind him, Jianghu gently comforted Li Qiu. Don't worry, we will find a much better place to settle down. Li Qiu obediently replied, okay. Huang Yu reached out and pushed the door open to leave. But as the door swung open, they were startled to find the same tribesmen from earlier crowding the entrance. The mob had completely surrounded the house, blocking every possible exit. Huang Yu stepped outside to confront them. Li Qiu and his mother followed closely behind, peeking over his shoulder. The crowd stood completely still, glaring silently at Li Qiu's family. Seeing that they weren't making a move, Huang Yue raised his sword toward them and shouted back off. Do not make this any worse than it already is. My family is leaving right now. If you just let us pass, no one else has to get hurt. Hearing his warning, the tribesmen began muttering to each other in a strange dialect that the family could not understand. Just then, a woman stepped out from the crowd. She spoke to Huang Yue in that same unfamiliar tongue. But Li Qiu understood her. Standing behind his father, he translated, She says they are not here to fight us. It seems like they have something they want to tell us. The woman's name was Hong Mai, and she was the chief of the Honglin tribe. She continued speaking to them. Acting as an interpreter, Li Qiu stood between Huang Yue and Hong Mai. She says their tribal leader has passed away, he explained. Hearing this, Huang Yue replied, I am truly sorry for what happened to your leader. However, I hope you understand that in such a situation, no father could stay rational while watching his son in danger. We only ever wanted to live in peace with the Honglin tribe. Once Hong Mai heard his response, she spoke again. Li Qiu listened and translated for his father. There is a terrible omen at Shuihuan Peak. The Shi tribe is about to invade this land. The Honglin tribe has already lost Shuihuan Peak and its thousands of waterfalls. If they lose this territory too, they will have nowhere left to go and will be forced to migrate. Huang Yu frowned and replied, Then why are you telling us this? Li Qiu quickly translated his father's words back to Hong Mai. Hong Mai gave her answer and Li Qiu relayed it. She says we should be grateful that they gave us shelter when we had nowhere else to go. And she demands that we make amends for destroying their sacred ancestral graves. Hearing his son's translation, Huang Yue responded, It is true that I am deeply grateful you allowed us to stay on your land, but the matter of your tribe's graves is completely different. Li Qiu translated his father's words for Hong Mai, just like photographs taken from early 1975. Li Qiu then spoke up himself. It was obvious that your leader was the strongest warrior in the tribe. Hearing this, Hong Mai looked deeply saddened and murmured something back in her native tongue. Li Qiu turned back to his father with wide eyes. Father, since you killed their leader, they want you to take his place. They want you to lead the Honglin tribe in their war against the Shi tribe. Huang Yu let out a heavy sigh. Good grief, he muttered. I think it is definitely time for us to get out of here. After a long silence, Jianghu finally spoke up. The people of the Central Plains have been constantly invading the southern wilderness ever since the reign of Emperor Wu of Han. Our first instinct was to leave to keep Q safe, but would any other tribe even accept us? We cannot guarantee that the next tribe we meet will be as kind as the Honglin. Surprised by her words, Huang Yue turned to his wife. Are you saying we should actually help them? He asked. Jianghu looked at her husband and replied honestly, I do not think the chief's request is unreasonable at all. Huang Yu lifted his left arm and scoffed. You know very well that my left hand cannot even hold a sword anymore, and you still want me to go to war. Unfazed, Jianghu shot back. Then use your head instead. Can't you use tactics like setting fires across the plains to trap them? Huang Yi quickly shut down the idea. If we start a fire in a dry climate like this, it won't just be the Shi tribe. The entire southern wilderness will burn to the ground. Jianghu grumbled in annoyance. I said it was just an example, just a hypothetical. Huang Yu knitted his brows, his voice firm and decisive. I have absolutely no reason to get involved in this feud between the Honglin and the Shi. We are leaving right now. With that decided, Huang Yue turned his attention back to Li Qiu and Hong Mai. Seeing that his son was just standing there, Huang Yue urged him on. Well, what are you waiting for? Translate it for her. Obeying his father, Li Qiu turned to Hong Mai and relayed the message in her native tongue. Taking in his words, Hong Mai softly replied. She pressed her hands together in front of her chest, speaking with deep sincerity and pleading in her voice. Li Qiu's family listened quietly as she spoke, and once she finished, Li Qiu gently replied to her. Shortly after the people of the Honglin tribe began to leave, Before walking away, Hong Mai turned back one last time, raising her hand to wave a respectful goodbye to the family of 3. Slowly, the silhouettes of the Honglin tribesmen faded into the distance along the dusty road. Watching them leave, Huang Yue finally spoke up. Even though we turned them down, they didn't seem too upset. That's a relief. Beside him, Li Chu piped up and said to his father, "I told them not to worry because we're going to help them." Hearing this, Huang Yue turned to him in shock. "What did you just say?" Li Chu calmly continued explaining to his father, "The Honglin tribe has been bullied by the Shi tribe. We have to help the underdog, right?" Hearing his son's words, Huang Yue instantly flew into a rage and scolded him. "You little fool! How dare you go behind my back and make such a huge decision on your own?" Li Ko looked at his father and replied with complete calm, "It's my fault the chief is dead. I provoked him on purpose." Huang Yue was absolutely stunned. "What? But why?" Li Qiu rubbed the back of his head and went on. "During my duel with the chief, I couldn't land a single hit on him, so I figured that if I made him mad, I might just find an opening to strike back. And sure enough, once he lost his temper, his movements got sloppy and reckless. That's how I managed to land 2 solid punches on him." The boy threw a few mock punches in the air as he explained, leaving Huang Yue completely speechless. Finishing his story, Li Qiu's excited expression faded into a look of guilt. I didn't think he'd get so worked up that he'd actually pull his sword on me." Standing beside him, Huang Yu sighed and asked his son, "But I still don't get it. Why did you want to fight the chief in the first place?" Li Qiu stayed silent for a moment before finally opening up to his parents. "I wanted to see what it was like to fight a real person. For the past 3 years, we've crossed plains and mountains, and I've fought every wild animal we came across. Monkeys, wild boars, and even snakes." Suddenly remembering something, he pointed up toward the mountain and added, "Oh, Mom, make sure you don't go anywhere near the lake in front of that hill. There's a whole nest of green vipers over there." "But I know you didn't train me just to be a hunter. I wanted to test myself against a skilled martial artist. That's why I picked a fight with the chief." Hearing Li Qiu's reasoning, Huang Yu just looked up at the sky and buried his face in his hands, completely at a loss for words. Seeing him like this, Zhang Zhou gently nudged him with her elbow. She looked at Huang Yue and whispered, "Didn't I tell you it was time?" Hearing his wife's gentle reminder, Huang Yue rubbed his temples and turned to Li Chu. "You're right. This is all my fault for not paying enough attention to your progress. Once this battle is over, we're going to start your real training." Hearing this, Li Chu's eyes lit up with joy. "Really? Then I'll become your right-hand man and fight right by your side." But Huang Yue quickly raised a hand to stop him. "Absolutely not. You are way too young to be fighting in this war. Your only mission is to stay back and protect the village with your mother." Li Qiu instantly groaned in frustration. Seeing his stubborn reaction, Huang Yue laid down the law. "If you keep throwing a tantrum, we are packing up and leaving right now. Your choice." The scene shifted to a village nestled deep within the forest. Whispers and murmurs echoed among the crowd. "It's the outsiders from the Central Plains. The ones who killed our chief are here." Hong Mai stepped out from the murmuring crowd. With a calm demeanor, she clasped her hands together in a polite greeting. "Greetings! We welcome you to our home." Seeing her gesture, Huang Yu bowed his head in return. "Thank you for having us." Li Qiu stood close by, acting as the translator between his father and the tribeswoman. Hong Mai looked intently at the family of 3 before speaking again. "As you can plainly see, given what happened to our chief, the tribe isn't exactly in a welcoming mood. However, if you fight for us with everything you have, it will definitely put their minds at ease." Hearing this, Huang Yu closed his eyes and nodded. "I understand. I give you my word that I will do my absolute best." Hong Mai then gestured forward, leading the way. "Here are the living quarters. Right this way." Huang Yue politely responded, "Thank you." Just then, a strange noise echoed from the distance. Li Qiu's sharp senses kicked in, and he immediately snapped his head toward the sound. Deep within the forest, an eerie rhythmic booming started to echo, making everyone in the area stop and turn their heads in alarm. The people of the Honglin tribe were gripped by fear, collectively holding their breath, as if bracing for a nightmare. Hong Mai turned back to Li Qiu and his parents with a grim expression. "That's the war drum. It signals that enemies are marching down from the Shuihuan Peak toward the plains. Whenever the Shi tribe approaches, those drums beat like a death march right to our doorsteps. The war with the Shi tribe is about to begin." The scene shifted, revealing a fresh basket of fruit placed on a table. Hong Mai looked at Li Qiu and his parents with a softer tone. This is just a small token of my appreciation. If you need anything at all, please just let me know." A voice quickly chimed in to thank her. Leaving the fruit basket for the three of them, Hong Mai turned toward the door. "Please get some rest now," she said. Just as she was leaving, Huang Yue suddenly called out, "Chief Hong Mai." Hearing her title, she paused and glanced back. "Yes." Huang Yu voiced his concern. "Are there truly no other warriors in the tribe capable of stepping up as chief?" Li Qiu quickly translated for his father. Hearing this, Hong Mai let out a bitter sigh. If only it were that easy. "Word around the village is that you are an incredibly skilled martial artist. That's exactly why I invited you here to help us. Were those rumors not true?" Hearing her plea, Huang Yu spoke honestly. "I won't lie to you. I have my own reasons for not taking the helm of the Honglin tribe. First off, there's a heavy language barrier between us, making it almost impossible to give clear split-second commands in the heat of battle. Second, I am a fighter, not a tactician. While it's true that I know martial arts, my skills are meant for single combat, not orchestrating large-scale tribal warfare. And third, the most important reason, a true leader must command the deep respect of their warriors. An outsider and commoner like me simply hasn't earned that right." Hong Mai lowered her gaze, her face painted with disappointment. "If that is truly how you feel, then—" But Huang Yu cut her off before she could finish. "And that is exactly why. I will fight using my own strengths. I swear I will do everything in my power to fill the gap left by your chief." Touched by his resolve, Hong Mai spoke to them in her native tongue. Li Qiu immediately translated her words with a bright smile. "She says she wholeheartedly believes you can do it, Dad." The scene transitioned to the training grounds of the Honglin tribe. Two fierce warriors were sparring in the dirt while a large crowd gathered around to watch. The two tribal fighters charged at each other, trading heavy blows in an intense and passionate brawl. Suddenly, one of the fighters grounded his stance, clenching his fist tight before launching a devastating punch. The strike buried itself deep into the other man's stomach, making him let out a gut-wrenching groan of pain. A second later, his legs gave out completely and he crumpled onto the dirt floor. The man who delivered the winning blow was none other than Yi Shi. He turned to the spectating crowd and declared, "Did you all see that I didn't even use my full strength just now? It was barely a tap. But look at him. He's completely incapacitated just because I broke his breathing rhythm." Mastering your breath isn't just about throwing harder punches. If you hold your breath and flex every muscle in your body right before an impact, you create an ironclad defense against your opponent's strikes. Burn that into your memories. The crowd of warriors roared back in unison. "Yes, sir." Yishi cracked his knuckles and scanned the crowd with a grin. "All right, who's next? Who else wants a piece of me?" Suddenly, a young voice pierced through the crowd as Li Qiu jumped up, waving his arms frantically. "Me, pick me." Hearing the enthusiastic kid, Yi Shi paused and turned his head to look. The sight of Li Qiu right in front of him caught him completely off guard. Seeing that it was just the boy, Yok Seok agreed and called out, "Come on, step up." As Li Qiu quickly dashed forward, it took only one punch from Yok Seok to send him flying. Li Qiu hit the ground, his body skidding across the dirt and leaving a long trail behind him. Flat on his back, Li Qiu let out a few groans and muttered to himself, "This guy is seriously strong. He's on a whole different level from the chief." Just then, a little girl appeared in front of Li Qiu and said, "Of course. How could someone like you ever beat him? He's Yeok Seok, the Fist King of the Hongrim clan." Li Qiu finally sat up and snapped at the girl. "Who the hell are you? Get lost." Right after saying that, Li Qiu sprang back to his feet, gathered his momentum, and charged at Yok Seok again. He rushed in, throwing a flurry of punches at the man. Yok Seok clenched his fist and threw a clean punch right under his chin, sending Li Qiu flying once again. He cried out loudly, and everyone from the Hongrim clan watched him fly through the air. Li Qiu lay sprawled on the ground, gasping for air. The little girl from earlier, Yurin, squatted down next to him and asked, "So how were the punches of the Hongrim clan's Fist King?" Annoyed by her constant chattering in his ear, Li Qiu shot back, "Go somewhere else and stop pissing me off." Yorin completely ignored his words. She held out her hand to compare it with his and said, "So fascinating. Why is your skin so pale?" Exhausted on the ground, Li Qiu opened his eyes and retorted, "Fascinating, huh? Why is yours so dark?" Hearing that, Yorin immediately dropped her head, her cheeks flushing bright red. Suddenly, Yorin stood up, stomped her foot right on Li Qiu's face, and yelled, "I'm not dark." Li Chu scrambled up, swinging his fist down on Yoren's head as he shouted, "You little brat!" Getting bullied by Li Chu, Yoren immediately burst into loud sobs. Seeing this, the people around them started yelling, "That brat from the Central Plains is hitting Yoren! How dare he do that to the chief's daughter?" Hearing them, Li Chu pointed at Yoren and shouted back, "No, she hit me first!" Hearing that, Yoren cried even harder and bawled defensively, "That's because you made fun of me." Li Chu turned back to Yoren and yelled, "But you're the one who started it." Just then, a harsh voice cut through the kid's argument. "You fool, what do you think you're doing?" Li Chu turned and saw his father immediately complaining, "Dad, she picked on me first." Hearing his son, his father furiously barked, "Shut your mouth! Our village is already in chaos because of the upcoming battle, and you're out here causing more trouble. You're the one who said we should help the Hongrim clan." Hearing his father's words, Li Chu looked at him in disappointment and argued, "Do you think I wanted this to happen?" Huang Wol wasn't having it. He glared sternly at Li Chu and ordered, "Apologize to the girl." Li Chu tried to argue back, "But Dad." Huang Wol didn't give him a chance to speak and immediately shouted at him. Seeing his dad, this angry Li Chu finally turned to Yoren and mumbled, "I'm sorry." Yoren just turned her head away smugly, completely ignoring him. Seeing her act like that, Li Chu pleaded, "Come on, just accept my apology. Otherwise, my dad won't let me off the hook." Hearing that, Yoren finally looked back at him with a sulky tone. "I'm not just going to forgive you for nothing. You have to do what I say, then I'll accept your apology." Hearing that, Li Chu immediately asked, "What do you want me to do?" The scene shifts. A monkey appeared, chattering as it reached out its hand. Yoren snapped off a banana, handed it to the monkey, and giggled, "So cute!" Li Chu, who had tagged along, crossed his arms and said, "Seriously, this is all you wanted to do?" Yoren sat there watching the monkeys eat, smiling as she replied, "What do you mean I've always wished to see monkeys up close like this?" Hearing this, Li Chu looked down at Yoren sitting on the dirt and said, "It's not even that hard. You could have just asked someone in the clan." Yoren turned to him and explained, "People feel awkward around me because I'm the chief's daughter. Honestly, they'd never let me come out here because it's too dangerous outside the village." Right at that moment, the monkeys suddenly panicked and scrambled away. Li Chu and Yoren watched them go in sheer confusion. Yoren stood up and asked Li Chu, "What's wrong with them?" Li Chu didn't say a word. He just reached out and pulled Yoren into his arms. The next second, both of them tumbled into the tall grass. Seeing him act so strangely, Yoren tried to ask why. But as soon as she opened her mouth, Li Chu quickly clamped his hand over it, put a finger to his lips, and whispered, "Quiet." Right then, just outside the bushes, a group of towering figures was walking past. The scene shifts. Someone was sprinting back from the forest, shouting frantically as they ran, "Chief! Have they already reached the steps?" Hearing this, the man nodded and replied, "Yes, it looks like they're heading straight for us." The man stepping out of the tent heard this and spoke up, "It's finally begun." Hong Mek didn't hesitate. She immediately gave the order, "Commence the battle." Receiving Hong Mek's command, a man raised his arm high and bellowed, "The time has come. Gather all the warriors of the Hongrim clan." Inside one of the tents, Huang Wol was also tying his hair up neatly with a string. He was fully dressed in his gear, pulling the hair tie tight. Yang Zhou walked in from outside and told her husband that she had gathered all the young men in the clan. As Huang Yue adjusted his clothes, he called out his wife's name. Securing his sword behind his back, Huang Yue continued, "If the Honglin clan loses this battle, or if anything happens to me, take our child and flee to the Central Plains." Hearing his words, Xiangzhou choked up and cried out, "Husband!" Once he was fully geared up, Huang Yue turned to his wife and said, "Go back and find my older brother. He might know a way to keep you alive." Hearing him say this, Xiangzhou immediately ran toward her husband. She threw her arms around him and scolded, "Don't say things like that. You are Huang Yue, the man who escaped the inescapable net of the beggars sect. I believe in you." Meanwhile, just outside the forest, men from the Shi clan were lying in ambush. One of them spoke up, "Let's sit tight and wait until the battle begins." The others quickly agreed, "All right then, we'll set up camp right here." Inside the bushes, Li Cho was peeking out, secretly spying on them. He quickly ducked back into hiding. Yulin lowered her voice and asked, "Why are there so many of them gathered here?" Li Cho shook his head and whispered back, "I have no idea." Crouching low and crawling across the ground, he told Yulin, "We need to go back and warn the village right now." Just then one of the thugs spotted them. He blocked their path and sneered, "Warn them about what?" Having caught Li Qiu and Yulin, he yelled to his gang, "Hey, come see what I just caught!" The guys who were huddling in the corner turned around out of curiosity. Dragging Li Qiu and Yulin by the scruff of their necks, he walked over and announced, "These little brats were eavesdropping on us." The man who appeared to be their leader just waved his hand dismissively. "They're too small, useless even as slaves. Just let them go." But then another guy stood up pointing at Yulin. "Hold on. That girl looks just like the Honglin clan leader's daughter." The leader raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure?" The thug who recognized Yulin turned to the leader and asked, "Wouldn't she be really useful as a hostage?" But the leader shook his head. "Swords have no eyes on the battlefield. How are we supposed to move quickly if we have to drag her along?" "Just kill them!" Hearing those words, Yulin's face went completely pale. At that very moment, a tightly clenched fist swung through the air. It was Li Qiu. With all his might, he delivered a crushing punch straight to the crotch of Shilin, the guy holding him. The man's entire body instantly stiffened. Immediately, Shilin let go of Li Qiu, and Yulin dropping to his knees in excruciating pain. Seeing him like that, the rest of the gang burst out laughing and mocked him. "Look at him. A little kid just smashed his family jewels. Say goodbye to your manhood." Before they could react, Li Qiu grabbed Yulin's hand and yelled, "Run!" One of the men pointed at them and shouted, "Those brats know our position. We have to catch them. If they tell their clan we're ambushing them, here all our efforts will be for nothing." Another thug immediately grabbed his sword in his "Hey, I'll go get him." But just then, Shilin held out his hand to stop him, groaning, "Leave them to me. I'm gonna snap that little punk's neck with my own hands." Deep in the forest, Li Qiu was running forward as fast as his legs could carry him. But suddenly, a painful cry from Yulin echoed from behind. Hearing it, Li Qiu instantly turned back and asked, "Are you okay?" Yulin was kneeling on the ground, her voice trembling. "My legs are shaking too much. I can't run." Without hesitation, Li Qiu ran back to her. He crouched down and urged, "We don't have a choice. Get on my back. Hurry!" Just then, Shilin caught up. He was frantically looking around, searching for the two of them. Gritting his teeth, he reached back and drew the sword hanging at his waist. The moment he spotted them, he charged forward, roaring, "Get back here, you little brats!" Li Qiu, now carrying Yulin on his back, kept running and told her, "Hold on tight." Glancing over his shoulder, Li Qiu asked, "Do you trust me?" Yulin was confused and asked, "What?" Li Qiu repeated his question more intensely this time. "Do you trust me?" Meanwhile, a shaman was holding two bells in her hands. As she danced, she chanted, "O deities watching over this land, please bring your divine punishment upon the savage demons who wish to taint our soil with blood. Honored ancestors, please bless our warriors with skin of iron and bones of brass. Grant them the strength to crush any enemy. The God of life stands with us. We are eternal. We are immortal. Charge." After the prayer, the Honglin clan leader took the lead, shouting to his people, "Warriors of the Honglin clan, believe in yourselves. This will be our glorious victory." Back in the forest, Shilin was still hunting for the two kids. As he stomped through the woods, he muttered, "That little punk can really run. But no matter what, you're not getting away from me." Suddenly, Shilin spotted Yulin standing by a tree not too far away. A sinister smirk spread across his face. "Just as I thought." Yulin was just standing there, her hands clasped together in silent prayer. Shilin looked around and taunted her. "Well, well, where's that little brat? Looks like he ditched you to save his own skin." Hearing this, Yulin looked deeply dejected. She just sighed, refusing to say a word to him. Seeing her like that, Shilin gloated, "Tough luck, kid. All men like him are selfish and despicable." But just as he was about to take another step forward, his foot suddenly froze in midair. Right below him was a massive snake pit swarming with hundreds, maybe thousands of snakes. Seeing this horrifying sight, Shilin couldn't help but curse, "Oh shit. Unbelievable. You guys really thought you could pull a fast one on me." He then looked up at Yulin and continued, "You probably thought I'd chase after you and fall right into this trap, didn't you? Too bad. You little brats are 100 years too early to outsmart me." Right at that moment, a shout echoed from behind. Hearing it, Shilin glanced back. Li Qiu leaped out from behind, putting all his strength into a flying kick aimed straight at Shilin. He lost his balance. Instantly, his entire body tumbled down into the snake-filled pit. Li Qiu stared down at him with ice-cold eyes. Shilin hit the bottom, his whole body stiffening as he let out a sharp cry. In the end, nothing but agonizing screams echoed from that pit of venomous snakes. Scene change. Meanwhile, at the agreed battleground between the two tribes. A man from the Honglin tribe was sweating buckets, his breathing heavy and ragged. Just then a hand placed itself on his shoulder, making him flinch and turn around defensively. It was Huang Yue stepping in to offer the man some encouragement. Up ahead, the chief of the Honglin tribe drew his sword, raising it high as he declared, "We have nowhere left to retreat. We would rather die than abandon this land, but there is nothing to fear. Our ancestors who rest eternally upon these green plains will protect us all. We will win." Right then, bizarre war cries echoed from afar. The chief paused, casting his gaze into the distance. From the horizon, 3 men of the Shi tribe were charging straight at them. They were 3 old men frantically waving their spears and screaming as they ran. One of the elders leveled his spear and bellowed, "You bastards, take one more step and you'll taste my spear." But the moment the words left his mouth, the old man face-planted right into the dirt. The other 2, completely exhausted from running, started panting heavily. The Honglin tribe chief and his people turned to look. They all stared at the 3 old men with dead cold eyes, saying absolutely nothing. Seeing this, the Shi tribe forces burst into roaring laughter and mocked them. "Just look at the terrified faces on those Honglin losers." Over on the Honglin tribe's side, Huang Yue stepped to the front. Drawing his sword, he said, "You're all hesitating because they're just old men. Leave them to me." With that said, Huang Yue instantly dashed toward the 3 old men who had just caused the scene. He swung his blade, cleanly slicing horizontally through one of them, sending a massive spray of blood into the air. Without a pause, Huang Yue kept his sword moving. 1, 2, then 3. All of them were mercilessly struck down by Huang Yue in rapid succession. The bloodthirsty warriors of the Shi tribe, seeing this, excitedly roared their battle cry, "Abuta!" With all 3 old men taken out by Huang Yue, the Shi tribe forces let out a deafening roar, "Kill!" Wipe out the Honglin tribe, kill them all. As the Shi tribe shouted, they brought out their war drums, beating them heavily to boost their morale. A Shi tribe warrior pointed his sword at the Honglin tribe and bellowed, "Let's go, slaughter the Honglin tribe!" At the command, the Shi tribe warriors immediately charged forward. "Massacre them all, leave no one alive." Seeing the charge, the chief of the Honglin tribe also led his people forward to meet them in battle. "Kill them." The frantic footsteps of both tribes trampled wildly across the grassy plains. A Shi tribe warrior, spear in hand, let out a furious war cry as he lunged forward. Seeing this, the chief of the Honglin tribe immediately swung his sword to strike. Warriors from the Honglin and Shi tribes clashed violently in battle. In an instant, the peaceful meadow transformed into a chaotic storm of blades. A sword-wielding Shi tribe warrior slashed downward, instantly cutting down a Honglin fighter. The death toll and casualties on both sides skyrocketed. The scene was absolutely brutal and soaked in blood. Another Honglin warrior took a slash to the neck, blood violently spurting from the wound. Right at that moment, Li Qiu, carrying Yulin on his back, arrived at the battlefield. Witnessing the gory bloodbath unfolding before them, both of them froze in dead shock. Seeing the sheer carnage with their own eyes, the 2 kids were completely speechless. Their faces went pale, drained of every drop of color. Still on his back, Yulin asked him in a sorrowful voice, "Is this what war is like?" Hearing her question, Li Qiu replied, "I guess so. It's my first time seeing it too." Seeing the merciless blades and all the bloodshed, Yulin curled up tight and whimpered, "I'm so scared." Li Qiu suddenly seemed to realize something. Carrying Yulin on his back, he turned to head somewhere else and said, "I get it now." Hearing this, she asked him what he meant. Li Qiu turned around, still carrying her. As he broke into a run, he told her, "Those guys we saw in the forest. They're waiting to ambush the Honglin tribe from behind." Yulin still didn't grasp it, innocently asking, "So what?" Running as fast as he could, Li Qiu answered, "We have to stop them." Scene change. Back at the snake pit where Shilin had fallen, the voices of the 2 kids echoed again. Li Qiu asked Yulin, "Can you take off your cloak?" Hearing that, she asked him why. Li Qiu replied in a total rush, "There's no time to explain, just hurry." After getting Yulin's shirt, Li Qiu brought it to his mouth and started tearing it apart with his teeth. He ripped the fabric into strips and wrapped them tightly around his hands. Once his hands were wrapped, Li Qiu suddenly started taking off his pants. Seeing this, Yulin flushed with embarrassment, quickly covering her face and turning away. Yulin peeked at him through her fingers and stammered, "What? What are you doing?" But Li Qiu just stayed completely silent. After taking off his pants, he found a large tree nearby. He pulled Yulin behind it to hide and told her, "It's way too dangerous for you to come with me, so stay hidden right here. As long as you keep quiet, you'll be safe. I'll come back for you once this is all over." After settling her into her hiding spot, Yulin looked up at him with pleading eyes. Promise me, you'll come back." He nodded gently. "Yeah, I promise." Meanwhile, deep in the forest where the Shi clan was lying in ambush, one of the men muttered, "The battle's already started. How much longer do we have to hide out here?" A guy crouching next to him hissed back, "Just wait for the signal." Right on cue, loud cries echoed from the distance. The men perked up instantly. "That's it! That's the signal!" The squad leader quickly waved his hand, shouting, "Move out everyone, let's go!" The crouching men turned to look, and one of them suddenly yelled, "Hey, look over there!" Not too far away, they spotted Li Chu. He was sprinting right at them, clutching some sort of bundle in his hands. The commander narrowed his eyes. "Who the hell is that brat?" Li Chu kept charging straight toward their group. As he got closer, he roared, "Here, take this little gift from me!" The bundle in Li Chu's hands was actually a writhing mass of snakes. He had caught them all earlier just for this moment. Without missing a beat, Li Chu whipped his arm forward and hurled the snakes right at the Shi clan.